Women are they're difficult to talk to sometimes. Okay, protect yourself, protect your brain. Oh,
Supreme Court has ruled in favor of churches in California. There are more lockdowns on the way. Joe Biden's advisor, Dr. Osterholm, says we need a 6-week hard national lockdown. But it seems like in many different circumstances, the Supreme Court is saying you can't do it. There have been already several rulings over the past year stopping many of these lockdowns. We just saw the Supreme Court ruling in New York.
Will Destiny debate him like Vosh did, or go ape shit? I don't think Vosh really debated him like that. I don't know. I think coming from Destiny, I expect like a mix of both. There'll like be moments where he'll just like dunk real hard, and then there'll be like cooler moments as well. It just depends. Destiny has been trying. He said I remember he said he's been working on trying to not get as angry. So I remember there was a time where he had like a little coach follow him around to like press a button and give a little shock on the collar if he gets too heated. So yeah.
And the Great Reset opportunity, and the next week the New York Times saying it's a conspiracy theory. Well, regardless of the conspiracy stuff, I can say fine to the New York Times. But The Hill has recently published an op-ed. John Kerry reveals Biden's devotion to radical Great Reset movement.
When we get to
we can see in statements made by John Kerry, who's going to be representing the Biden administration in terms of climate change, that they want to take advantage of COVID to move into a kind of lockdown that would help alleviate the problems of climate change. Considering what we've already seen, I can only imagine people will lose their minds and things will get really, really bad. So we're going to break all this down and talk about this news, as well as some other news pertaining to Kyle Rittenhouse. And it works out really well because today we are joined by the one and only Destiny.
Hey, what's up? Thanks for having me here.
And I'll just let you describe yourself, do a quick intro, because I don't want to,
Yeah, so I do politics and gaming on which camera looks at me? Who do I look at?
That one right there.
That guy? Okay. Yeah. I do politics and gaming on Twitch and YouTube. I go by Destiny there.
Is this how all streamers look in real?
Probably center left
in
to
the
far
real world?
left, or if you're a communist on far right.
They look so
and yeah, otherwise
like
we just
falling
run
apart.
down.
Look so
I'm a huge
scruffy.
Ryden for Biden supporter.
Are you really?
Oh yeah, 1,000,000%. Love him. I hear him described as Obama 2.0. Very much in favor of that. So I'm excited for 4 years of Biden, maybe 8 years. Maybe he'll go for a second term. We'll
12
see.
years.
Otherwise,
12
maybe
years
Kamala Harris will step in for the second term. And oh man, how exciting!
16 years of Biden.
Most progressive voting record in the Senate. Yes.
I think people they always assume that like it's going to be some kind of internet blood sport. We clearly disagree in a lot of stuff. It's going to be a fun conversation. I think we'll have some back and forth. It'll be great. I think you were mentioning all that stuff because. Where you were looking at me as you were saying Obama 2.0 and all that stuff.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah, we were testing the limiters before this, screaming, seeing how loud we can go on the mics.
So we should be good to go. Yeah,
we have this thing where we can both scream at full volume and it automatically limits so that you don't blow your ears.
You guys are welcome.
Ian's hanging out, so this would be really interesting too. And of course, Lydia's producing.
I am producing.
And make sure you smash that like button, subscribe to the notification bell. We are live Monday to Friday at 8 p.m.
Okay, we'll silence this for a second. Moon Lord.
Kerry reveals Biden's devotion to radical Great Reset movement from The Hill. This to me is really funny because they say the Great Reset's a conspiracy theory, but it's actually what they've been calling it for some time. The Hill says, in June, elites at important international institutions such as the World Economic Forum and the United Nations launched a far-reaching campaign to reset the global economy. The plan involves dramatically increasing the power of government through expansive new social programs like the Green New Deal and using vast regulatory schemes and government programs to coerce corporations into supporting left-wing causes. Obviously, this is, I think it's a biased view of what they're saying, but to be fair,
really?
The World Economic Forum has pushed a lot of left-wing causes as they've referenced the Great Reset. It goes on to say, the two justifications for the proposal, which has been aptly named by its supporters the Great Reset, are the COVID-19 pandemic, the short-term justification, and the so-called climate crisis caused by global warming, the long-term justification. According to the Great Reset's supporters, the plan would fundamentally transform much of society.
I love how he calls out that this is a biased article and then just keeps reading it.
The world must act jointly and swiftly to revamp all aspects of our societies and economies. From education to social contracts and working conditions, every country from the United States to China must participate, and every industry from oil and gas to tech must be transformed. In short, we need a great reset of capitalism.
Sounds cool.
They want to say, internationally, the Great Reset has already been backed by influential leaders, activists, academics, and institutions, In addition to the World Economic Forum and the United Nations, the Great Reset movement counts among its there's a missing word there, I suppose. The International Monetary Fund, heads of state, Greenpeace, and CEOs and presidents of large corporations and financial institutions such as Microsoft and MasterCard. But in America, most policymakers, including President-elect Joe Biden, have been relatively quiet about the Great Reset, leaving many to speculate what a Biden administration would do to support or oppose this radical plan. They go on to say that at a panel discussion about the Great Reset hosted by the World Economic Forum in mid-November, former Secretary of State John Kerry, Biden's would-be special presidential envoy for climate, firmly declared that the Biden administration will support the Great Reset and that the Great Reset, quote, will happen with greater speed and with greater intensity than a lot of people might imagine. When asked by panel host Borge Brend whether the World Economic Forum and other Great Reset supporters are expecting too much too soon from the new president, or is he going to deliver the first day on these topics, Kerry responded, the answer to your question is no. You're not expecting too much. And yes, the Great Reset will happen, and I think it will happen with greater speed and with greater intensity than a lot of people might imagine. In effect, the citizens of the United States have just done a Great Reset. We've done a Great Reset, and it was a record level of voting. Kerry later argued that the Great Reset is necessary to slow the climate crisis, and that, quote, I know Joe Biden believes it's not enough to just rejoin the Paris Climate Accords for the United States. It's not enough for us to just do the minimum of what Paris requires. So I'm not going to read literally every,
even though he basically
it's clearly an opinion piece, but it's talking about something that's actually happening. Lockdowns. I'm going to ask you, Destiny, your opinion, because you were mentioning before that you're for them.
Well, are we going to talk about the Great Reset or are we going to talk about lockdowns?
Well, we're talking about the Great Reset for sure. Mm-hmm. I mean, unless you want to respond to that first.
Oh, that all sounded really cool, I guess. The idea that we have an opportunity to reorganize things based around like some kind of like ongoing crisis that might expose, weak parts of our economy or weak parts of, healthcare infrastructure, whatever. Like, I think the idea of capitalizing on those types of disasters and moving new programs forward, I think is really good. I think it's like pretty standard business practice too, right? Like nobody files bankruptcy and comes back the exact same way, right? Usually it's an opportunity to restructure your business, to get rid of stuff that doesn't work, to improve on stuff that does work. Like, I don't see the horrible part about that. But more specifically, lockdowns or?
Yeah, so I guess the general idea is that when they're talking about lockdowns, they're not talking about COVID. They're talking about the Great Reset and climate change. And that's the gist of what I get from John Kerry's statements. Initially, they said the Great Reset, of global capitalism, whatever, would be due to COVID. It's a great opportunity to do it. But then clearly what their real concern is climate change.
Just because you take an opportunity to, so I think it was Chicago, was one of the cities that had like massive fires that like ravaged the city, and they used the opportunity to rebuild a lot of the city's infrastructure. I don't think people were ever claiming they set the fires just to rebuild the city. I don't think anybody would claim that we want to lock down the country just to further climate change. There might be a way to make that
stop
argument,
climate change,
or to further climate change agenda, anti-climate change agenda. Yeah, that might be an argument that one could make in another world where we aren't topping ourselves every single day with record numbers of infections and deaths. Like if we were Australia or New Zealand and we were doing lockdowns continually, then maybe like, oh, hold on, there's an agenda here. But I mean, like we're losing Twin Towers worth of people every day. The idea that this is just a conspiracy to pass climate change agenda stuff seems like a hard sell to me.
I don't think it's that it's a conspiracy. I think it's that they're exploiting a crisis.
But that's good. Shouldn't we do that?
Not necessarily.
Isn't a crisis like one of your best opportunities to like restructure? Like I give with the example of like a failing.
I honestly don't know where
something really horrible happens.
Where Tim's going
generally
with this.
Horrible things happen because they expose some type of flaw or defect in what you do. Like, isn't that the time for change? Especially because that's when you're going to get the most like activism behind it.
Don't people have rights though?
What?
Like, don't you have a right to make choices for yourself, live your life,
sometimes,
especially with the Constitution?
Kind of. That's a very vague sense. I mean, like, do I have the right to go out and get drunk and drive?
You don't.
Okay, so we have some rights, right? Insofar as we're not infringing on the rights of others. So whether that's crashing in a drunk driving accident or infecting somebody with SARS-CoV-2, right? It's probably depends on what right we're talking about, I would imagine.
Yeah, so if you don't want to get sick, then shouldn't you stay home?
If you don't want a drunk driver to hit you, should you just never drive?
Well, that's different. That's someone who might be sick and doesn't know and is living their life under emergency circumstances like, I have to make money and feed my family. There's no circumstance where you have to be drunk and drive to feed your family.
There's no circumstance where you have to be outside and standing right next to people without a mask or whatever.
Well, we're not talking about that. We're talking, well, I mean, if you want to criticize the Black Lives Matter protests,
what if you have to get home?
And, the Biden,
and you happen
the
to be
Biden
drunk.
rallies or whatever they just did when Biden won. then yeah, there's no reason for those people to be doing that stuff.
You can simultaneously criticize them and the anti-lockdown people too as well, right? That's not like I can criticize both. To my knowledge, a lot of the people were in those protests were wearing masks, though. I mean, from what I saw.
Well, in the Biden one, they were taking their masks off and drinking and sharing drinks was like one of the big videos that came around.
Sure, that's pretty dumb. That's pretty dumb for sure.
For sure.
But I'm just more fundamentally, I'm just saying that like to come up with the like, don't we have rights? Well, yeah, I mean, of course we do. But I mean, we learned this growing up. With more rights also comes more responsibility. Like
I think the drunk driving thing doesn't work. There's a guy in Staten Island who got arrested trying to run his bar. He has to. Otherwise, he becomes homeless and he can't feed his family. And then what? Did they beg the government for help? The government's not giving it to him. And you can blame Mitch McConnell or Nancy Pelosi.
No, we could blame Mitch McConnell. Pelosi sent him like trillions of dollars of bills that are dying on his desk.
But we still had Democrats saying it was Pelosi's fault. You had Wolf Blitzer criticizing Pelosi. So I think it's fair to point the finger at both.
We're pointing a very short dwarven finger at one, and we're pointing like the nose of Pinocchio at the other. In terms of people fighting over specifically, what is Pelosi pushing for, what is she not pushing for, there can be back and forth over that. The fact of the matter is, there was some like $2.5 trillion bill that was left in McConnell's desk when he moonwalked out of the Senate after they confirmed ACB. So I mean, the blame is not even remotely close to equal there. The House passed legislation, the Senate let it die.
That's true.
You can't both sides that
way.
Well,
I heard somebody say that it was Pelosi's fault.
Whether or not it's me trying to do it, that's what people are doing, right?
Well, so Wolf Blitzer might have specifically criticized, like, hey, Pelosi, maybe
he cited
Ro Khanna.
What? He cited Ro Khanna. He was citing Democrats who were calling out Pelosi, and Pelosi didn't want to answer the question. So, obviously, if you're on the right's going to say, see, the issue with the HEROES Act was that they wanted fun, they were stuffing things in it that didn't make sense, and the Republicans did the same thing. They wanted money for an FBI building. I don't want to go off on the Democrat versus Republican.
Sure. Well, it's important because obviously as a huge diehard Biden fan, I'm going to fight viciously back against the idea that both sides messed up. The fact of the matter is that if I go into the Senate, they did not give us legislation for any type of coronavirus release, and Pelosi did. She delivered. We have that legislation. It's sitting on the floor of the Senate, and it's never going to be called for a vote. But,
so I want to keep it to discussion of the lockdown rights, the Great Reset stuff.
Well, I want to move on past that one.
The government is clearly not providing for people, regardless of whose fault it is. You can say it's Republicans' fault, then absolutely.
Sure.
What is a working class, man or woman to do when they're told, specifically in Staten Island, the issue was that this bar wasn't allowed to serve people, but 2 blocks away, everything was normal. They said this specific zone has been locked down. So when the guy said, I have nothing left to lose, the money that did go out overwhelmingly went to massive corporations. The lockdown is overwhelmingly benefiting.
The money should go to massive corporations, right?
No.
Why not?
It should go to the people who can then buy resources to go to the businesses to make sure they can cover their costs and their taxes.
So it's still going to
the PPP loans. I wish I could remember what every word stands for. But the PPP loans were loans given to corporations that allow them to cover up to 2.5 months of employment expenses when they paid employees. If they did that, then the loan was going to be forgiven. We still haven't gotten the paperwork for what that forgiveness looks like, but that's the point. So if I have one corporation that hires 10,000 people and another company that hires 10 people, well, of course more money is going to go to the corporation because there's more payroll to cover, right? But it's not. But the corporations aren't.
It's a semantic issue.
Well, no, it's not semantic.
No,
semantics. What?
Yeah.
What I meant was not
that word
that
means?
A small business with 10 employees was getting money. What I meant was when the lockdown happens, the money ends up in the hands of the ultra wealthy. The stores that are allowed to remain open tend to be the big box stores, and that's why we saw the massive profits, the massive spiking in stock value for these big companies, notably Amazon. The working class people got $1,200.
Yeah, stock values are definitely a thing. But if you, I'm just talking very specifically because it's very important to understand each of these policies. So the PPP only works for you if you pay out employees. So I got a PPP loan. The way that works, the way that the paperwork details is that when I get that money, I can claim up to 2.5 times the expenses of all of my employees. And the only money that's forgiven for me is what I pay out to my employees. So for me personally, there were like 2 people that I kept on payroll just because, the government's going to pay for it. Yeah, screw it. I'll take the PPP money and then I'll continue to pay them out because it'll be forgiven. I only kept those 2 people on payroll because the government gave me that PPP money. And any corporation isn't going to pocket the money. It gets paid out to employees. It has to be.
Did they give you money to pay your rent, pay your taxes, pay your costs, replace perishable goods?
No, it was just to cover the cost of employing the employees.
I got a PPP loan.
Everything, yeah.
What happens to the lockdown is massive businesses, the likes of McDonald's, Starbucks, they can shut down and they can roll their eyes.
And they can absorb. 100%, I agree.
Small businesses are being destroyed. So that's the question I said, don't people have rights? When these people, we see now, there's a West Michigan story going viral where a guy, there's a news report going on. A guy walks out of his restaurant and he yells to the news reporter. He's like, is this you? Are you talking about me? And he said, they've taken everything. The money is going to their friends. It's going to special interests. The bailout that came out, people did get a stimulus, and then money did go to small businesses. But if the small businesses are shut down and can't sell things, what happens? The restaurant, their perishable goods, gone. They can't reopen. So in New Jersey, a third of small businesses have been destroyed.
Sure. And I've heard similar in New York restaurants and everything. Like a lot of places that are closing are never coming back probably. So it's a tragedy, of course. Yeah.
So I guess to keep it in context of the Great Reset, talking about exploiting a crisis to make some change is also destroying the lives of people, resulting in spikes in suicide, spikes in crime.
I don't think we're locking down, though, for the Great Reset. I think we're locking down because record numbers of people being infected and dying from the coronavirus. If we can do something on the backs of that, I don't think that would be the worst thing in the world. Maybe part of that Great Reset, and I'm almost positive without knowing the intricacies, I'm pretty sure that part of that Great Reset is probably going to be like more stimulus for small business owners. It's going to be covering healthcare for people. It's going to be more types of like checks or disbursements during like times of crisis. That's probably going to be baked into that Great Reset as well. Because as you accurately pointed out, the relief that we got so far, even the PPP loans were a joke. And what is it, like one $1,200 check, I think, went out to every American? That's like... It would have almost been better to send nothing because that $1,200 is like a slap on the face. Like, what's wrong?
Do you know that 23.6% of all U.S. dollars ever created was created this year?
I was not aware of that.
That's crazy, right?
Doesn't sound too crazy. It sounds like probably the Fed is doing what it can to. The Fed's primary job is to reduce inflation and to curb unemployment.
I love how Tim Pool just says shit and is like, "Wow, that's crazy."
Even though that's squarely in the job of the Federal Reserve,
literally put no thought into it.
But the Federal Reserve probably sees that we are spiking
nothing he says he thinks about.
As long as we're not raising in inflation, which we haven't been, their goal would probably be some form of QE, quantitative easing, or super low interest rates, whatever. So yeah, that makes sense.
I think, first of all, I'd say I would agree with you on a lot of these things, and also, if your perspective is the lockdowns are strictly because of we have this pandemic. That's an opinion, I guess. You know, you'll argue that you're correct. I think when you look at certain jurisdictions and you look at the World Health Organization saying it's a very, very last resort, it should be avoided. And
yeah, like Tim, he just says it's incredible his ability to just say things that mean literally nothing.
COVID-19, it's their opportunity.
Really blows me
enact this policy.
Blows me away
and
every time.
They didn't say it was because of COVID-19. They said it was because of climate change. So, should I disregard the World Health Organization's warning about lockdowns?
So I think
assume?
I don't know among major countries, because I know there are some smaller, but among every country, we're 11th right now in per capita death, and we lead the world in absolute death. I don't know what last resort sounds like to you, but that sounds like we're pretty close to like last resort there.
The people who this is the big challenge.
Yeah, people are like the
Our
amount of people who died in
9/11
are happening every single day now.
30% or like 30-something percent this year.
Potentially, yeah.
People we're facing mass evictions.
Mass unemployment, yep.
The reason I pointed out the printing of money is that is absolutely not a solution in any capacity. It's a desperate last resort where they're just like money printer go burr, desperately trying to keep the machine churning in some capacity. But if people ultimately stop doing things that give them the money value, then ultimately we're headed towards some kind of really serious economic collapse, especially
I'm not going to disagree with you here, and we talked a little bit about this off air. The problem is that right now we have the worst of both worlds, and that we are doing half-assed lockdowns that are locking down just enough to absolutely destroy small businesses and average workers.
Yeah, we have not done a real lockdown
to prevent the spread of the disease. So what we're getting is the disease is spreading almost uninhibited, or it almost feels like it's uninhibited. I'm sure it has been to some extent. And then we're seeing all these businesses close down, and because we're doing it in such a lackadaisical manner, like nothing is actually moving in a positive direction. We haven't eliminated the virus in any part of the U.S. We're still in like that map is in like purple spreading in almost every single state.
I think every single state is counted as
right now,
uncontrolled spread.
If you were to ask me like, well, should we just not lock down anything or whatever? If it was between just doing no lockdowns and doing what we're doing now, I might even say like, okay, yeah, like whatever.
I think that's it actually.
Sure.
The guy at the restaurant that I mentioned in Michigan, he straight up said, if the government gave me enough money to keep everything moving, I'd happily walk away for 2 months.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it really just comes down to
if we were going to shut down businesses, we have to support them through the shutdown. Right. You can't just expect people to stay home and have we don't expect American Airlines or Walmart or any other massive corporation to have 6 months of savings, and these people are doing revenue in the 9, 10, 11 digits. Like, why do you expect Frank that owns a bar down the street? Like small business owners aren't making tens of millions of dollars a year.
Like a little bit, but if he didn't, Tim Pool would be able to run with it and be like, see, they're using the massive corporations to kill everybody, and that's a great reset.
You have a lot of people on the right saying, protect the vulnerable, social distance, wear masks, but reopen things. And then he'll
simp for the people who basically did all of that to let corporations run rampant.
But cover the cost to make sure people make it through this.
Well, the thing that sucks is it feels like, and this has been, I so look forward. I want to feel like this argument is never going to come back again, but I know it will under Biden. Republicans always cry about deficit spending, but for some reason, when they're deficit spending for their pet projects, it seems like it's okay. I don't understand why we got trillions of dollars of
always a
tax
great time
cuts
to be a
from Trump
shareholder.
that he celebrated about growing the economy, which congratulations every time you
And the deficit.
don't tax. Yeah, and massive debt. I think
He
we were
Never a great time to be a
Big-
stakeholder.
biggest
Reducing
budget
it.
deficits under Trump of all time. Some of the biggest budget year-to-year deficits of all time. And I think that the thing that leaves people frustrated is
Yeah,
it's like,
cut taxes and
I
then
don't
spend more
understand why you
money.
can't
Nice
help
one.
us. Why can't you give us money if you are spending so much on the war machine, which was supposed to go away, or on large businesses via
Totally.
tax cuts and
Amen.
everything? Like that's
Seriously.
the frustrating part.
Trump campaigned against the deficit and the debt, and here we are. And there was an interview with Ted Cruz where he was like, well, Trump didn't campaign against that, and they're like, he did. He did.
Explicit.
Thanks, Synth Pop Waltz. I really appreciate you. Thanks for joining the frenzy.
Will say one thing, but as soon as they get power, you know what I mean? Like, everybody wants free speech when they're in the minority position, and then once they're in the dominant position, they're like, no, we gotta clamp things down.
Yeah, maybe you want. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, a man carrying over $400 million of personally guaranteed debt probably isn't going to be the best person to responsibly manage a country's budget either. But
Yeah, but
probably
see,
not.
that's a framing thing. You're right there, right?
That's not
So-
really
it's a
framing.
I'm
No.
framing that a man that has a massive amount of personal debt that he's personally guaranteed is maybe
Well, what are his
not the-
assets?
Probably enough to cover it, but probably not enough
Like
that he'd want
3.2
to.
billion.
But I think there was it was either Wall Street Journal one that went over that, yeah. But anytime you're having to start to sell off things that you own to cover debt you bring to cover, it's probably not a good feeling. You can do it.
Yeah. Forbes, I think, put Trump at 3.2
He's like-
billion.
yeah, he
with,
could just-
with liabilities of like 400
He could just
million,
sell off
something
like
that.
half of the
So
things
yeah,
he owns.
I don't want
So-
to go off
okay.
on a news thing.
Sure, yeah.
I
It doesn't. It's frustrating
Yeah,
to
just like
center
from-
back. It's frustrating to me and a lot of other people on the left, and I imagine on the right as well, that constantly hear about how we can't just spend all this money on
It is
you,
frustrating.
but we
Right.
could do massive tax cuts and we could spend a lot of money on overseas wars, and that just seems very wrong.
Yep. Yeah, man. The war. You get me going on the war thing. Absolutely. Spending money doing nation building in foreign countries when we could be fixing the pipes in Flint and helping people in this country. That's the interesting thing. I think, ultimately what it comes down to with the lockdown debate is, I think if we work out all of those issues, what's left is, will the 2-month mass printing of money have a serious detrimental effect on the economy, the savings, and the retirements of American people? Will it be a bad thing for them? Or if we, that's basically it, right? So conservatives would say, we can't just print money. We can't just do that. We can't just lock everything down and freeze it, especially at this point, considering it's been a year now and businesses have been destroyed. And I guess the leftist position is, you can and you have to.
Yeah, I guess monetary policies are very complicated. I know that there's always the inflation boogeyman that is looming behind every politically expedient argument, but it seems like we haven't seen that massive uninflation yet. We've been running historically low federal funds rates for long times now. It just isn't there. I know that there's at least 5 libertarians right
Where's
now
Tim
in chat
streaming
screaming
this?
that we need to go back to the gold standard.
One
and
of
we're
his
printing money
17
instead of it.
accounts. It's
You see
Tim
that
Pool IRL,
Trump,
I
I think it was Trump. He tried appointing a woman to the Federal Reserve who wants to put us back on the gold standard.
That's very funny.
I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, but absolutely delusional. But yeah, no, I mean,
We need to get Ron Paul in here so you can have an argument about what's delusional about
about
it.
the wait, are you asking me or would Ron Paul ask me that?
No. Like Ron Paul would clearly
Yeah,
be like,
yeah,
you're
of
right, you're
course.
crazy. You're wrong.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Man,
Yeah,
I
gold
was a
standard
huge Ron Paul
cringe.
supporter when I was back in college.
Really?
Every
Yeah.
time you spend a dollar, you have to
What the
spend
So
0.5
let's
ounces
do
in
this.
gold.
Look, man.
I think we agree that we have to go one way or the other. We're sitting on the fence. We
Right.
either need to jump
Ain't
into
working.
we're going to
No,
lock
they
down
have
for 2
not.
months, everybody's getting some kind of handout, or we need to go into okay, we're going to severely lax all the lockdown stuff and we're just going to see who dies, but we have to keep people's lives running because there is damage, there is collateral damage to a lockdown that most
Suicide.
people accept.
I don't know why we
Even
can't
more
just
so
do a
than suicide, not
normal
having your business open,
lockdown
running
like a
thing,
normal
mental health
country.
issues.
I guess
Actually, there's
we're
a
not a
really
normal
well-known
country,
Twitch
I guess.
streamer that killed himself, most likely because of the lockdowns. A friend of mine that traveled a ton, and that was his way of getting out. I know there are a lot of people like that, maybe that not necessarily killed themselves, but severely negatively impacted in terms of mental health related to that. So yeah.
Wow, man.
Mhm.
I've heard a lot of stories. There's this dude that I know. His son committed suicide. He was tweeting about it and said, having a young kid who's locked up and with resources, this guy's a wealthy dude.
Mhm.
That's just, it destroys their mind.
Not to mention that
I have not heard of that
can't
game
imagine
thing.
so I'm very lucky. I have a 9-year-old son because of because he lives in a wealthy school district because I'm wealthy. they have long distance learning with like iPads and stuff. And even for them, even for that technologically very literate school district, I get the emails every day. I don't know if other parents have this issue where it's like, hey guys, if you got logged out of the iPads, you know, like this is how you get back in, or like it just seems to be like such a nightmare for everybody. I can't imagine the poor schools that can't afford that type of technology.
Yeah.
I don't know what those people do. You're out of school for like a year. Some people didn't get to have their senior prom. Some people didn't get to do their graduation. Like
I would have cheered for all that. You know, when I was young.
Yeah, it's not actually his son. It's like it's sort of it's like the Matt Gaetz situation where it's not really his son, but it's another small Cuban boy who he shipped off to Nebraska and then puts him in the wealthiest school district in Nebraska where and he goes to see him every once in a while.
So then the problem isn't so much a conspiracy as it is two factions fighting and getting a half-assed response instead of one solid response to either.
The problem is that literally every single thing in the United States is so unbelievably politicized that you can't do anything without somebody looking at you like you have a political agenda behind it. And part of the reason is because of stuff like talking about the Great Reset. Like on its face, if you were to say like, hey, if you are doing like a massive restructuring, do you think you should take that opportunity to optimize like part of your workflow? Every reasonable person would be like, yeah, probably, yeah. But like when it's phrased in that like, do you think that people are pushing for extra coronavirus lockdowns just so they can shove AOC into every person's home, forcing you to get on your knees and worship the Green New Deal? It's like, well, okay. Like I feel like the framing of that is a little bit disingenuous. It further serves like that hardcore hyper-partisan politicization of American politics.
The World Economic Forum put out a video that said in 2030 you will own nothing and you will be happy. So when you say
the World Economic Forum, do you mean like one person who works in one subsection that does YouTube videos?
They published it. It was published on all social platforms. They wrote a big long article about it. And then they later clarified when there was a backlash that it wasn't intended to say this is what we want to happen, but what we think may happen. So the issue is if you launch a campaign around this, you include within it like critical theory, intersectionality and stuff, and then you say you will own nothing and you will be happy. And then people like Trudeau who say we're going to have a reset, people like John Kerry are advocating for locking everything down, which is destroying ownership.
Sure.
It's like I'll put it this way. Yeah. Not that it's a grand conspiracy where they all got together and said we want to destroy ownership, but that they think it's a good thing. They like it. They've advocated for it, and now the policies they're bringing about are bringing.
Oh my gosh, they're like, Justin Trudeau, Angela Merkel, and Joe Biden are going to take all of your things. They're going to implement communism. Your toothbrush and your underwear will be owned communally, and then they'll put you in the happy bubble where they'll pump in happy juice, and you'll smile and cry and beat your head on the walls until the day you die. And this is actually what they believe. Oh no! I can even
defend that statement on its face. That actually a lot of people are in support of that. That you will own nothing and be happy. So as a gamer, something that's been very interesting to me is most people today use things like Steam as a platform. You don't own any of I don't know if you're familiar with Steam.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
You don't own any of those games.
Right.
If Valve goes bankrupt, you've lost everything.
That's
but people
a bad
are happy
thing.
With it. Sure, but the convenience that it provides is, on another level, and that's why people like it. Or you don't own any of your music. You listen to it on Spotify. You listen to it on iTunes. We don't have the vinyls. We don't have the CDs. We don't have any of that anymore. So like, I'm not defending the idea that we should own nothing. Okay, I'm an ardent capitalist. I like owning things. I have all of my music is backed up on FLAC files on my hard drives that I keep it up because I like that. However, I don't think that these ideas are necessarily as crazy as we make them out to be, because we give the least charitable reading of it and then run with the biggest conspiracy behind it instead of like, well, what's like a more nuanced like approach in the middle for like, what do they probably mean? What are the goods and
because when it comes to these people, they when they say that lots of some Americans don't understand what it's like outside of America, Tim's like one of those people. He just doesn't understand that other countries did way better than this, and his argument falls apart because all the other people who watch him are too brain dead to understand or don't care to think about how small businesses have been taken care of in other countries but not here.
They have international interests.
It's just because the inconvenient truth is that the inconvenient truth is that Republicans stopped it from happening, so we can't be like other countries and just be okay.
Sure.
Let's see if I can. Full lockdowns should be a very, very last resort and can be avoided, World Health Organization's Europe chief says. So this was in October. When you see the story, and it was basically carried everywhere. I'm using CNBC. People are wondering why then they're pushing for all these lockdowns. I don't want to.
I don't think we've even pushed for full lockdowns anywhere in the U.S. Have we?
No.
We
Well,
haven't,
in
so
full-
we haven't
well-
even done a full
Oh,
lockdown.
Hippie
What do
Boy.
you mean by full lockdown?
Dude,
Well,
Hippie Boy came
what
in
did they mean by full
to
lockdown?
cock block Tim.
I imagine that
I-
the WHO probably doesn't mean when they say like full lockdown. I doubt they mean like outdoor seating at all hours of the day at most restaurants.
Yeah, you're
When
probably
they-
right.
Yeah, when they say full lockdown, they're probably saying like closed. Because I've been in California for a couple of years now, and I don't think we full lockdown anything. You can go to any. Well, I shouldn't say a couple of years, but over the past years, like you can still go out to restaurants. You're just outdoor seating, or you're seating in every other place.
California says don't leave your home.
Don't
They
walk
s-
around.
Well,
Don't
past,
drive
but
your car.
past 10 o'clock. I think just recently they did that. I think Newsom said on Monday.
Right, very
I think they
recent.
just said like no more gatherings of 10 or more people. Yeah, but I think this is the first time Californians went this far. But even at that, I'm pretty sure restaurants are still open. Like I literally ordered Din Tai Fung like the day before we left. Like we went to the restaurant and picked it up, and there were still people eating out there and everything. So
It's interesting too, yeah, because well, it's the Constitution. There's only so much they can do to enforce this stuff. You look at Europe, and they had this video go viral of a woman who brought her mom to a mental health facility, and they detained her, tased her, she's screaming, and then naturally people are like, "This is messed up." I mean, actually, you made it sound like you disagreed with Australia and New Zealand's approach to things because Australia has been super draconian.
I don't necessarily disagree. I wish that we had a more three-dimensional view of what it means to have the right to do something. Because the way that when I grew up, the way that I was taught is that when you get more rights, being an adult is awesome, but there is more responsibility that comes along with that. You're never given a right to do something that doesn't
Yeah, every
carry
right
a
comes with
greater burden of
responsibility.
behind it. Like that's always the case. And a lot of the times when I talk, it's so weird. When Republicans talk about rights, usually they're talking about restricting rights. I notice that anytime a Republican talks about states' rights, what they're actually talking about is taking rights away from you. They want to like curb like abortion, or they want to restrict access to like funding for like Planned Parenthood. They usually, or they want to make it harder to vote for whatever reason, voter ID, or if you.
It's why a
agree
bunch
with
of
that, make it harder,
marginalized people
whatever.
don't
Like, it feels
care
like when
about,
people talk like states' rights. Or
don't trust any states to do
or make it
anything
illegal for
correctly.
like gay people to get married. They're talking about like taking rights away from people, which is interesting.
Old examples.
Well, now they
Not
are because
really.
the Supreme
Right.
Court said.
Not at all.
But I mean, there was that famous who was the woman that Mike Huckabee supported, who was saying like, I'm not going to marry these gay people even if they
Oh, the
whatever.
clerk.
Yeah, the clerk. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
he-
these
here
are,
in
thankfully, some
Kentucky,
of these
that
are
clerk
older
came from
examples,
here in
sure.
Kentucky.
But even regarding things like what do you call the cities, sanctuary cities, right? People like states shouldn't have the right to do that. We need to take this back, or we need to like. It feels a lot of the times like when people talk about states' rights, it feels like they're actually talking about taking rights away from people, which is
It's not like a couple of those examples were just security.
well.
Like, should we?
I mean, what is security but the restriction of a right in exchange for what's the quote? Like somebody that demands security in exchange for their freedom will get and deserve neither, or something.
we'll get we'll lose. We'll
both
get neither
things
and
in
lose
the
both.
case.
Yeah, sure.
Well, but the argument it really is, it comes down to freedom versus security, and at a certain point, you do need security. It's just a question of where the balance is, right?
For sure.
So you
But
can.
it's crazy to me that like people will look at like illegal immigrants and be like, we need to ship 13 million people out of here because a few people every year get killed by MS-13. Right? We need to get them all out of here. And then we look at like
I'm pretty sure it's like
1,000
20
people a
million
day
now.
dying from the coronavirus,
Like
and
that.
it's like, well, do we really need to
Well,
wear
they're
masks?
very, very
Like
different. They're very
3,000
different.
people dying a day.
The issue of illegal immigration has a lot to do with the economy as well. Just a way more than just it has to do with the security of.
Wait, you don't think 3,000
our
people a
elections,
day
the
dying has
security
anything to
of
do with
our
the
physical,
economy?
safety?
Please,
and it has to
Tim.
do with the jobs market.
So elections, physical safety, and jobs market. The coronavirus is
There's a few
hardcore
examples.
affecting all of those, right?
But the difference
election
we
and all
can't,
the mail-in
you
voting.
can't deport the coronavirus, and so the conservatives tend to say we should protect the vulnerable, we should have social distancing, wear masks, and we can keep the economy running, and schools seem to be safe. And then the left tends to say lock it all down, provide stimulus and support. So. I hear what you're saying, early on, because we did go through this already.
I guess the thing that makes me sad is that like I grew up so half my family's Cuban. My mom and dad were both Air Force. They're ride or die for Trump, like to the end of the earth. And my mom is an incredibly nationalistic, very proud American, loves his country. Would if the Air Force called her back in today, she would strap up in her little flight suit and go and fly to wherever they wanted to. I know she would. And it hurts when I grew up hearing about all these amazing things that America was capable of, that America had accomplished, and we did. The Silent Generation, World War II, all that. We did a lot of amazing stuff. And then when it comes to controlling a coronavirus, individually, we can't take responsibility for this. We can't just wear a mask and stay away from people. Apparently, that's really controversial. We sucked at getting testing out because Trump didn't take it seriously. He didn't push for it anywhere near as much as he should have. We weren't able to enact any of the other measures that other countries.
That was a
tried to.
complicated point, though, but we'll come back to
I
it.
don't believe it was complicated. I understand that we
should've
can
brought
say
up
that,
that
like,
Trump,
well, some tests were put out and they failed. I
was
think that in the
political
United
for the
States,
reason for Trump
regardless of
not
what some
to,
people say, I think that this country possesses the greatest
have a
technological innovation in the
nationwide,
world. We wanted to get
coronavirus
tests out,
plan.
and if the political will was behind it, we would have had that out way earlier. Because South Korea had the same first-day reported case as us, and they have like, I think they have like 240 deaths from the coronavirus. Why couldn't that have been us? And South Korea is this entire little peninsula is like a metro.
But that's why it's easier for them.
That's harder.
No,
Look
no,
at New
it's-
York.
we-
That was one of
look-
the reasons why New York City got so crushed.
Look-
Because
look-
they were tightly packed together. Everybody's and all the international travel and everything.
Look how many different states with different jurisdictions, with different governors,
Mm-hmm.
all protected by the 10th Amendment. Trump can only do so much. And when you have New York City having their health experts come down and say everything's
he
fine,
did
go
nothing.
outside. You have people in California, of Nancy Pelosi doing the same thing. There's an argument of who took things more seriously and who didn't. But ultimately what it comes down to is Trump doesn't have... Vosh argued Trump should use the constitutional war
Who?
powers
Never
to
heard of
just
him.
assume control and then force things.
So, firstly, that would be insane. Imagine if Trump would be using like executive powers in times of national security to do insane stuff like tariffing China or sending troops down to build the
Oh my
wall.
gosh.
I
Who
mean,
could
he's already
imagine this?
done this. These weren't even national emergencies.
But
now, I'm not in favor of
that's
Trump
very
enacting
different.
Or sending troops into
yeah,
cities
because he shouldn't have done
against
it there, but
governors'
you could
wills.
make an argument that he might do it here. Maybe he should. If
So-
there was ever an argument to exercise these powers, it would probably be in protecting like a 9/11's worth of people dying every single day in the United States. I don't know if like tariffing China is the same level of national security.
And
as,
that's why
like,
it's not a big deal.
what do you mean?
What?
Well, like Trump putting a tariff on China, people say for the most part, like, okay, we'll see how that plays out.
Well, no, a lot of people were very upset because he did this unilaterally, and he exercised executive branch powers to do it under like threat of like
Yep.
war or whatever, like
Yep.
which is a little bit insane. So I'm just saying I don't agree with Vosh's argument, but like if you're going to argue in favor of Trump abusing the executive like he has so far, it seems strange to make the argument that he shouldn't do it here.
Has he abused the executive?
I think that saying that
Yeah.
we need to go that the border wall to the south is some like horrible national emergency that he needs to send people down to like build part of his wall or whatever, or saying that we need to have a national emergency tariff. I think that's very strange. I think that's an abuse of power. And then more importantly, back to what you said before, Trump can only do so much. Trump actually can do so much because he is so unbelievably
Don't worry,
popular
young chin.
in the Republican
Poole
Party.
isn't smart enough
Trump
to
still
understand
has
when
like
he's
a, what,
been
like
got.
a 93, 94% approval rating in the Republican Party. If
Some
Trump went
polls have been
around,
higher.
yeah, if Trump went around and told the governors, listen up, guys, we're going to close down for a couple months because it's your patriotic duty, blah, blah, blah. You better believe that any Republican governor or anybody that's in any plus Trump district is going to be in lockstep behind them because they don't want to lose re-elections.
In terms of securing the border, that is a power bestowed upon the president. If he's going to say that the United States government, we need to protect our borders, we do. If he's going to do trade negotiations, it's something he
Border
would do.
policy and border legislation, though, that's clearly in the realm of like congressional authority. This is stuff that should be passed through Congress.
This went through a series of checks and balances. Congress fought with Trump. They refused to give him the budget he wanted.
Like the Supreme Court sided with Trump.
Exactly.
Because he does have very broad powers. But like spiritually speaking, right? I don't think we would want Biden or Obama to come in and say like, oh, well, I'm going to open all the borders because I think it's good for our national security, right? I would say like, this feels like something that should probably go through Congress, you know? I didn't like DACA under Obama, not because I didn't like the policy, but because it's like, okay, well, we can't get anything done through Congress, so now we're going to like kind of broaden our executive powers and write
I agree,
immigration policy. And we see how horrible that is because anything that can be done via executive action can be undone via executive action.
They can't. Trump tried to undo it. The Supreme Court said no.
Well, I think
So technically it's true, but
weren't there parts of DACA that I think were rescinded? I don't know if that's still being fought in an ongoing manner, but
I know that they basically shut him down on several instances
yeah,
when
I
he
know.
tried
Yeah,
to,
it's
you know.
complicated.
The reason they shut him down is because he went through the wrong channels to get it
executive
done,
orders
and then he
really
just kind of
bad.
gave up.
There are parts of our government that people complain about. So the Supreme Court is one of them, and the executive is one of them. And they say that the power has expanded so much in these areas. But I think the reason why it appears that way is just because Congress has been so unable to do anything that's the only place that we can get any meaningful action out of.
So let's talk about Biden and Trump then. We'll
Sure.
expand upon this. You're super excited for Biden?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Why?
I think that we will finally, hopefully, have some cohesive idea of how we're supposed to deal with the coronavirus as a country from somebody that is not insane when it comes to talking about virus-related stuff. So no weird stuff about bleach or UV lights, no pushing weird medications like hydroxychloroquine.
Come
that he
on,
didn't take
Destiny,
when
he
sick.
was just
no,
memeing.
He was reported that he took it.
No, he said he took it as a
Oh,
prophylactic.
right. Before he got
But
sick.
when
You're
he
right.
actually
Yes,
got
yes, yes.
sick, he
Yeah.
got the good stuff. He didn't get that weird
Regeneron.
stuff that he was selling all the suckers on TV that worship and support him.
But hydroxychloroquine's been used for decades. It is considered
no,
for
this argument.
COVID-19.
For sure. So there were preliminary studies. This is the craziest thing about the news cycle and how they deal with Trump. There was actually TechCrunch and several European outlets that reported a promising study showing hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, with zinc in combination was showing that the severity was reducing. They actually replicated this in other studies. Trump comes out and just starts repeating it, and then all of a sudden the media flipped on it. So we even saw lefties write about this, saying it is the weirdest thing. The moment Trump says something about a news report, the media changes the narrative and says it's a bad
Tim's
thing.
hosted
Well,
it.
the
I've
problem
heard
is
a
it's
thing.
not Trump's job to be saying these things. If a random TechCrunch article wants to come out and say, hey, there was some retrospective analysis done on hydroxychloroquine and antibiotics like azithromycin.
No. It was
zinc,
literally
whatever.
a study on COVID.
There-
And they found the
all-
severity was dramatically reduced.
All of the prospective studies done on hydroxychloroquine have showed that it is nothing. It does not help with the severity of the disease. There have been some retrospectives that when compared against different standards of care, like maybe, but the reason why it became popular initially was because that scientist in France, the doctor Raoul, came out with his N equals 12 study that I think he dropped one person from that died, and after 1 week in, he was like, hey, we published the results. And then that was it.
There was a ton of past research that said for coronavirus and for SARS-CoV-1, hydroxychloroquine was effective in reducing severity.
Sure.
This probably led the scientists to say, let's try it out for
Which is fine.
SARS-CoV-2.
Which is good.
They were promising results early on.
Biden sucks, bro. He's
But as
gonna
soon
be
as
all
Trump said
spineless
it, the
with
media
people
went nuts.
with-
That's
with
the crazy
COVID.
thing.
Probably, yeah.
Because Trump
No,
is
but
a
come on,
different
come on.
person, and it's not his job.
I'll-
So here's part of the problem when Trump comes out and says it. When Trump comes out and says something that hasn't been thoroughly vetted by the medical community and isn't recommended by somebody who would be more in line to recommend that, like say somebody like Fauci, right? When Trump comes out and says it, it changes the worldwide discourse when it comes to these drugs. So there was a really good article published in Nature about some research scientists that complained about how hard it was when they were trying to run trials on other drugs, so dexamethasone and remdesivir or other drugs. Nobody wants to be in the loser trials. Everybody wants to be in the hydroxychloroquine drug. That's what Trump was talking about.
Yeah.
What, nobody wants to risk being in the dummy trial for some loser drug when Trump is on TV talking about how he's taking
On the
hydroxychloroquine every day.
big dick president
It's not
drug.
his job to do
Give
that.
me
He's
it.
absolutely
But look,
irresponsible for him to
Trump-
be on TV talking about that.
I disagree. I mean, he's going to talk about what he sees in the news. I'm not going to blame the
What, is
president.
he like a Muppet? He sees something and he says something? This is like the most powerful man in the world. I think that we can be a little bit
He
more
is,
critical.
What do you mean?
What, Trump is not everybody.
Remember that
Trump is
when,
the president of the United States.
Do you guys
And
remember
he-
that
he
when people
gave a
were able
speech
to
where he
track what
said,
Trump
"We're doing a
what
great
Trump
job. We're
watches
seeing
and what he
promising
says
studies out of France.
from
There's
Fox News?
hydroxychloroquine
Like
that
Fox
talks
News will
about-
have a segment about
Should
something,
he
and
not
then
tell
Trump will
people
quote
that
it
we're
verbatim. He's
developing
just sitting
this
there,
promising-
slouched over, covered in his own shit,
problem is that even if I
in the
was
living
doing
quarters in the
that,
West
it
Wing,
seems
and then just
like
tweet out
crap.
exactly what he heard from Fox News. It was wild.
Right? Like he's saying that oh, well,
Didn't
I
wanna
kept all
start a
this stuff
panic.
secret because I don't want to start a panic, blah, blah, blah. But now he's out here talking about all these potential miracle drugs and everything. Like, I think that it is very irresponsible for him. Like, I even get nervous talking about certain medications on my stream because I don't want people to run out taking, and I know I have that power, and I'm not the president of the United States.
Right. I always just say, ask your doctor. Your doctor
Exactly.
knows best for you.
Which is great. And if
you
Trump
know.
said that, hey, there are drugs out there that might be trying to talk to your doctor, but that's not what he was saying. He was talking about, oh, we got hydroxychloroquine, this great new miracle drug, and I think it's going to be the next.
Do you
cure. Like,
remember?
well, who are you to say?
Do you remember what the White House said on school closures? The science is on our side. And Anderson Cooper, I think, said something to the effect of he just doesn't care about your children at all. I think Jennifer Rubin said he wants your kids to die or something like that.
Huh?
This was actually what Kayleigh McEnany brought up in a press briefing. Mind you, that's why. So I remember that narrative when Trump and the White House came out and said schools should stay open. Well, now we're finding out that even Fauci is saying, yep, but so much later that we've caused irreparable damage to many people's lives and families. And there's been suicides
That's
when
all he
Trump
knows
was actually
is
right
to
the whole
pivot.
time.
To
Was that
pe-
irresponsible
people-
when they said that time?
People can say the same thing for very different reasons. Like, it's very obvious that Trump is pushing to open schools because he's desperate to get
Well, what
back
about
to
this?
some
Have you heard
level of
about that?
normalcy for
What
the
about that?
election.
You know,
Because
I heard a thing.
whether you agree or disagree with
You know,
Trump,
it's
this
just- that's all he
election,
does.
to a large extent, was probably a referendum on how he dealt with the coronavirus and getting
Yeah.
people back in schools and getting people working. Because a lot of people don't know this. Schools can be two very important things for families. One, it's how your kid can eat sometimes, depending on how poor you are, and two, it lets mom and dad go and work.
Daycare.
Because
it's daycare.
because daycare is unbelievably expensive. Oh my
Yep.
goodness.
So public schools allows
Yeah.
the economy.
The
to
reason
keep
for him
moving.
talking
but
this
the
way is an
problem
optics
that when
reason.
you're pushing for things on only a political basis, and it doesn't seem like you're laying out like
Because
good, comprehensive
because
plans
Tim's cool
for, like,
stupidity
so for instance,
comes off as
Fauci and,
comes off as
I think
pretty
it was
good
even
to
on the
most
White House
people.
Startup site,
So
have,
it's
these
just like an
plans
optics
for,
reason for coming
slowly
off better.
opening based on the number of reported cases, daily averages, moving, blah blah blah. Like if that was the type of thing that was being said, then I could have been more empathetic. I was like, okay, cool. It seems like Trump just wants to reopen things in a responsible way. But instead, it was just like, we got to open all the schools. We got to get them back. We got to get back to normal. It was like probably not like the most science-driven answer he's given.
I mean, It's an opinion. The people who like Trump are going to say Trump cares about me and he's fighting for my family. The people who don't are going to say he only cares about the economy.
Why didn't Trump pressure McConnell to release any stimulus if he cares about our family so much?
Maybe he doesn't think stimulus is the right way to help families, and he thought that it would be devastating to the economy to just print money, and the best way to do it was to release the lockdowns, which is what Trump said.
But he thought it wasn't devastating to the economy to just cut taxes for
Mind you, all of this
businesses,
conversation sprouted from the Great Reset.
He thought that was good for the economy. Okay. Like people think they're the heroes of their own story. You know what I mean?
Sure,
like,
I understand. It's strange that he thought that these were such positive measures, but he couldn't pressure McConnell to release any kind of stimulus to the average American person.
I think he said that the stimulus will be the vaccine, and we need to reopen because people should be working. So it's just I don't think there's mustache twirling villainy. I think.
Do you mean?
I don't think there's mustache. I think
I'm not sure if I've heard about that. If you can let me know. But also, thank you so much for the 5 bits, Alexander. I really appreciate you.
Where was it?
How do you feel about Fauci saying early on that he was doing the best possible, that no one could do better?
Every time somebody contradicts Trump, they get immediately fired. Look at the, I think it was the cybersecurity head of the DHS that came out and said, well, this election was actually pretty secure, and Trump instantly fired him. So it's not surprising to me that Fauci, a man that's been working in government for, like 30 or 40 years or something, that he came out and was like, oh, yeah, I think Trump is doing it.
He's been defying him for months.
He has been defying it, but there's a very careful line you have to skirt. If you've ever worked a corporate job and you've got an idiot manager, you know, like, you don't go out and say, like, why are you doing this? It's stupid. It's more like,
thank you, Gab.
I kind of do.
I think you're doing a great.
I get fired.
Sure, yeah. Well, if you don't want to get fired, it's more like you're doing an amazing job. I think we could do a little bit better here, right? So, of course,
you think Fauci lied to the American people
talk
to
to him
save
like
his own job?
Oof.
I think that Fauci was saying things in the most diplomatic manner possible because he wanted to serve the American people, and I got immediately fired by Trump, which he would.
Saying Trump did the best possible job and no one could do better is a big difference from we're trying as hard as we can.
I don't know if he said no one could do better. I would be curious what the exact quote is. But even so, I don't think that's very relevant to policy going forward. Whether or not Fauci says that Trump did a good or bad job, I don't know if it's Fauci's job in government to be second guessing the president in his past decisions. It's Fauci's job to give us the best leadership going forward. And I know that there have been times where Fauci, and you just said it right, has been at ends with the president and him like promoting certain drugs or him talking about certain things related to the coronavirus. Where Fauci says, "Well, I disagree here," or whatever. And even I'm pretty sure there were a few months where we didn't see Fauci anymore because of his like behind the scenes fighting with Trump. But yeah, I don't think that just saying, well, Fauci said Trump was doing a good job. Like, wow, you think?
Yeah,
like,
Trump even put out an ad like
every single person
manipulating what Fauci said to make it seem like he's in
that he was like a little bit
lockstep with
careful when he would publicly address Trump.
So on that note, the cybersecurity guy that Trump just fired, would it not have been in his best interest to say this was the most secure election we've ever had? That's literally him saying, I did a good job, don't fire me.
But it's that type of thing it's very hard. So like there's like 2 schools of thought in terms of like how to change a system. Do you go full renegade and say, this sucks, this is over, fire me, I don't care? Or do you kind of like suck it up, work from the inside, you know, like, okay, well, sure, this sucks, but like as long as I like keep my, you know, mouth shut, I can actually enact change on the inside. Like, when the DHS guy came out and said what he said, I think that he probably felt an obligation to the American people to let them know the government doesn't stand behind Trump and his like election fraud claims. So
I feel like that doesn't surprise
anyone. So I'll read a little bit. He said, Fauci said, we've never had a threat like this, and the coordinated response has been, there are a number of adjectives to describe it. Impressive, I think, is one of them.
Where did he get this from? They were talking about the Great Reset. What's happening right now?
Since the beginning that we've recognized what this was, I have been devoting almost full time on this, almost full time. I'm down at the White House virtually every day with the task force. I'm connected by phone throughout the day and into the night. And when I say night, I'm talking 12, 1, 2 in the morning, not just 1. So I can't imagine that under any circumstance that anybody could be doing more. I mean, obviously, we're fighting a formidable enemy. This virus is a serious issue here. Take a look at what's done to China, and you know, he goes into, it's a really long. I don't want to read the full. It's a really long paragraph.
Sure.
The
it
gist
sounds
of
to
which
me like
is,
he's like as who's kind of become the face of this virus. He's like championing, like, yeah, we're doing everything we can in the government, which is kind of what I would expect him to do, is to be like a cheerleader for the government. I don't expect him to come out and like, these guys suck. Our coordinated federal response has been non-existent. Trump is a horrible leader. Like, I don't think that would be his job, and it would probably send a bad message to the American people as well. Right?
If you know, the criticism of Trump is that he was downplaying this early on to avoid a panic, and that was a bad thing, then isn't there responsibility on Fauci?
The problem with if you want to say that you're downplaying something to avoid panic, that's fine. But the problem is that while he was downplaying it, there weren't steps being taken behind the scenes to prepare us for what was coming.
Okay, so
it seemed less like
this
downplaying
whole
it to avoid a
this is
panic
why
and
all of these
anything
debates
was
are pretty sham.
short.
It's the same
Because
reason
there's
why
Republicans saying,
all of those
"Okay,
debates
guys,
with
listen, I don't think this is gonna be a
Ben
big deal."
Shapiro standing
And
on
behind the
stage in a
scenes,
room
like,
full of
it
people
was
who paid money to
contesting
see
on
him,
board meetings,
and some random
some
person
little
from the crowd
communication with
with
government, like, there
is
would be
talking
that,
through a
but
mic
instead it
that
was just like, well,
someone
look,
that
we locked down travel
Ben
from
Shapiro
China,
pays is
LOL,
holding.
and then in a month and a half, we've done
All
it.
the
Oh,
power
look, we
structure
locked
is
down
supposed to
travel
be
from,
levied towards Tim.
from Europe,
Tim's in
LOL,
his
and
own
like that's it.
space
Like,
around
I don't
people
think
who
that he
agree
was
with
just
him.
trying
In
to
front of a
avoid panic
computer,
because
he
there's
can pull up
nothing
stuff.
going on
He
behind the
controls the
scenes, and that gap
conversation,
of the Chinese
and then you
leadership
just
being
have to
troubled
like
into
follow
showing he's
along
taking
and
it
also
seriously.
try and
See, he
look
just
good.
didn't think it was a real thing.
This all of
Let's
this
talk
is set
about
up to make him look as
What do
not
you-
stupid as
what do you like
possible,
about Biden?
but he still fails
So
because he's
one
Tim
thing
Pool.
was the top-down, hopefully some sort of top-down level response we get for related to the coronavirus. That respects court rulings and everything. I don't know if we've talked about it yet on air, but the Supreme Court did decide that it's
Briefly
an infringement
mentioned
of
it, yeah.
religious freedoms, which is probably fine. I can understand that ruling from the Supreme Court. I would hope that churches would individually say like, okay, well maybe we'll suspend sessions, but I can understand that. But some top-down coordinated response from the government related to coronavirus. Number 2 and 3 are closely going to be intertwined. Is going to be like the economy broadly and healthcare broadly. I'm very interested to see what sort of economic policies we're going to see from Biden, especially in regards to his strong support of unions, and especially in regards to, I don't personally like the policy, but pushing for a 15 an hour minimum wage. I'm very curious to see like where that ends up in terms
Bad
of,
news.
why do you say that?
So he wants to combine that with a high corporate tax, yes?
That's bad.
And he's also been, as part of the Obama administration, very much in favor of free trade agreements.
I love free trade agreements.
Well, so you know what the combination of those three things will get you. Corporations facing high wage costs and high taxes will just move their factories and their businesses overseas.
Well, that's part of what you have baked into any multilateral trade agreement, though, is
Right.
the idea that nobody talks about this on the right or the left. One of the nice things about free trade agreements or multilateral trade agreements is that obviously what you just said can happen. Okay, you if you're gonna make it so that I can export my supply chain to a place like Vietnam, well,
Tim Pool would have his head smashed like a fucking watermelon if he happened to if he stumbled into Politicon. It would not end up well for him.
and some labor standards on the side of other countries in order to bring them onto a more level playing field so that you're not exporting all of those jobs. So 2 really good examples of this is one, is it the I can't remember, the United States, Mexico.
USMCA.
Yeah, USMCA, the United States, Mexico, Canada Free
Agreement
Trade
or
Agreement.
whatever.
Yeah, agreement, yeah. So part of this agreement that Trump champions all the time was, I think they demanded like an increase in wages for Mexican workers that worked in certain factories to try to dissuade people from exporting too many jobs over there. And then another good example is part of the negotiations for the Trans-Pacific Partnership, obviously dead now, but part of those were historic labor reforms in Vietnam that would have bolstered a lot of the labor rights in that country. And a lot of those just completely went away as a result of the TPP negotiations falling through.
It's good for Vietnam, but it's not good for American workers.
Well, if you force them to pay their workers more, it is good for American workers because the increased liberalization of trade means we have another trading partner that we can buy and sell stuff from. But the fact that you have to pay their workers more means we're not just shipping all of those jobs overseas because they still have some minimum level of wages that they have to pay to discourage that.
There may be those negotiations on labor rights, but the cost is still remarkably cheaper to have our factories all throughout Southeast Asia than here in the United States, and we've seen that. We've seen the fact that we don't produce our own medicine anymore.
Sure. I mean, this is one of those like insanely multifaceted things that I agree with you in practice. It becomes a lot easier to spread supply chains throughout the world because it's cheaper in certain areas to manufacture it. That's not always a bad thing, but it's also a thing that we could combat if we would have more honest conversations about like what is a multilateral free trade agreement supposed to accomplish. So for instance, the Paris Climate Accords. So very common criticism that nobody on the left talks about is that these things seem to give a lot of leeway to developing nations. Like why would I join any type of pollution restriction thing that's going to let China and India compete uninhibited with now my shackled economy that can't pollute?
Right.
Like this is insane. But the only way that we can address those types of concerns have to come through multilateral trade agreements. That's it. There's no other way to do it. China is way too big as a country. A few tariffs or a couple sanctions aren't going to do anything to them.
Yeah, we can't
You
just
have
like
access to the rest of the world
bulldoze
market. You have to
China
get together
like
with
we
a bunch of
could when
countries
they
to
were
set
in the
these standards.
1900s.
It didn't work. We
What didn't work?
we thought that the trade with China was going to normalize China and make them freer and better, and they went the other direction.
Well, so this has been something I've read about this since the 90s. This has always been like the China conspiracy. People are always saying, I say conspiracy, people are always saying that like when China, when the middle class booms, when they increase their trade, like they're going to become more liberal, the people are going to demand political freedoms. Doesn't seem to have happened. But I don't think we necessarily need those things to happen. I think we can acknowledge that China exists as this kind of like, authoritarian behemoth that is going to do what it's going to do. But the only way that we can accurately deal with that is to partner with other countries in order to enforce like the kinds of restrictions that we want on them. We can't do it on our own. Like we've seen Trump try to do it with tariffs. It doesn't really work that well. He keeps saying over and over again, we brought them to the table, but like not really. The big things that we were pushing for related to like intellectual property rights and things, we didn't see any progress there whatsoever. China continues its Belt Road Initiative all throughout Europe and Asia and everything. Like it's
either there. I think there's two outcomes in this China issue: full scale warfare or capitulation.
What the fuck? Wait, wait, what? Wait,
time something bad happens in the world and we all hide from each other and get scared and locked down. What if we continue to reach out, be the world leader that we used to be in the whole NATO world and everything, where we tell other countries like, hey, let's all work together on this common idea, and then we pressure China that way? Couldn't that be like a better way to do things?
Go back.
But
wait, okay.
Hasn't that been?
And I'll take this moment to ask: would you guys rather me pause when I want to talk, or just mute the video or turn the video down when I want to talk? And I'll levy that question for you. But I want to hear Tim say this again. I love how Destiny's talking to this dude like he's trying to talk down a guy holding kids hostage. You don't care? Thank you so much, Flub. Pause. Okay, we'll start pausing.
I think there's two outcomes in this China issue: full scale warfare or capitulation.
What the fuck? He's like, we have to nuke Shanghai. We have to nuke. Oh gosh, I'm kicking this around. We have to nuke Beijing, or just become China bitch. China 2 Electric Boogaloo, start teaching Mandarin in every single elementary school. Dog, what is happening under that beanie? What's going on under there? His brain is rotting. Like you guys remember Mitch McConnell when he had like the dead hand? You know, this man's brain is rotting on the inside. His head is like caved in. It's incredible.
Okay, how I'm going to suggest kindly a third option. What if instead of every single time something bad happens in the world and we all hide from each other and get scared and locked down, what if we continue to reach out, be the world leader that we used to be in the whole NATO world and everything, where we tell other countries like, hey, let's all work together on this common idea, and then we pressure China that way? Couldn't that be like a better way to do things?
No, please, anything but the skate park.
Hasn't that been exactly what they've been trying to do that's not been working?
Well, I mean, there have been a few key events, especially recently, that have kind of pushed people into a lot more kind of a scary area where they're worried about working with people. So the 2013 Syrian refugee crisis, for instance, caused a whole wave of governments in Europe to have
thanks
right-leaning
Obama.
To some extent, yeah.
Thank you so much, Vespers 9, for the follow. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Although Bush got us largely involved with the Middle East originally.
But Syria was Obama.
Yeah.
All of it.
It's complicated.
Well, I'm sorry. You're right. It was the CIA.
No, that's
What
too
the
communist.
This is
so
this
I mean,
is
like the
reported by
existence of
Guardian,
the existence of like ISIS that exists in Syria and gained power in Syria, like a lot of that came from the destabilization that started in Iraq, and a lot of that came from Bush that got us into Iraq. I'm not saying that Obama is absolved of this. I think that Obama could have done a better job foreign policy wise, but it's hard. It's very difficult, and nobody has gotten that right.
Do you know about the Qatar-Turkey pipeline?
I believe I've heard of
dude,
this.
this
is the
reason
pivots.
why the U.S. got involved in Syria
because
before.
the idea was to get Syria locked down so that they could run that pipeline from all through
Qatar through
I've
Syria through Turkey.
heard this from people. Yeah,
but it's true. In 2009, I think it was actually no, maybe it was 2009. The Guardian reported this, that in 2009, U.S. intelligence said, we will have a ground incursion in Syria because they have refused to give us access to build the pipeline, saying that they would not go against their ally Russia. What Russia and Syria were then planning on doing was using Iran to tap the same well and run that pipeline into Europe, strengthening the Russian gas monopoly in Europe. So the U.S. had planned for years.
I hope you guys know this is a visual and audio representation of what your brain goes through on ADHD.
Before we actually ended up on the ground. And then funneling weapons to rebel groups they eventually came together and we got ISIS.
That is a story that one could tell, but I don't think that everything that happened in Syria was just a result of the United States wanting to secure an area for that pipeline. That might have been a nice side objective that maybe could have come about. I know that the United States probably wanted to see Assad gone, and if he was gone, it wouldn't surprise me if we wanted somebody loyal to America or American interests in there. And if that did happen,
let me clarify.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
The Guardian reported that in 2009, the U.S. wanted to be in Syria. They needed an opportunity to do it. When the Arab Spring happened, the United States said, now's our chance. Provided weapons and resources to the rebels, eventually put U.S. soldiers on the ground. Now we're involved in that. And the same. And look, that's why getting into the Biden discussion about war and conflict, bringing up the Syrian refugee crisis was a product of Bush, totally, and Obama ramped things up.
In regards to the Syrian stuff, yeah, for sure. In regards to another reason why I say foreign policy is complicated is like a lot of people are critical about Obama and the and all of the drone strikes and the killings. Was it an American citizen? I think we killed in Yemen.
We killed. I think Obama killed 4 American citizens.
Yeah, I know there was one that was like super ultra heated.
16-year-old in Yemen.
Yes.
Obama signed off on blowing up a civilian restaurant in a country we aren't at war with, and when they asked him why did you sign off on killing the 16-year-old, they said we were trying to target somebody else, a terrorist leader. Oops. When people followed up saying, why did you authorize a drone strike on a civilian restaurant in a country we aren't at war with? It's just womp.
Sure. All those same drone strikes and all those same bombings have only increased under Trump, though.
Not in the past few years. But
that's just factually incorrect. Donald Trump in his first 4 years has dropped more bombs in the Middle East than and done more drone strikes than Obama did. And I think his last in like Obama's like last 6 years, something along those, like an incredible number of drone strikes Trump has been doing. Not only that, he actually increased the number of troops in the Middle East in the last couple of months, and then he dropped the mother of all bombs in Iraq, and then killed that. And then, dude, people always forget that Trump literally almost started World War III in the beginning of the year. World War III. He bombed an Iraqi official. What are you talking about? Like, we can talk about foreign policy all you want. Trump assassinating, Geneva Convention war criming other countries in the Middle East. And also, like, I'm pretty sure Trump's first ever drone strike killed an American girl in the Middle East. Like, an American child in the Middle East. And then he would just, whoop. Wait, why'd you sign Mr. President, why'd you sign off on a bomb that killed an American girl in the Middle East? Tim, no, head empty, no thoughts.
But yes,
absolutely. In the past few years,
no, they've actually been going down quite a bit.
They might have gone down from where they started the administration, but in the 4 years we've had Trump, in his first 4 years, he has done more drone strikes and more foreign bombing than either Obama or Bush did.
Correct. And hiring Bolton was the stupidest thing the man could have done.
We still have troops in Afghanistan. We still have troops in Iraq.
But he's trying to take them out.
Troops in Syria. What do you mean he's trying to?
He's been trying to get rid of them for a long time.
Why hasn't he?
Because did you know that there was a federal official who lied about the amount of troops we had in Syria to trick Trump into keeping them there?
Damn,
and that
Trump
when Trump said
fuck.
He was ordering the troops to withdraw from Afghanistan, both Democrats and Republicans got together and blocked him in Congress. Trump fired the Pentagon civilian leadership, and this was reported by the AP, in an effort to get loyalists who would finally pull our troops out of these countries.
This is one of those things where I wish I knew more information about it, but I completely do not agree that that is even remotely possible. You're telling me that the president of the United States that was able to get the Supreme Court to say, well, I can tariff China for national security reasons, couldn't control where we were deploying or withdrawing troops from? That sounds unbelievable, especially when he was unilaterally approving strikes on like Soleimani and like Iraqi airports and stuff.
I know, it's messed up stuff for sure.
I find it very hard to believe. It wouldn't surprise me if Trump was using this as an excuse, but I mean, even if this was true, like you've got a guy that says he's a business leader that's supposed to be on top of handling all this stuff, who like one guy lies to him and now he has no control over his military. He's the commander in chief. It's literally the primary job of the president.
There are a lot of people in government who are doing everything in their power to obstruct Trump.
And most of them are Trump appointees.
Yeah, I know. It's one of these. Trump's hired a bunch of.
I know. It's almost like Trump is completely incompetent and has no clue what he's doing. Who knew that a reality TV star host with almost $500 million in debt has no clue how to run a country? Who could have thought this? I know. What are you talking about, Tim? And he's like, we must vote for Trump. They're trying to take Trump out. He's falling apart, literally falling apart.
Dumb people.
So at
like,
what
come on,
point,
man.
But you have
the
to
fact
ask
that he
yourself,
hired Bolton. It's
but
like
you have to ask yourself at one point: is it no longer the deep state's fault? When the deep state is 50% Trump appointees, maybe Trump is just highly incompetent. Look at the rulings that we're getting right now on the election fraud stuff. These are Trump federal judiciary appointees that are coming back and saying like, "Listen, man, you are insane. These affidavits are crazy."
There's no joke at this. Like, there's no. I can't believe the defense I'm seeing for what's going on in these Trump lawsuits.
Pivot. Get anybody with any alcohol near you, okay? Listen, take a drink every time Tim Pool pivots. That's actually a joke. Don't do it. You will die by the end of this. You will die. You'll be on a waiting list for a new fucking liver because you will not make it through this without taking extreme bodily damage.
Trump put out this 46-minute video, and I listened to it, and I'm not gonna mince words. Trump did not present his case.
Well, they talk through the same it was a 46-minute on Facebook. I think I watched the same video. Usually, there's talk through the same 7 affidavits every single time.
There's way more affidavits. There's way more articulate individuals presenting evidence, and for some reason, the Trump team is not bringing it together.
Well, maybe it's not as legitimate as some alternative media suggests it might be.
No, I think the issue is when you hear Trump do a 46-minute video and he can't actually calmly cite Matt Brainerd. And he points to a picture and says, look at that. How does that make sense? I'm like, you're not giving me an articulate breakdown of what the issue is.
Why is it that in all of these federal cases where these are being brought and the judges are actually, over
the Trump campaign has 3.
Oh, maybe the Trump campaign personally?
You can't tell me that some random people filing a lawsuit is reflective of Trump.
You can't tell me that an affidavit alone is valid evidence that something horrible's happened.
It is.
Okay,
witness testimony.
No, it's not. It's not witness. It's not witness testimony. They weren't under. No, that's not witness testimony. That's not what that is. An affidavit is not witness testimony. An affidavit, if you didn't know, an affidavit is someone comes to you and says, will you sign this? All right. And say that what you believe is the correct events of what you say happened. And if we need you in court, we can call you in court. And then you go under oath. You were not under oath when you signed an affidavit, when you put your name on an affidavit, when you wrote down what happened in an affidavit. Case in point, the other night, Giuliani had to wrangle, those dog catchers with that hoop on a pole. He had to do that alligator freaking Dundee, this drunk woman in court, not in court, in front of politicians because she was drunk and rambling about what she saw stealing votes on her affidavit. Then she said she was signed. It was crazy. It didn't happen this way.
His evidence.
Well, in that case, it's a 13-year-old that has an affidavit out there, meaning they've signed it on penalty of perjury that Trump raped her.
That was retracted, though.
Sure, yeah. But a lot of these affidavits are also under scrutiny as well.
So evidence is not proof. Evidence is not proof.
That's right. So but I'm just saying that just because there's an affidavit doesn't mean that this absolutely happened. So, for instance, when Giuliani brought the Miss Johnson, what was the name of the Indian lady that testified for so long in front of Michigan? Yeah. It was Johansson or Johnson or something. But she came and she gave a lot of the exact same testimony that had already been stricken down in court. So, for instance, she talked about being in the TFE voting center, and she was like, the election officials told me not to verify signatures. I don't know why they were doing that. And when the judge went through it, he was like, well, that's because that wasn't your job. They were verified before they even got to you.
Let me ask you a question. What's the point of an observer?
What is the point of an observer? It super depends on every individual area, I would imagine.
So,
broadly speaking, probably to observe, I would imagine.
To observe what?
The matching of signatures on ballots or whatever when they're opening and closing all the.
Would you agree with the judge who shot down this actual Trump lawsuit, saying that so long as an observer is somewhere in the building, it counts as legal observation?
It probably depends on the precedent set by prior cases.
Doesn't that sound bad faith?
What sounds bad faith to me is that all of this stuff was brought up after it was shown that Trump had lost the election. Where were all of these complaints on election night?
Complaints that
that observers weren't allowed in, complaints that the Dominion voting systems.
They were all over Twitter.
They absolutely were not.
Wait, no, please don't tell me that. Wait, I'm memeing, right? That this has to be a joke. That wasn't actually something that was said, right? Please. So where are all of these lawsuits? Where are all these affidavits? Where all this happened on election night? And Tim?
That observers weren't allowed in, complaints that the Dominion voting systems.
They were all over Twitter.
Dude, living in Tim Pool's world must be an epic adventure. It's like when Shark Boy and Lava Girl went to the candy dimension. It did. It was on Twitter. Incredible.
Absolutely, were not.
Yes,
there were a few random.
Let me just cite Will Chamberlain, who was on the ground going throughout Philly. He's a lawyer, posting in photos and videos. People were complaining about being booted, but you got to understand, a lot of these people aren't on social media. They don't know what to do.
It's not about just being on social media, because part of the reasons why these federal judges are throwing these cases out, so specifically in regards to that Indian lady, because on election night, none of these people were actually complaining. It wasn't until Giuliani went around soliciting affidavits days later or weeks later
asking, are you a witness? Do you have evidence? Yes, I do. Please come forward. That sounds like the normal thing you have to do.
Doesn't it sound a little bit strange?
Imagine if a judge said,
none of these
no,
people
it doesn't.
were complaining.
Imagine if a judge said, we're not going to use this witness testimony because the witness to the murder only came forward a month later after a cop found him. That's ridiculous.
It was more like all this widespread wrongdoing was apparently being observed.
They have to collect the data.
But they weren't. Why didn't they go through any of the proper channels to report any of this?
Like what? They did. I think you just don't know this. Like Matt Brainerd specifically said he gave his information to district attorneys.
I might not know this, but none of the federal judges that have reviewed these cases
not,
apparently know this either, because that is one of the most consistent reasons why these get shot down. It absolutely is.
So do you know what the basis of the Pennsylvania lawsuit was?
Which one?
Trump's got one Pennsylvania lawsuit.
What is the basis for that one?
That vote observers weren't allowed to actually observe the ballot process.
Oh, I know this one. Hey, this is like stupid trivia that you have in your head that only comes in handy every once in a while. I remember this lawsuit. Trump won a lawsuit saying that his observers weren't able to get close enough to review ballots, so they changed the distance from how and he won the lawsuit, and they changed the distance from how far away the observers could be from 10 feet to 6 feet. And that's the one Trump. When you ever see Trump is like 1 in like 50 billion, that's the one. That's it. That's all he got. He got a 4-foot change from how far his observers could be from the people counting ballots.
Process.
Okay.
The court ruled that so long as an observer was somewhere present in the building, whether they were allowed to actually observe is meaningless because the election code doesn't specify distance. That is one of the most insane things I've ever heard come out of a person's mouth. We know why vote observers exist because we have photos from Bush v. Gore of people staring side by side up at the ballot, arguing over whether or not it was Bush or Gore.
Wasn't one of the Pennsylvania cases that they won, the small one, wasn't one of the cases they won was when somebody related to the Pennsylvania election stuff said that we were going to allow people to vote up to a certain length in time, or it was something where like what they had said wasn't necessarily bad, but the judge came out and said, listen, even though that's not really bad, it's not in the purview of your job to do that. You're not allowed to do that. And I think that was the one case that they won, and I think that was in Pennsylvania.
I don't think that was a Trump campaign specifically.
That might not have been their lawsuit. Yeah. That was the one lawsuit in Pennsylvania for a small handful of ballots. But like, if the code doesn't specify it, or if it's explicitly not specified, then I mean, like, what case do you have? What standing do you have there then? Also,
judges interpret the law, right? So when the law says, as per election code, observers shall be there to observe the vote tabulating process, we know that the spirit of that law, the reason why we have it, is so that you can have scrutineers making sure someone isn't going Trump, Trump, Trump. So no, that was Biden. But they put people way far back behind plexiglass walls, and the Trump campaign said, why were we not allowed to observe? And
why would they challenge any of these laws before election night?
Because the law, there's no ruling on it. First of all, do you understand what injury in fact is?
That you need some
there has to be damages
in order for them to bring.
So when the Trump campaign did sue beforehand, the Supreme Court reserved their right to judge to issue later on the basis of they sued over mail-in voting, and the court. This is a totally unrelated thing now. There's a bunch of different lawsuits. There's a bunch of different arguments.
Sure, but now we're talking about, like, I'm talking very specifically.
Yeah, you can't just pull up some random one.
We're talking about the observer stuff, right? If this all was codified in state law and the law is there and we've held prior elections, we just had elections 2 years ago. Why did nobody challenge it before election night?
I'll explain it. You can't sue on the basis of clarifying what the law really means until you have injury in fact.
It doesn't have to be suing. Believe it or not, there are other ways in this country to change laws. There are legislations, both at the state and federal level, that can change these laws. You don't need to sue to change anything.
If we pass a law saying you have a right to observe as I count votes, right? Do you reasonably believe you have a right to look at me and the votes? Why did anyone think a judge was going to say, nope, it didn't specify that you had to actually see the vote so long as you're in the building? Come on, man. That's unreasonable.
You're saying, come on, okay? Trump for months, because they knew that they were going to get destroyed on the mail-in ballots. Trump for months was calling out the mail-in ballots. And guess what? He was doing that far before any lawsuits had to be filed.
Doing it years ago.
Far before any injury occurred, okay? They were calling these out. Why didn't they call out anything related to voting observers? The reason why is because they know it's all BS. They know that this fraud didn't happen. 1,000,000%. Because if I was somebody that had a massive vested interest in making sure that these elections weren't going to be rigged, I wouldn't be calling this out after Joe Biden wins.
Hold on, man.
It's probably something that you would have brought up beforehand.
You can't be serious that you think it is reasonable that so long as an observer is somewhere in the building, that counts as observing the vote counting process.
You can't be serious that you think that the only reason that they would challenge this is because, like, well, now they've lost the election and now this is the first time they've noticed it. These laws have been in place in some place for decades.
And in previous elections, people were allowed to actually look at the ballots. No one knew that this time that these precincts, specifically Pittsburgh and Allegheny County in Pennsylvania, were going to bar observers and they'd have to sue over it.
Okay,
they didn't last time. Why would they know?
For a big Tim Pool prediction, not taking into context, do you think they're going to win any of these lawsuits in a meaningful way? Not like there were 4 ballots and a mail-in thing. Whatever. Do you think that they're actually going to win?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
First of all, when a judge says,
he's like, this happened and this happened and all this wrongdoing and dude, it was all over Twitter. I saw it was all over Twitter. I did a video about it, my man. Just wait until Trump gets it. Then he talks about all these lawsuits flying around, all these lawsuits, you know, Trump isn't doing anything wrong. Do you think Trump is actually going to win any of them? No. Okay, buddy.
Did you have observers in the building? And the Republican says the amount of observers in the building was a non-zero number. but we were not given meaningful access to the votes. And the judge says, well, according to the election code, it doesn't specify the distance by which you can observe. Therefore, you have no grounds to sue. That is clearly bad faith.
Well, it's not like they took all of the observers and then shoved them into the unisex bathroom or something and then locked the door while they counted. They were able to see. They were like, they weren't like they didn't erect like the walls of Jericho around all of the observers. They could see still. They're just mad because they weren't close enough. They could still see. They were fine. And what I mean, if this is so bad, right? Why didn't Biden voters, Biden observers feel the same way? Because he'll probably think because they're in on it, right?
If Trump is going to lose, it's going to be for two reasons. Many of these judges, and one judge even said this, if you think I will, he said, you can't expect me to rule in such a way that would disenfranchise millions of voters. That's absurd. I can't do that.
That's not all he said.
No. I'm bringing up that point specifically.
There was a very important second part to that, and he said, I can't do that with no evidence. He said that one would think that if somebody was coming to me to disenfranchise even one vote, that they would be coming with a very strong case of lots of evidence, but let alone millions of votes to bring such a shoddy case built on poor legal arguments with no evidence or shoddy evidence, that was the full quote for that.
So the point I'm saying is there's an unwilling...
All right, he's just going to skip right by that.
...to take such a massive and unprecedented move in a court.
Without evidence.
There is evidence.
There isn't, though.
Just because a judge said without
Twitter.
evidence doesn't mean there's no evidence.
Not just one judge, but people have gone through so many of these affidavits.
Are we talking about Trump's lawsuits or random other
I
people?
guess I don't know 1,000,000% the distinction between only Trump's lawsuits and all of the other ones that have been brought up so far.
People have been rooting and cheering for Sidney
No, AJ, I don't like chocolate, so I have no opinion.
Powell, and look at what happened with Tucker Carlson when he was like, where's the evidence? They ripped him apart. They left Fox News. And now many Trump supporters are going after Sidney Powell because they're saying she's actually a Democrat trying to undermine the Republican Party.
Well, of course.
It's the craziest thing.
Because anybody that's not lockstep with Daddy Trump is immediately castigated.
No, well, for sure, but people are so adamantly behind Sidney Powell and Lynn Wood. It's crazy.
Nope.
Like,
wait. Nope, but for sure? Like what? Why the self-hate? Thank you. I haven't heard that joke ever.
When I tweeted that it sounds like Sidney Powell's getting her information from conspiracy forums. Oh, people start tweeting me like crazy, and they've been making fun of me like, oh, how dare you? Now what? Trump, she's contradicting Trump. Like that stuff, I keep saying it over and over again. You come out and want to claim that this company was founded in Venezuela, Smartmatic, and then Sequoia and all this stuff may be true. That's totally fine. But bro, you need extraordinary evidence for extraordinary claims. When we're talking about a judge in Pennsylvania and the lawsuit wasn't about fraud, is another thing that the left keeps doing. Trump has specific lawsuits pertaining to the validity of mail-in voting and absentee voting, deadlines, etc. So in these court cases, the judge will ask for a simple clarification. Are you alleging fraud? No, Your Honor, we're not. They'll take a clip of that and say, aha, this proves it. Trump is saying there's no fraud and the lawsuit isn't claiming it. Yeah, he didn't sue over fraud because that requires long-standing investigations.
Was that the confusion then was because some of these judges were trying to figure out what standing they even had then to be there. Because initially it felt like the thing that I feel when I read the differences between what's being reported in these court cases versus what Giuliani comes out and says is Giuliani sounds like he's alleging some massive widespread election fraud.
Absolutely.
But then when it comes to them talking in front of a judge, it's like the meme with the little dog and then the shredded dog. And the shredded dog is like Giuliani in front of the cameras alleging fraud, election conspiracy. And then when he gets in front of a judge, he's like, okay, I'm not.
I love this is the second meme reference. I love memes.
I'm not saying fraud, but like I don't think this lady was allowed to be in an area where she was supposed to be, and it's over like the smallest minutia ever, and they don't even have good evidence for what they're doing.
I think it's fair to say that the Trump campaign is not delivering in terms of the legal process by which they go after fraud. 100%. I also think it's fair to say that the legal strategy over challenging voting systems and ballots is a legal strategy, and that's
I wish that strategy, if it's something that they
see. The difference is Tim is conflating them having no standing and having no damage, because you do need damage. There has to be a damage done to you to be able to sue, whether that be like physical damage or you lost something or you weren't able to get something back. That's what you need to like file a lawsuit. But if you go with a lawsuit and you have no standing, those are two different things that they're putting up there.
They so deeply cared about. I wish that they would have done that prior to the actual elections.
No, but you don't understand, man. How could they have known that the observers wouldn't have been allowed?
Maybe they could have specified it in the code. It seems like Trump has every other conspiracy theory in his head about how he's going to be disenfranchised. You don't think having people observing the vote would have been like an important thing?
The law existed, though. They had them.
Apparently
they didn't
specify
the distance.
And I don't even know.
The distance.
And also, I'm giving you a lot here because I haven't read the exact verbiage, because I'm willing to bet that when I go back home and actually read through the case, it's going to be more than just like they had to be anywhere in the building.
That's literally what it was.
My guess is going to be that it's probably been consistent with state laws over all prior elections, and it hasn't been a big deal before. But now people are just really mad because of the massive increase in voters for Democrats on the mail-in ballots, and that's why everybody's losing their mind over it.
Let me ask you: should we have scrutineers? People who look at the ballots as they're being counted from both parties or even a third party.
I don't know how these elections are remembered. That sounds like
normally what they do.
Good, yeah, it sounds like it'd be a decent.
Is it okay that this time they didn't do that?
I don't know if that's the case. I don't think in the majority of places that is the case where it wasn't.
No. Specifically the Pennsylvania suit.
Yeah, specifically in some
Philly
and
Allegheny
County.
County.
Yeah.
So you have these videos coming out where people are standing 100 feet away with binoculars, and they're like, I literally can't see anything.
One of the most
What the
important lessons
fuck?
I've learned in my life is to never believe anything I've ever seen in a Twitter video.
No,
I've
just-
learned over
just
so many things. I don't know what the video, what time
Sworn
what was
affidavits.
it? I don't know. It was
Multiple
either
sworn
you
affidavits.
or somebody else that I'd heard just recently.
Oh, then he keeps bringing. Listen, there was an affidavit. There was someone with binoculars. Like there was some people in Pennsylvania had to stand back. Those weren't all of the observers. Affidavits aren't shit. Sworn affidavits.
Like say something about like all of these votes are being reported by machine. Like you don't see people walking around votes. We did literally on election night. You saw people like delivering votes and stuff to county houses and stuff. They're bringing them from other counties. Like like when it comes to videos, I don't trust any of that on the internet without like a greater story context around it because anybody can take one video of anything.
Sworn
and say, Look at
affidavits.
this. Sure, sworn
So
affidavits.
sworn affidavits in combination with the videos. Of
Sworn
people
affidavit is
saying-
interesting.
and them saying, we can't actually observe the votes.
So-
a big portion of what Giuliani is bringing forward right now in Michigan and these other places is that a lot of these people who are coming forward saying they're not allowed to actually observe the vote count. So when you have unprecedented rule changes, no excuse mail-in voting, which in the instance of Pennsylvania now, a judge recently issued an opinion citing that it seems very likely the plaintiffs will win on the merits that this is unconstitutional. The Supreme Court shut it down on a narrow ruling that it was too late to sue on this, even though they
Maybe
just
they
found
should
out
have
about
brought it out. They just found out about the law. They just found out about the acceptance of late mail-in voting.
that it was in violation of the Constitution.
Why
So-
they didn't see it initially?
Damn, Trump's lawyers must suck. They just recently, a month after the election ended, found out that a law was unconstitutional. That's incredible.
You know what it sounds like?
That's-
It sounds like they lost and now they're going back and
It
trying to
certainly does.
Okay.
I absolutely agree with you.
Sure. Which
So
makes it hard
when
to
I-
believe in good faith any of
when
their
I
arguments.
but that's not how the legal system would work.
Well,
I-
according to some of these judges, that's explicitly how the legal. So, for instance, in some of these rulings I've
It's-
read,
no.
the judge explicitly will say the fact that she didn't follow any of the chain of command, or the fact that this person didn't report any of this on election night, is very damaging to their credibility.
Why would it matter if the lawsuit was now or later when they weren't asking to do anything to this current election?
The reason why it matters is because if these things are happening, they're only being reported retroactively. It seems like it's in a
It
response
wouldn't have
to
an
Biden
impact.
losing,
It wouldn't have
to
an-
Biden winning rather than to any actual
But
fraud.
if
or
it
bad
wouldn't
things
have an
like
impact on the election, then it's irrelevant.
this. What do you mean?
The lawsuit wasn't asking to do anything to the current election. They asked the courts to issue their advice on relief, meaning perhaps in the future we won't do no excuse mail-in voting. The Supreme Court said it's too late to sue for this, dismissed with prejudice, meaning these people can't bring these cases up ever again. What's interesting is that the lower court ruling was that it would have been detrimental.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Vespers, for the Twitch Prime sub. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. You didn't have to, but that means so much to me. Thank you so much.
Mental to several of the plaintiffs who actually won their elections. Mike Kelly won and then sued saying, we didn't realize that the Republicans passed an unconstitutional law. And the judge actually issued an opinion saying, as this would
I
be,
did not realize somebody passed the law.
they realized the law was passed, but many people didn't know that it was unconstitutional.
What changed? Did they read a tweet or
They read the Constitution. No joke.
After election? They didn't do that when the law was being passed? Isn't that part of like your job as a legislator?
I'd be willing to bet there was somebody who was looking at what's going on, what can we do, and the motivation was very much Trump is losing this. However, the lawsuit wasn't brought by Trump. It was brought actually by a guy who won and several other people as well as a guy who lost. So it was a mixed bag. And they weren't asking for the election to be thrown out. They were asking for the courts to advise on what relief could be. Sean Parnell sat here just a week ago and he said, I don't want anyone to be disenfranchised. I don't want, I'm not saying this vote has to be thrown out. This election has to be thrown out. We all thought this was constitutional. I'm just asking for maybe the court will advise us. Maybe they'll say, hey, we need a constitutional amendment. So from this point forward, we're going to say no to this, no excuse mail-in voting moving forward. And then you get a constitutional amendment. You know what's really
Just a little point in here. Just remember all of this like talk about the courts and the voting, and the legislators literally just found out. They woke up like a month after the election and found out that this law was apparently unconstitutional that they didn't know about for a year before the election. All of this is predicated on Tim Pool still believing that Donald Trump has no possible path to winning any of these lawsuits. He admitted that himself. So yeah.
crazy about it? When the GOP was passing, the Pennsylvania GOP was passing Act 77, which is no excuse mail-in voting. They actually started the process to amend the Constitution and halfway through stopped, changed some wording, and then it got passed, signed off on by governor. So this is a bipartisan approval. Most people didn't realize what had happened.
Wait, that doesn't sound like a bad thing on its face at all. If you were going to pass something and then you realized it was going to be unconstitutional, so you got to change the Constitution, and you realize, well, hold on, if we reform some of this bill,
No.
You can't be high on stream if it's illegal in your state. And I think people know what state that I live in. I can drink on stream, but I don't have any alcohol on me.
No. You said reform. I said they changed some of the words.
Okay, so laws are the words that make the laws.
Let's not play semantic games.
It's not a semantic game.
Yes, it is.
Well, when you say change some words, like I can change some words and make anything else. What do you mean by that?
So let's not play semantic games. Let's define it. When the Constitution says absentee ballots require specific excuses to be allowed,
Okay.
and the law they initially presented was no excuse absentee, they changed absentee to mail.
Okay.
That's it.
Are there an entirely different set of provisions that come in under mail-in ballots versus absentee? Is there a whole different part of their state legislature that has a different way of dealing with
It was the same thing.
The exact same thing?
And that's why the judge in the lower court ruled the plaintiffs will likely be successful on the merits. And then the higher court said, we're not ruling on the merits. We don't know. It's just too late.
Okay. Well, sounds like they should have brought it up beforehand then.
They're going to the Supreme Court.
Okay.
And
That'll be interesting when it goes to the Supreme Court.
So
one of the issues that I have when people keep saying affidavits is that on the first hand is it feels like somebody sliding down a mountain, grabbing branches or whatever as he's going down. Like initially we're grabbing all the mail-in ballots or voter fraud. Then we were saying, we've got the Dominion voting machines are made in Venezuela, and then somehow Hugo Chavez is coming back to life to blah, blah, blah.
No, stop. Mm-hmm. First of all, the Dominion stuff is nuts, in my opinion.
I know. That's crazy. I can't believe these machines existed for so long and no one said anything about them.
That's not true.
Election.
In 2006, CNN reported on it.
What did they report?
They reported that they were completely insecure and there was a bunch of problems and all this stuff.
And one of the things specifically that they reported is stuff like a lack of paper trail.
Wrong. It's not circular because Tim Pool always pivots to another direction. This will never be a circle. I mean, circular is in Tim Pool says something stupid. Destiny says that's wrong. Tim Pool pivots. So that's kind of like, yeah. Yeah, it's a zigzag. Yeah, it is pretty incredible. Semantic games. Don't play any semantic games with me by saying the things that I'm saying are factually incorrect.
Or no ability to audit these machines, which has been some of the stuff that has been corrected and fixed in almost every single state that allows these machines to function.
Hold on. You said Hugo Chavez came back to life.
Sure.
No one's argued that.
Okay, I'm just hearing Chavez.
Can you possibly imagine that this is a point of contention with a president of the United States and their legal and their legal team, that they have to even argue on the merits of whether or not one of their lawyers said Hugo Chavez came back to life to change votes?
Name a lot recently
because Smartmatic, there's a WikiLeaks release from 2010. This has been on the internet for over a decade. Cablegate, where they say in 2010 Hugo Chavez was providing resources to a group of individuals in Venezuela who are the principal owners, and if you travel through all these different shell companies, you find it originated in Venezuela. That's where that Hugo Chavez comes from.
Sure.
I feel like the argument that Hugo Chavez came back to life is an attempt to ignore what's actually being presented.
Well, I'm attempting to make the people sound insane because they are, to assume that there's some wider play by some other country.
But why are you doing that? You don't need
ridiculous.
To. You don't need to.
Do
I think because for me, because I do a lot of humor, so I think it's funny when people invoke Chavez so much to try to scare people into thinking that some machines are stealing our election.
But to say like this narrative that confuses the actual argument from people.
Wait, what is the actual argument?
The actual argument is that going back, a decade plus, going back 20 years, there was a series of companies that were started with the express purpose of being able to hide through audits that votes were manipulated. There is a company, Smartmatic, that was involved in this and has ties to Venezuela as per diplomatic cables that were leaked 10 years ago. So we've known about this for a long time.
Why did the DHS and the Department
of
Justice...
I'm not
I'm
saying it's true.
But it's ridiculous.
I'm saying the
difference, crazy.
There's a difference between what these people are actually arguing and coming out and saying Hugo Chavez returned from the grave.
So on the level of these Dominion voting machines, if any of this was true, it would be the largest political news story related to elections in the past 100 years.
Do you trust the media?
To report something like this? This
No,
is like Pulitzer Prize winning related.
They won Pulitzers for the Russiagate stuff.
Sure, well, there was a lot of good reporting and a lot of credible indictments that came out of that. Unlike the Benghazi and the email hearings, but regardless, I'm just saying that this level of election fraud would be like an unimaginable.
What were the indictments related to Russia?
Here we go. Oh no, another pivot. Then he pivoted off again. Oh my gosh, dude. Tim can't possibly stay on a single point. Tim's head would literally explode. Did you guys ever see that MythBusters episode where they had like a water heater just fly through like a couple of buildings? That would be his brain just popping through his skull and just like Beanie flying away like into the neighbor's yard. He cannot possibly stick to a single point ever. And now we're pivoting to Russiagate. So we've pivoted from like originally like the Great Reset, and then we went on to voter fraud, and now we're on to Russia. So yep, here we go. Thank you.
With the Internet Research Agency, which was funded by the Kremlin, which had a whole bunch of
but those were foreigners, not Trump and not the Trump administration.
Correct, yeah. There were no indictments related specifically to Trump's cabinet, although we did get some indictments kind of like around that.
Right.
So the Manafort stuff came out of that. Flynn got caught lying to the FBI, although Daddy Trump pardoned him. Cohen went down for the New York related stuff and the election fraud.
The crazy thing about the Manafort stuff is, you know, they found out about that.
What did they find out about it?
You know how they found out about Manafort.
I read a lot of weird stuff. They went through some guy's office and they found a ledger that was like written on a piece of paper, whatever, for Manafort for owing him money, and so they didn't report to the State Department stuff. But go ahead.
Politico reported that Ukrainian operatives were trying to sabotage Trump, and so they sent documents to a DNC operative And then she, passed it along saying, here, we got some dirt, go after him. And they did. So it was political. It was, political.
So all of Manafort's charges were just 100%
I'd say all of it. I'm saying they found out about a lot of his documents because it was passed off for political reasons.
If
That
somebody,
shouldn't be surprising to anybody.
Sure. I don't know how that absolves.
I didn't say it did. I just said it's interesting that, we've got Ukraine stepping up. We've got this, political battle. People are trying to go after each other.
Yeah, I'm sure people are trying to send people dirt about other leaders literally all the time. We had Assange and WikiLeaks and they're doing all of that for a long time for their left. We also, as a result of all those indictments, found out a lot about how the DNC was penetrated via the spear phishing stuff by the Guccifer 2.0 hacker and everything. We saw a lot of that in the indictments as well.
Some people should not be... Some people don't know how to use computers, and a lot of people with access to really important information, But let's not derail. Go back to the voter stuff. The point is on the Pennsylvania point that I'm bringing up is we got a serious conundrum in terms of voter observation. It is, I think, widely accepted that we should have observers making sure that people aren't falsifying the vote count.
Sure.
Would you agree? If the Pennsylvania court just ruled that's not the case, should we change it so that is the case?
I would have to see on the specific ruling for that argument because more often than not, when people cite these, usually they're leaving out some key. So I would have to go read it specifically.
Let's just say,
I think you should probably have people observing the election. I can't think of a reason offhand why you wouldn't. That doesn't make sense to me. But I would have to read into why they made the ruling they did.
So check it out. The issue would be then if the judge made this ruling on the grounds the election code doesn't specify distance. I mean, then why wouldn't say Trump 2024 just be like, we're cleared. We got a ruling from the court. We know what we can do now, and you can't sue us unless you have injury in fact. Therefore, when it comes time to election, all Republicans bar all Democrats, and we can't lose. We can write down whatever numbers we want.
If you want to, yeah, go for it.
So it's a serious threat to our election integrity.
It could potentially be.
Yeah.
And if somebody were to bring it up in that manner, I'd believe them when they said that. But right now, it just feels like Republicans are doing anything they can to try to flip the election results.
I think yes, 100%, and I think the Democrats I don't think they tried to flip the results in 2016.
It's incredible to me. So apparently you can't sue after the. Oh my God! So apparently you can't sue because that something is unconstitutional because they would have won because the law is unconstitutional, but they didn't sue because they had no clue and they didn't read the Constitution. But then after and then they were like, oh my gosh, why are we being barred? And then after having to know the laws beforehand to be able to even be in the building. And so after that, they decided to read the Constitution and then read the law again and be like, oh my gosh, this is illegal. And then went to court, but then the court said you have no standing because the damage that's been done to you has been done already, so you lose.
Part there was a whole lot of the Hillary can still win stuff. And
Hillary conceded the next day,
but
it's absolutely not even remotely similar.
It's remotely similar.
I would say it's
maybe
like
the
way that Antarctica is remotely close to like Pluto.
Do you see the videos of celebrities saying the Electoral College must vote for Hillary Clinton?
Do you think there's a difference?
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't say that.
Do you think there's a difference between celebrities saying something and the president of the United States trying to undermine the election? That's why I think these are remotely similar. Yes, undermine.
See, that's framing.
Well, it's when you say so. In 2016, Trump said millions of illegals voted. He asserted that with no evidence. That's undermining the integrity of our election. And then in 2020, he's saying that there was widespread election fraud that literally no agency, no other credible person has backed up, save for the melting head of Giuliani. Like no one else is backing up on this. His own DHS turned on him on this with his own appointee. His own attorney general, the sword and shield
what did he say?
Barr, came out and said that as of right now, there is no evidence of widespread election fraud.
Wait, there's more to that quote.
What else?
That would have changed the outcome of the election.
Would have changed the outcome of the election. Okay.
To date, we have not seen.
Oh, you mean all of the election fraud that Trump's trying to find? Oh, there have been 5 votes changed here and there, and Tim Pool's like, oh yeah, look how bad the election fraud's been. Oh my gosh.
That would, on a scale that would have changed the outcome.
What else did he say too?
What else?
He also said that they looked into the Dominion machines, and based on their analysis of it, they didn't see any evidence also that those machines were filming votes.
I think the Dominion stuff is over the top. Look, you got Brian Kemp and Brian. Was it Brian Kemp? Is his name right? And Raffensperger.
Okay.
Are they both Brian? Was it Brad Raffensperger?
Okay.
I'm mixing their names up or something. But these are Republicans. I don't think there's a grand conspiracy where members of like the Trump supporting Republican Georgians are like, now is our chance. But people really believe it.
Yeah, they do.
I think for one,
partially. Because a lot of people play into it. You do as well, right?
How do I play into it?
When you're tweeting
I just straight up agreed that it was nuts.
Sure, I know, but it feels like a lot of your rhetoric gives a lot of credence or credibility to a lot of the lawsuits that challenge, like how the election is being, like the fact that you're willing to say that you think that do you think that the majority of the election was legit? That yes. Maybe there were a few, but you think for the results stand.
I think what people need to realize too is you don't need widespread fraud to alter the outcome of an election.
You would.
No, you don't. You need maybe one person in 4 key districts.
Absolutely not.
Or one person with a USB stick.
Absolutely not. That's not how these work.
It is.
Absolutely.
I actually was in Vegas at DEF CON when they hacked the voting machines. I watched them do it.
I don't know what voting machines they hacked, but hacking one machine or hacking a series of machines is a lot different than the step-by-step process that goes through tabulating results, reporting them to
But they all go in the machine, right?
Sure, but there's
And
also
then-
paper trails behind all of these votes as well.
And they didn't. Did they do a hard signature audit?
I don't know if they did.
They did a risk
They
assessment.
have their risk assessment audits and everything.
Trump's
but
been-
there is a paper trail behind every single thing. But now the problem is saying, well, for some of the ballots that were taken to the mail and things, they've been separated from the
And
things,
they
so they
destroyed
can't
the ballots.
verify or whatever.
That's a problem. They destroyed. So with the observers in Pennsylvania, they destroyed the secrecy envelopes. So now it's like, what do we do? They destroyed them before anybody could check to see if they were legit. Why would they do that?
But you believe the election?
Still not as bad as CTV and the guy who called you a hack. Yeah, I mean, still these guys, they're slightly more. Tim's slightly more coherent than those two.
Election is legitimate as it stands, but maybe there are some things we could fix going forward. Because that's a stance I could maybe.
I would say, as of right now, I said this, and I got ragged on hard for it on September 7th. I said it like on the 8th, I think. No, it wasn't the 8th. It was the 9th because I took a day off because I was like, everything's crazy. The simple solution is Trump got Ocean's 11. That if the cheating, as I would frame it, is the mass changing of
Yeah, that's critically thinking vegan.
rules well before the election, using COVID as a pretext when Act 77 was even passed in October. The Democrats did everything in their power within the system to give themselves advantages. They were going door to door. They were doing democracy in the park. They were doing illegal. Democracy in the park was illegal. The vote raffles that we just saw emerge, all these videos through all these different swing states, was also illegal. There's no evidence as of right now. I should say there's not enough.
Have people been charged over this democracy in the park stuff, or
There
what?
was, I would say not yet. I don't know.
Okay.
But I will say there was one person so far charged with 135 counts related to basically getting infirm people to vote and signing off documents for them. There's currently a case going to I think the district attorney in Pennsylvania, where they found several thousand ballots all filled out in the same handwriting for Joe Biden in the names of elderly people in various nursing homes. So this stuff happened. It exists. Can I say that this is the reason why Joe Biden won? I can't.
That's
So
it?
I'm not going to, I do not agree with Trump when he says, I lost due to a rigged election and widespread fraud. I say, well, there's evidence of fraud. To the scale that would have generated a flipping of the election, I would say no. There was
Thank you, Alexander, for the 20 bits. I did see you say that earlier. I was going to check it out. I wanted to finish this first before we get into any big tangents, but I'll keep it in my sidebar. Thank you for the 20 bits again. I appreciate you. I love you extremely parasocially.
impropriety that would have changed the outcome of the election. But what we're talking about with that, with Trump's lawsuit in Pennsylvania, is disqualifying 682,000 votes because they weren't observed as they were counted. And as Giuliani said, Mickey Mouse could have filled them out. That is not fraud. That is them saying we should disqualify these votes in an attempt to win because they weren't allowed to observe them.
Sure.
I think it's a problem that people weren't allowed to observe them properly. I don't know that disenfranchising the state is the appropriate path
I
forward.
think that's mostly agreeable, sure. I would say for life pro tip for people in the future, anybody either playing video games with friends or trying to run a country, if you have severe problems with the way that rules are, it's usually good to try to change the rules before you lose. Otherwise, everybody's going to look at you sideways, wondering if
Agreed.
you actually care about the rules or if you're just trying to get them change
But
the
they're not
outcome.
trying to change the rules with the observer
Well, in
thing.
terms of in terms of specifying the distance or in terms of like having observers in a certain area, or whatever, it sounds like they want to refine these rules to some
I
extent.
think I think that hasn't gone to the Supreme Court yet. However, there's a Trump supporting lawyer, a friend of mine, his name is Will Chamberlain. He said it's not going there.
Sure.
The Supreme Court. He said it was on appeal. So you saw that court case where the Trump appointee was like, get out of here.
Okay.
They appealed it, and that case was them appealing just to have the right to amend the argument in the first place, and they said, get out of here. So
Well, if this is the same one that I'm thinking, the reason why they told them to get out of there is because I think that this was a Giuliani, this was a Trump case, right?
It was, yeah.
They'd amended this case like 5 or 6 times, and I think
No,
Giuliani
once.
showed up.
They wanted to amend it for a second time. That was it. And so what
I wish I could remember exactly what this was, but I know that I watched.
Thank you so much, Penguin123, for the follow. I really appreciate you. Thanks for joining the frenzy and being so incredibly pog. Thank you.
might be thinking about
There was
different
one because there was a legal analysis video of one of these that Giuliani got thrown out of court because they had moved different lawyers on and off of this case so much, and then they pushed back and they tried to amend the case so many times that eventually
Well,
the lawyer was like, "Hey,
you know why
listen,
they
this
changed
is a
lawyers?
joke. Like, get out."
No. Oh, I remember this case in particular because this case was incredible. So they had lawyers, right? They had reputable lawyers on the case, like a big lawyer firm, and they alleged and then they put in, because they had no evidence of fraud, that we're not alleging fraud here, okay? And then Trump was like, hey, what the fuck? Alleged fraud, my dude. And then they changed out the representation, right? And then they put the fraud back, and then those guys pulled out, all right? And then Giuliani came on and tried and tried to put the oh, my bad, I think I'm messing up. The first people, they took the fraud off, and then they retracted. And then Giuliani came in. He tried to put the fraud back on, but by that time they changed representation so many times that the judge was like, "Stop!" Because when you change representation, you have to get the court. You have to get the court's approval to change representation, and amend your pleading, something along those lines. Because you can't just like change pleadings midstream. My bad. Change your statements midstream all the time in court by and dodge rulings because you don't like it.
I know you're not gonna say because of threads.
Yeah. The a bunch of high-profile, verified leftists, the Lincoln Project, posted the phone numbers of lawyers. And then within a day, they said, please, judge, let us leave the case. Like, that's the only reason they did it.
Holy fuck. What high-profile leftists? What does that mean? Do you think Breonna Joy Gray and Bernie Sanders called in to those law firms and was like, you better put this down if you know what's good for you? I'm from Brooklyn. You know how we treat people like you. You'll be swimming with the fishes by midnight, Chief. You better get out of that case as soon as possible, or I'll be over to your house lickety-split. How's Susie doing? Give her a pat on the head for me. Be really unfortunate if something were to happen to her. Like, what are you talking about? This didn't happen. They posted the phone numbers of lawyers, and then they're like, please, judge, help. Stop. Antifa's coming for me. Yeah, because Antifa loves Biden or something. Incredible, dude.
The judges quit the case after being threatened and harassed.
So I've had, unfortunately, a lot of bad experiences with people with higher education. That makes me wonder sometimes. But I would feel like, it feels to me that it would be pretty obvious, and if you're a lawyer, you'd probably understand this, that if you are going to be working on a public lawsuit, you're probably going to get a lot of public backlash. They weren't ready for any of that. I'm not saying that's good. If the Lincoln Project is posting phone numbers, that's pretty abhorrent. However, it feels more like they probably left because they saw the case was meritless, rather than just like, oh, we got death threats, so we decided to walk away.
That's possible too.
Highly improbable to me,
but that's possible too. But that's speculative.
Okay.
More so.
Unreal Alexander, I have no clue why you're spending so much money on the stream tonight, but I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for the gifted sub. Thank you so much. I love you, bro. Extremely parasocially now. It used to be very, now it's extremely. Thank you. Once again, unironically, thank you.
I would say if we get the Lincoln Project, a bunch of news stories were published saying, Republican PAC, anti-Trump Republican PAC publishes private information, Twitter forced a tweet down, and then within a couple of days, the lawyers put in an official request to leave the case. Our only chain of events is this. So I think the simple solution is they were threatened and harassed to the point where they said, we don't want to be involved anymore.
Sure. I guess it's just surprising to the lawyer would say, I can't believe my information went public on one of the most public lawsuits being filed in the world right now. That's very strange to me.
There's no other issues. And how come all the other lawyers, who are not getting harassed are staying on?
Why are the other lawyers aren't getting harassed at all? I find that hard to believe as well. I'm sure that any public name that's on any of those filings is probably going to get a ton of death threats.
The Lincoln Project publishing your phone number is probably very different from just being a law firm on one of the suits.
Possibly.
Yeah.
But
so
did you watch the Project Veritas guy that they originally had that was going to that had signed the affidavit saying he was told to backdate stuff or whatever that O'Keefe was talking?
Yes, I did.
Did you ever listen to the full interrogation?
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I try and make a good environment over here, so it really makes me happy that you enjoy yourself. That's all I need. Is it socialist lobby? Yes. Yes.
Of this guy when he retracted his
Yeah, I did.
So one of my worries for the affidavits, that and then reading through some of the judge testimonies, a lot of these affidavits are people, they're being truthful, they're signing what they believe to be true, but the problem is their observations are just not bad like they think they are.
Did you hear what the guy said after?
Well, after O'Keefe brought him on and butted him up some more, he's like, no, I got mind controlled or whatever by the interrogator. But if you listen to the interrogator, everything that they walked through was like, it was pretty obvious the guy's claim was way farther than he ever could have made.
I disagree.
The guy literally walked across the aisle to the desk and he's like, hey, if I'm talking, because the guy had said when he was across the aisle, he's like, I very clearly could hear him saying, like, we need to post-date or backdate some of the ballots. And the guy's like, hey, can you hear me over there? And the guy, like, doesn't even respond. And he's like, hey, hello? And the guy's like, oh, yeah, I can hear you now. And he's like, okay.
So you think the guy made it up in the first place?
I don't think that he made it up. I don't think that he's that malicious. I think he probably heard a word or two and then maybe extrapolated, and then his mind probably ran with it after that. Is what it seemed like based on that, like, 2-hour interrogation.
A guy hearing something and then being like, I can't believe that happened, and then telling someone is probably more accurate than a federal agent coming in and saying, sit down. And he says, what did he say? I'm scaring you right now. Like, did you hear that stuff?
Yeah, of course.
That's so what do you think happens when some regular, like, kind of dopey dude is
oh my gosh. He's like, I believe some random dipshit whose job is putting box up, bring box down, said he heard some parts of some things that felt like he thought that they said the backdate ballots is more reputable than someone's whose job it is to understand what people have said. Okay. Only trans cat commies allowed. This is kind of true, but only in Joe Biden's America.
Sitting there and a federal agent is kind of drilling him. You didn't hear it, did you? You can't hear it, can you? You're right. Don't worry. Everything is for you. We're scaring you right now. So it was a creepy recording.
It wasn't. It was totally fair. The guy had originally stated that he had heard crystal clear, like across across his whole office, he'd heard some.
And he signed a sworn affidavit under penalty of perjury.
Sure. And so did there are plenty of people who signed affidavits for a lot of different things, right?
Sure.
But
witness testimony is evidence, but it's not definitive proof.
When it came time for him to actually talk to the guy,
I really wish Destiny would push this guy on him repeatedly saying that affidavits are witness testimony. They're not.
he walked back almost all of his strong claims that he couldn't hear the guy telling across the hours, and maybe he didn't hear 100%. He was told to backdate things that like, and I listened to the entire interview and it sounded pretty fair to me. If the guy had accurately heard it, because initially he did feel a lot more confident when the guy asked a few questions, he started to kind of like falter. And the statement,
I don't like peanut butter, so neither, but thank you for the question.
and I know O'Keefe likes to clip out like 5 second, like power statements saying like, yeah, I'm putting a little bit of pressure on you because that's what you do when you
I
ask
watched the
people
full
questions.
thing.
Sure. So did we listen to all hour and 45 minutes?
It was not like I used to work.
Wait, it was not what?
It was not a calm, reasonable discussion trying to a fact-finding mission.
Unbelievably calm. The guy.
Thank you so much, Vespers, for the 300 bits. I appreciate that. Incorrect, but okay. Listen, I'm sorry. I don't listen. I don't like chocolate. I don't like peanut butter. I'm sorry. I am racist against Reese's. I know they say peanut butter chocolate great when separate, but when they combine, they make the morning time epic. It made the morning time very unepic and very anti-pog for me personally. I just like to eat Rice Krispies. Give me a bowl of Rice Krispies, and I will enjoy it. Thank you. But thank you so much once again for the 300 biddies. Thank you so much.
Guy spent half the discussion, like remember, like the guy with the guy being interrogated was like, oh yeah, I wanted to law enforcement, or I wanted to go into criminal justice, I went to school for it, and the guy was like, oh yeah, like that's so cool, like yeah, you're probably smart, all of this, like seeing the police tactics, the investigator was playing good cop 1,000,000% the entire time.
It doesn't mean he's not.
Okay, real quick, sorry, I didn't want to pause too much during this, but real quick, affidavit is something that an affidavit is like a promise that you will come and testify something in court, and that you factually believe that what you're saying is true. It's like a mini witness testimony, but it's different in the very important fact that you're not under penalty of perjury. You're not under oath when you sign an affidavit, and also it's just like what you believe is true. Okay, so if you can also be proven wrong about that, and also the important part is that if you make testimony in court and you verifiably lie, the court instantly will bring charges against you for perjury. For you to be held in contempt of court or perjury from an affidavit, the person who you signed the contract with has to bring a separate court filing against you in particular to bring you to justice for the lies that they believe that you said, right? So technically, for anybody to be held responsible for anything that they lied about on an affidavit, all the 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 10 billion affidavits that Kayleigh McEnany will like wave up on screen when she's having a Fox interview, Trump's team will have to bring in separate lawsuit against every single person who made that affidavit that they believe lied, because it's not like perjury, it's breach of contract. So there you go. There. Yes. And yes, I'm sorry, I don't like peanut butter.
Pressuring the guy and playing upon putting memories in his head. He even said, we want to pressure you so that you can make memories. And you remember when he said that, right? He said, we want you to, when we pressure you this way, then you can form memories.
I'm pretty sure exactly what he said was that when we pressure you, you're more likely to remember what actually happened, is what he said. That under some pressure, the truth will come out or whatever it was.
Ultimately, I think the argument's kind of pointless on this one guy.
Sure, well, it is just this one guy, but I notice a pattern for a lot of these affidavits that what will happen is that somebody will file an affidavit.
He's pushed on this the slightest amount, and he's like, well, I don't know. I don't think this matters too much on this guy in particular. Like, once he realized that he's out of his depth. Nice one, dude.
They were saying, like, oh, yeah, like, I saw election fraud. And then when it comes down to, like, well, what did you see? And it's like, well, I was in this room, and I think I saw a thing. And, like, the actual claim is actually way less than the super extrapolated thing that ends up on the affidavit, is what it feels like to me. And that's what's been pointed out in the court cases, too.
I don't think the affidavits go particularly far. Witness testimony is evidence. Sure. It's used in criminal court cases all the time. I think the best evidence we have so far is the Voter Integrity Project. Are you familiar with Matt Brainerd's work?
Is he the statistician guy?
Yeah, he's a data.
Oh God, I might have. If he was in front of Michigan, where he tried to explain.
No, he wasn't allowed to testify in Michigan, I think.
Oh, okay, then that was a different data science.
I think that was right. He
went out there, so we were supposed to have him, and he went out there. He's like, I'm going to testify there, and then he's like, I was not able to testify. Really
gotcha.
sad.
Okay, must have been a different guy then.
What he did was I believe he purchased the publicly available data from several swing states. He then hired 3 call centers, and he gave them a list of questions to ask. Did you request an absentee ballot? Did you send in an absentee ballot? Things like that. And he found in a bunch of different circumstances. That was one of the things they did. They also cross-referenced the National Change of Address database with people who voted. They found, I think, I could be getting the number wrong. Was it 20,000 in Georgia?
Yeah.
I think
20,000.
So. That sounds right.
20,000 people in Georgia who had changed their addresses, voted in their new state, and voted by absentee in Georgia. That's like, they've actually published parts of the database. You can see the names. He also found, I think, tens of thousands of people who listed commercial addresses with fake apartment numbers in Nevada. I think it's like 11,000 or so. That's legitimate, hard evidence.
So was that going to show up in a court case?
The FBI took it already. So the FBI proactively reached out to him, and this was
how long ago did this happen?
4 days, 3 days.
How long ago was Barr's statement where he said the FBI looked into things and it didn't look like there was?
Barr said to date. We have
yeah,
not
but what was that today? How long ago did Barr publish that statement? Wasn't that just a couple days ago?
Yes. We haven't seen evidence on a scale that would have altered the outcome of the election.
Okay.
Something to that effect. The FBI just reached out to Brainerd requesting. This was reported in a few outlets. He mentioned it. We'll see if anything it comes of it. But this is one of the reasons why there was a big backlash between people on the right and what Barr had said, and why Barr then clarified the next day, we are actively investigating and we'll take any credible report, or whatever. So Matt Brainerd is probably the best evidence. But again, it's not definitive proof that there was an outcome, changing the outcome of the election. I'm not saying that, maybe the FBI did review his data and they said, well, these 20,000 are 50-50 Trump or Biden, so it wouldn't have changed anything.
Possibly.
Maybe
The problem, too, is that, and again, I hate that I'm not familiar with this specific thing, but I know in front of Michigan, they would testify that, oh, well, here's evidence of voter fraud as well. There were 120% of the
voter
people,
turnout.
or not voter turnout, but of the registered voter, whatever here. They would use these expressions.
Right.
Yeah.
I know.
But the reality of what had happened was, well, some people moved, the voter registration updated, or some people moved here, but this isn't evidence of voter fraud. It's just evidence that there needed to be an update in the registry.
One of the biggest problems in Trump's argument, and a lot of conservatives bring this up, is when they're like, you'll see a tweet where they say there's 7,836 dead people on the voter registration in this place. And it's like, yes, because they died.
And they haven't been purged or
are you saying they voted? Because that's a different, so I hear that a lot from the right. And I'm like, that's irrelevant.
Exactly.
The
Without
question,
proving that they voted, you need
if you have proof they voted, then all of a sudden we're like, whoa. And there have been some instances, but I think in one
I think
instance,
there were a couple where somebody sent in a mail-in ballot and then died before the election. I think I saw these in Louisiana or something.
I misread something and tweeted like, whoa, dead people voted. And then I went back and I was like, they voted and then died.
Yeah.
But there were some instances that some mainstream outlets found where there were a couple dead people who were found to have voted.
Sure.
So the issue there is there voter fraud? Yes. And the Heritage Foundation has a list of it. Is it widespread to the scale that it changed the outcome of the election? That's not been proven.
Sure.
That's the best way I can put it. Obviously, the left will say, of course not. The right will say, of course, yes. The reality is there's evidence. There's crazy evidence, but it's not been proven. And I don't think it will be, to be completely honest. I don't think, and a lot of conservatives agree with this, that you have an apparatus that could even investigate on this scale 150 million votes to figure out who did or didn't. The Matt Brainerd stuff, the Voter Integrity Project.
Wait, we do. You can recount. You can audit things that have happened already. You can sue. We can find these things out. They've just backed up to this weird nebulous claim that fraud happened. We have evidence of fraud. We know it definitely happened, but we have no possible way to prove it to anybody except for our Twitter followers and a bunch of our people who subscribe to us on YouTube. Amazing. If that's all you have and you can't prove it to a judge at all, then I don't know what the point of what you're doing is. And then that's the only thing that people can run to is, I saw it on Twitter, like Tim Pool. Thank you, TMG1234, for the follow. Thank you for joining the frenzy and being so incredibly pog. I appreciate you. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Is probably the scariest stuff we have so far. There's a guy named Nahshon Garrett. He's a collegiate, is that how you say it? Collegiate wrestler training for the Olympics. He lived in Arizona. He moved to Tennessee. He got a phone call from one of the call centers asking if he requested an absentee ballot. He said, no, I voted in Tennessee. I moved here a while ago to train for the Olympics. They said, you didn't request it. You did not submit one. He says, no, I didn't. They said, somebody requested and submitted an absentee ballot in Arizona in your name. And so he then went public, went on Fox News and said, that's not me. I didn't do that. That's crazy. I'd like to see an investigation and some prosecutions, and or at least at the very least investigations. Maybe there's no prosecutions because we don't know where it leads to. But if you've got people changing their addresses and then voting, if this database thing on the National Change of Address database from Brainerd is correct, and he has 20,000 people in Georgia who changed their address but voted in two different locations, either they voted twice or someone voted in their name. We got to investigate that.
Sure, for sure.
Especially if Trump supporters are outraged and demanding clarity.
Wait, then go ahead. Just do that. Just do that then. If there's a couple of people that you think happened wrong, sometimes it tabulated twice. Maybe one it registered as vote, but it didn't. But it wasn't counted. Who knows? Who knows what happened? Also, thank you so much, Malaran Zora, for the follow. Thanks for joining the frenzy and being so incredibly pog. I appreciate you so much for joining us. I guess I'll take this moment to be like, hey, if you enjoy what we're doing here, we usually do really segmented streams, and we cut up those streams and put them on YouTube, and we have fun here. So there's lots of YouTube content, there's lots of Twitch content. So if you enjoy what we're doing here, drop a follow and you can join the frenzy. We also have a Discord. You can do !Discord and you can check out what's happening on the interior of the frenzy. Oh, thank you so much once again, Alexander, for the tier 1 gifted sub, the TMG. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Thank you.
The crazy thing to me is that at a time when this country is dramatically and hyperpolarized, the Democrats, confident in their win, should be like, please, Trump, take the resources you need to investigate and compare signatures and do what you need to do so that we can then tell you we won definitively. Instead,
but they're doing that.
They're not. They're blocking it.
are.
There's
They've been
the
doing all of
DNC
these investigations, or they've had all these court cases in all these different states. What do
No,
you
the
mean?
court cases are not investigations. The DNC is countersued, and the ACLU is countersued, blocking the Trump lawsuits. So they're not cooperating, and they're arguing against it.
You said that Barr himself and the FBI was following up. You said that list was turned into the FBI, and these investigations are working through these things. It's not like these investigations are happening.
No, for sure. I'm saying the Democrats should come out and be like, yes, absolutely, please investigate.
I mean, I guess it depends on what they believe the merits of the case are. If it's so ridiculous that all this is doing is just tearing the country asunder because they're constantly challenging every single little part of the election process.
It can only do the opposite.
That's not true, though. You can draw stuff like this for years.
No, until they can't find any evidence of anything, and then Biden wins.
They already have no evidence of anything. That's why they haven't won a single court case. What are you talking about? They already have no evidence of nothing. Thank you so much, Unreal. Once again, stealing the bit badge from poor Kat. I feel so bad for her. Poor the Canadians. They need some things. I don't know why you're stealing so much from poor Canadians. Thank you so much once again for the 30 bits.
How long did we have to listen to Trump talk about how Obama was from Kenya? Like, they could draw this out.
Yeah, the real proof that that this is a socialist stream. All the redistribution of wealth going on right now is truly incredible. Thank you so much, Vincent Demon 1, for the follow, for joining the frenzy and being so incredibly pog. Thanks for joining us tonight. How are you doing?
So long.
But there's a
we even have
constitutional
new
process.
Sure, there might be. But again, legal constitutional processes can be years long.
On January 20th, whether or not there's an investigation, there's going to be an inauguration.
Sure.
And the investigation can carry on, and fine, let them draw it out.
Sure.
We went through three and a half years. I mean, we're still technically going through Russiagate because Adam Schiff won't drop it. And here we are. And we all kind of just roll with it. And the Pulitzer Prizes and all the awards, and we realized it was all of these people testifying under oath. They had no evidence. It didn't happen.
Wait, what thing didn't happen?
So you had the likes of, what was it, like Brennan and Clapper. You had people, Schiff. They were going on TV saying, yes, it happened. We have proof.
Wait, what happened?
Collusion with
I've
Russia.
heard,
Sorry.
Okay, because
yeah.
I've heard a
but
lot
then
of this.
in the skiff, when they were doing the closed door testimony, it said, oh, no, that's not true. I don't have any evidence. And so that actually got released, I think, in like October or something.
Sure.
The point, I'm not trying to rehash all that. I'm just saying, if I can go
Thank you so much, Kat, for the 285 bits. You didn't have to do this, but listen, I appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you everybody else who's watching or lurking as well for being around. And thanks for just spending some time with us, even if you don't feel like talking. That's perfectly fine. I'm a lurker too. I love you. And thank you. Yeah, not like this. I guess it's exactly like this.
through all that, I got no problem saying either we let the investigations happen and maybe we find something, maybe we don't. But so long as people feel that in good faith we are taking their complaint seriously, we can prevent destabilization of what is already an extremely hyperpolarized
Sure, I can
country.
understand that. You must understand on the other end, though, there is a little bit of frustration with what feels like endless investigations into nothing related to things like Hillary Clinton or Benghazi. These things, how many hours of court hearings, how many months did we get drips about Hillary's emails, buttery emails over and over and over and over again? Like,
I'm going to disagree, because I honestly think that if you want every single American to be rightfully enfranchised, if they have the right to vote, then you, more than anyone else.
Am I just racist? But this woman kind of makes me uncomfortable. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but like maybe it's the way that she's speaking or her mannerisms or something. Like there's something about her that it throws me for a real loop. Oh my gosh! Thank you so much for the 287 bits, beating Kat by 2 bits. Vespers for the thank you so much. I really appreciate that. You're a misogynist. I probably am a misogynist. Maybe it's me. I don't know. It's just the when she chimes in. Maybe it's just me. I don't know.
You and all of the Democrats should 100% want every possible investigation, because we want this to be true, free, full, and fair for everyone.
I listen, okay. Just there's a reason. This is like a defense of slap lawsuits. It's just really wild how you can just say that we'll just keep investigating and keep throwing suits up until we run out of money. I don't think that's really a good way to handle these things. Once you like flesh out some things, you can only go so far with something before you just start, rubbing it in and it starts to get raw. There's just no reason to keep up with some of these things, and these voter fraud claims that have been disproven time in and time out. There's no reason to do this. Yeah, and it's the first ever hype train. That's incredible. Thank you all so much for the first ever hype train. What's your affiliation? Liber lefty. I'm a lefty. I love cat girls.
every legal citizen in the U.S.
Sure, and I hope that they do their investigations. I hope they
Boring.
present their cases in front of the courthouses.
They're
That's fine.
obstructing.
But
there should be an
man, the
investigation.
way that all of this is played out, it really does. Even the verbiage they use, it's never when Giuliani's talking, it's never like I want to ensure that this is a free and fair election. I want to ensure that everybody's kind. It's like we think we can find enough votes here to change the outcome of the state.
They straight up asked Sidney Powell, one of in relief in the Kraken lawsuit, was declare Trump the winner.
Yeah, like
And
they're
I'm like,
literally
that's-
asking explicitly, like this
that's
is supposed to be
getting
the
thrown
part
out.
they're not supposed to say out loud. You're supposed to keep that quiet. You're trying to, but like, so I'm not saying that like I hope the investigations are blocked if they have merit, but I mean, I would understand why some people would feel a bit salty that investigations get dragged out forever. But
I know a lot of people who are salty about the Russiagate elections, and I think.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Vespers, for the 213 bits again, and thank you so much, Kat, for the tier 1 subscription to Young Chin Savage. Thank you all so much. Why are you all being so nice tonight? What's happening? I mean, I appreciate all of you, but like, thank you. I don't even know how to react. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Oh, you're a libertarian socialist? Cool. I'm a tanky.
That as with compromise comes one side rolling their eyes while the other side shakes their fist. And
I
it's
mean,
better
Flynn
than
was communicating with people in an unauthorized manner before he went to the White House. He literally lied about it.
lying. I thought you said it was unauthorized. Did he lie about communicating, or was it unauthorized
I
communication?
believe that he lied about it to the FBI, his communication. That
Do you know the story? I think you're walking into a landmine.
Walking into a landmine. Which part of what do you think that do you think Flynn going to prison or being charged with lying to the FBI? Do you think it was illegitimate?
Yes.
Why?
What the fuck? Tim, I'm smarter than the FBI pool, here to lay down the facts of Michael Flynn definitely went to jail, definitely was charged, and definitely pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI, but he only did it because they were pressuring him. They were using Jedi mind tactics. They were going to kill his daughter if he didn't acquiesce to all of the FBI's demands. And then Donald Trump, God, King, Emperor of the world, swooped in to save this poor man from the clutches of the FBI. How sad. Oh my gosh. That tanky comment fuck you up? Good. I'm gonna fuck you up some more, bud.
Because he was the acting national security advisor who was communicating with his Russian counterpart.
And why did he lie to the FBI about it?
Do you know the meeting wasn't a formal investigation? He was hanging out at the White House and they asked him an informal question in passing, and that was the grounds. Did you know that they threatened his son to force a guilty plea?
Oh my gosh, this is actually something that they believe. I was actually joking. I was joking. I didn't think Tim Pool was actually going to be like the FBI was going to capture his son, shackle him to the walls of a FBI prison cell, feed him pickle juice through a sponge, and then blast Tim Pool videos into a cell until Michael Flynn decided to turn himself into the FBI. But thank you so much, Alexander, for the extra 6 biddies. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Why did
you know that in the notes that
why did he lie to the FBI?
If you right now lied to me, or what if you lied to Ian? And you didn't know he was
I'd
FBI.
be so mad.
You think that Flynn was talking to somebody? He had no idea he was FBI.
He didn't know he was under investigation. There was no legitimate investigation, and he was asked a passive question by someone who had nothing to do with him.
There was no legitimate. Didn't the FBI and the DOJ both have, or I'm sorry, not the DOJ, the State Department both have a huge interest in Flynn because of his association with Kislyak? I thought that was like a big part that both of them had an issue with. That the State Department didn't want him in the White House because they weren't sure if he was compromised. The State Department, and that the FBI didn't mind if he was there because the FBI wanted to follow him up for a further investigation.
So you're talking politics, not legitimate claims against.
Yeah, you all share the same $20 because it's all your $20, comrade. No need to steal. Gulags, yeah. I can't wait for the Catboy gulags in Joe Biden's America. And this is why Candace Owens is taking such a fight against manly men, because she knows for a fact the end of days is coming. That Dallas Birkenau is going to open up, and all manly men are going to be filtered through and I don't know. Forced to watch sissy cum sucking videos until they become women or something. I don't know.
Michael Flynn.
Okay.
You're talking about Michael Flynn, who came out, and this was a conversation we had the other day with Luke Rutkowski. Michael Flynn came out and basically talked about what the Obama administration had been doing with supplying weapons to rebels. Obama got mad, fires him, tells Trump not to hire this guy, so Trump says, I'm going to hire him. Then they started they had these meetings. This was released in, I think it was the Durham probe, I'm not entirely sure. The notes that got released show that there was a meeting between like Sally Yates, James Comey, Joe Biden, Barack Obama, all having this big meeting in which afterwards Sally Yates writes an email to herself explaining what happened. And
what did she explain what happened in that meeting?
She went through grueling detail about how Obama ordered them to make sure everything was on the up and up and done by the book in terms of an investigation of Michael Flynn to some degree.
People try to claim that in that meeting that I think they assert either Obama or Biden. I think asserted that he brought up the Logan Act. Or
Yes,
whatever.
because
that was not true.
There's a
even
note.
Even in the notes that Yates left herself, it was not true that Biden ever brought up the Logan Act in that particular meeting.
So there's notes that say Biden Logan Act ? That's why it was asserted.
Sure, but
I'm not going to take Sally Yates. What's your evidence for that?
There is no evidence for that. That nobody came out and said it. Like, oh yeah, like Biden was, this was brought up, the Logan Act.
We got some fucking memers in chat. Day 74, I can't take it anymore. The Catboy, he's playing 100 gex, have surrounded us, just blasting 100 gex and doing beatboxing outside until they come out to take their new estrogen injection.
Was brought up on his behalf or whatever. I don't think anybody's ever talked about it.
Did you know that notes released by the FBI asked, what should we do? Or what are we trying to do? Get him fired or prosecute?
Okay. Why
would the FBI be trying to get a guy fired?
I think the problem is that, and this is...
Wait. Get a guy who's been lying about his communications with foreign governments from being in top positions in the United States federal governments. Why would the FBI want to get this guy fired? We need like a Dora the Explorer, like a clicker to help us out, to help Tim Pool figure out why the FBI may think that this would be a good idea for Flynn not to be in office anymore.
This is something that gets misconstrued a lot. Trump himself, or maybe it was Barr himself, misconstrued a State Department person's words in terms of what is our goal is to get him fired or prosecute, because there was a huge conflict of interest between the FBI and the State Department over what to do with Flynn. And this is where a lot of the fighting between these two agents came from. The State Department did not want Flynn associated with the White House at all. They wanted him out because they didn't know if he was compromised on it. The FBI didn't care if he stayed there. I shouldn't say didn't care, but they weren't as concerned with that because they thought that they could follow Flynn further up on an investigation. So there was a huge conflict of interest there where we don't know. Do we want to remove now? Do we want to continue to investigate him? That's a fair question to ask. There were two competing agencies that had different goals.
Did you know they threatened his son?
When you say threaten his son, I don't know
if you don't plead guilty, we're going to prosecute your son.
Did his son commit a crime?
I don't know exactly what the full details.
Well, that seems like really important there because of his son.
Yeah, did you know they threatened his son? They said they were going to prosecute your son. And did he commit a crime? Whoa, no. What do you mean you don't know? That just sounds like a plea deal. That just sounds like a plea deal. What? But Tim Pool hears a plea deal and thinks it's some sort of like villainous act to be like, hey, if you cooperate, we won't make your life worse. Like, it's a plea deal. You've already done this to yourself. What are you talking about? Yeah, if you want to save your son, go just plead guilty. Yeah, unless Flynn thought that he would win or something. I don't know.
Uncommitted crime, it seems like that would be a pretty important part of
threatening. Look, you're getting somebody on a process crime because in an informal meeting where he was not being investigated, he said he didn't talk to Kislyak. Don't you think that's crazy that you could be standing by an FBI agent and he could be like, you ever talk to a Russian ambassador? And you go, no, you lied.
An incoming national security advisor would lie to a member working for the Federal Bureau of Investigation about contact with a foreign agent? Yeah, that seems crazy to me.
Not in a formal meeting under investigation.
Okay.
He has no obligation to tell anybody anything. In fact, as national security advisor, why would he be giving away his advice and secrets to some FBI agent he doesn't know?
Then why?
Or I'm sorry, he doesn't know, like in the sense that.
Why is he talking to him at all about it then?
So you're at a party. You're at an informal meeting at the White House.
People are asking me, the incoming national security advisor, about my communication with foreign. I probably would say, hey, listen, you know what? I don't think I'm going to talk to you about that. It seems really inappropriate.
Or maybe you're just like, no.
Wait, you're chilling out at a White House party, doing your thing. Giuliani, what a wild card. He's busy. He's busy, neck deep in the punch bowl. He puts the lampshade over his head. He's running around, at the White House party, and some dude just walks up to you, nudges you on the shoulder. Hey, bud, you want to talk about your communications with foreign governments? Like, does this happen in Tim Pool's world? Like stuff like this just happens every once in a while, and then like, would you all talk about this? Even if he talked about it, like, isn't that a great reason for you not to be in that position if you're just so loose-lipped about like all your communications and you like lie about them all the time? I don't know. It sounds really weird.
Because I don't want this guy to know anything about, I don't know who he is, I don't know what his deal is. We're not an informal investigation. He wasn't with a lawyer or anything like that. And they asked him a question, and that was the basis for prosecuting him for lying to the FBI.
Why did the judge throw the book at him then? What happened?
Isn't that strange that when the DOJ said, we want to drop this, Judge Sullivan did nothing for a month?
My understanding was that the DOJ said that they wanted to drop it under Barr, and that Barr's reasoning for dropping that is because he said that the State Department themselves were arguing over the FBI about whether or not, about how to deal with Flynn. And the State Department had a person, and I believe it was her own words, I don't remember her name, but she came out and she said, actually, Barr used my statement, because I think the statement had to do with how the State Department was frustrated with how the FBI was pursuing things, but their frustration wasn't that Flynn was innocent, we don't know why the FBI is bullying him. Their frustration was that we don't want you to investigate Flynn, we want him removed immediately. But
so they were trying to pressure the Trump campaign into getting rid of his national security advisor.
Basically, because the State Department didn't want that guy in there because he was compromised. But the FBI
Well, Trump was the president.
Sure.
Trump was the president elect. He became president. It's his right as the duly elected president to appoint as an acting national security advisor, whose job is to communicate with his counterpart in other countries.
And I understand that. I'm just saying that there's a reason why there was conflict there, and it wasn't just because Flynn was some innocent passerby, and the State Department was trying to exonerate him. So when Barr comes out and he cites that particular statement,
sure. But that's irrelevant to the question at hand. In an informal meeting where Flynn was not with his lawyer or under formal investigation, they asked him if he talked to Kislyak, and he passively said no, and that was it.
What do you think about the what do you think about the reports now that Trump is looking at potentially preemptively pardoning himself or any of his family members? Do you believe in any of this? Or
I don't know. I think it's certainly within the realm of possibility for something Trump to do. But I don't trust a lot of these reports that come from unnamed sources. Ever since we've had that story from Huffington Post, people close to the president say he has no one close to him.
I'm so close. You are right. We are close to a new emote slot. We're so close, actually. We need one more subscription to unlock our next emote slot. So, that's something you all can ponder for a moment.
I'm just like, these people are just, if Trump comes out and says it, I'll believe it. Trump recently came out at a party and said, we're trying
what the fuck? If Trump says it, I'll believe it? Okay. Yeah, thank you. Wow. Thanks, Tim. Yes. Arbiter of truth, Donald Trump. If he says it, I'll believe it. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. At least he's honest here.
Hard to stand for 4 years, but if we don't, we'll see you in 2024. Good enough for me. When they come out and say unnamed individual claims, I'm like, sorry. I got very little room for these companies just to make these claims unless I know who the person is. Especially after the fact, like, we've seen many, many people they hate the president to the point where they'll say whatever they have to say. And there's certainly people who love the president to the point where they'll say whatever they have to say. I want hard evidence when it comes to fraud. I want hard evidence when it comes to the accusations against Trump. When I look at the Michael
Vespers was the one who did the one above all to push us one more emote, one more subscription into the next realm of getting one more emote. All right. They've done it. Thank you so much, Vespers. And thank you everyone else. Like on a serious note, this means like a whole lot for you all to think that this stream is worth any amount of time to give any money that you've been able to put to scrounge together in this really difficult time to throw it our way. So I really appreciate you, all of you, for all of that. And once again, everybody else who's not chatting or just watching or just enjoying your time, thank you so much for being around. It means a whole lot to be able to do this hobby and do it, I guess, well enough for you all to enjoy your time here. So thank you. If you're just enjoying yourself, that's all I need. Hambone LTD, thank you so much for the follow and joining the frenzy and being so incredibly pog. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Flynn scenario, it looks like Barack Obama didn't like Flynn because Flynn was not good to Barack Obama. So they said, we don't want you. Do you know what the reasoning for why the State Department thought he was compromised was?
Why?
In a meeting, he was talking to someone, and they I think it was Yates, perhaps. He was asked, who do you think? Or I'm sorry, in a passive conversation, it comes up that he says, I don't think that Russia is our biggest adversary. I think it's actually China. And that was like, oh no, he thinks he's trying to defend Russia or something. It's like, well, I agree. I think China's a way bigger threat than Russia is. And then all of a sudden, he finds himself being prosecuted for lying to the FBI. For what? Now, I'll tell you what. He got thrown under the bus by Trump and Trump's team, saying he shouldn't, and Pence, he shouldn't have lied to us. Oh, it's his fault. And then later they came back and tried to defend him. Trump's not a perfect guy, far from it, and he made a ton of mistakes. He threw his own guy under the bus, and he should have defended him. But when
he
Bill
seems to have a habit of doing that.
He certainly does. He has a habit of hiring dumb people too.
Like, then calling them amazing, then throwing them under the bus.
Oh, I love
He's done this with
he does
so many different sessions with Cohen. That
is the Trump administration.
Fires people. It's his job.
No, he should have fired a lot more people.
Oh,
He didn't fire people. That was the problem. So
maybe if he wasn't such like a two-head liar and just a piece of shit, he would have hired people that he wouldn't have to fire like that all the time. This is the most turnover. Like, don't you think it's incredible that Donald Trump's administration, the administration in the White House, in the arguably the most powerful nation in the world, has the same turnover rate as a fucking McDonald's in some like no-name town in the middle of like Tennessee? The turnover rate for Trump's administration is just insane. It is wild. Dylan hit the maid outfit goal. Oh, look at him go. Oh, maybe we'll make our own maid outfit goal. Who knows? If it works, who knows?
I think, whether you like Flynn or whatever, when it comes to the DOJ saying we're going to drop it, and a judge started prosecuting, that's scary, man. Look, I'm rather anti-authority. I've never been a fan of the FBI, going back to the days of Occupy Wall Street, where they write them all the time. And it became increasingly weird to me how many of the people I knew at Occupy became defenders of the intelligence agencies.
Sure. More broadly speaking, why do you think that in a federal government where Trump has exerted quite a bit of control, he's got a lot of his own appointees, like, why does he still run into so many problems with so many of these agencies? Why does it seem like nobody in the White House, even the own people that he puts there sometimes, don't seem to be taking his side on anything?
He does not know how to work the system. He does not know how government works, and he can't make it work. I think, with people like Trump who are business people, when you run a business, for the most part, you're an authoritarian. Your business, your rules, you're the boss. You can fire and hire within certain confines and certain laws.
Why?
You're still a boomer for being 26. Sorry. No, dude, Tim is just so dumb.
I said that. So when you say that, I feel that 100%. But another important thing about being a business owner, whether you are a supervisor, a manager, a district manager, or whatever, or the owner, you never, ever, 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 ever can pass the buck. You can't do it. If you're supervising a shift and your manager comes to you and your manager is like, what happened on this shift? You would never, as a supervisor, it was that employee, because it would be your responsibility.
But Trump's the boss.
Every single time. Yeah.
He
Why
passes
is
the
it?
buck.
Yeah, all the time. Trump will not accept responsibility for anything. It's either the deep state is after him, the Democrats are after him, the FBI is after him.
Yeah, the IRS is after him. That's why he couldn't release his tax returns. Do you guys remember when Trump was on stage debating Biden and he was like, Biden was like, this guy never takes any responsibility. And Trump was like, this is the most, it was the wildest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Trump was like, I do take responsibility. It isn't my fault. Like, do you guys remember that? He's like, it's not my fault. I take full responsibility. It isn't my fault. I didn't do it. It's my I take complete responsibility, but I never did anything wrong, guys. Like, wow, this guy is a literal child.
The DOJ is after him, even when he's running through his own appointees in a lot of these institutions over and over and over again.
I agree. Trump's got a habit of when there are certainly circumstances where he has people to blame, and there are certainly circumstances where he should just be a good leader, saying, the buck stops with me. I should have done better. And if this person failed, is irrelevant because I'm the one who needs to steer this ship.
For somebody
That's
that
not Trump.
has been so ineffectual as a leader, so then I guess moving.
I disagree on that.
Why? What do you think are some of his chief accomplishments, I guess, under this
I
administration?
mean, the economy was smashing in 2019. Jim Cramer, the best numbers of our lives.
Which
3
was from
years.
2013 onwards.
Oh, it was dramatically different. I mean, Barack Obama
Wasn't
said you'll need a
dramatically
magic wand to reach 4% growth. And then when Trump did it, he started laughing at him.
I don't know what Barack Obama said. All I know is that everybody can look at the economy. From 2013 onward, we were smashing all-time highs consistently.
Under Donald Trump, growth was better. Unemployment was way lower.
It was good. Unemployment continued to fall, mainly as a result of Federal Reserve monetary policy. But
for sure, and deficit spending, there's a lot of bad things too.
Yep.
But Jim Cramer, the best numbers of our lives.
I don't take anything Cramer says about the economy seriously. He's an entertainer on TV. I don't know what Cramer has to do with. I'm from Trump economic policy. It doesn't really seem like he's done much in terms of being an effective leader, in terms of passing awesome legislation.
He's a president. He doesn't do that.
Well, or championing awesome. He promised a lot.
Dude, the first 2 years under Trump with the Republicans were a complete and total failure. I think the Republican Party is mostly garbage.
Sure, but again, one of the chief things that we elected Trump for was him talking about how he can bring people together and get them to work on things. It seems like he's been more divisive than ever.
First couple of years for Trump, completely awful. Trump divisive. He's been quite a bit. The last few years, there's mostly in the past year, there's been a couple things. Because I said in January, I will never vote for this man. Then the riots happened. And when riots got close to my family, and I saw what the Democrats were doing, it really made Trump look good by comparison in a lot of ways. So that was.
So you're a single issue voter because riots happened.
Actually, I've literally said that for sure. So I've got.
Tim did actually vote Trump. You're right. He did vote for Donald Trump. All right, but we have to give the dog a treat. So Cat paid. Who paid? Yep, Cat paid to give the dog a treat. We have to give him a treat. All right, come here, buddy. Come here, big head. There you go, so they can see you. Oh, microphone's in the way. Oh, chill. Hey. Whoa. Come here. I know you're excited. Come here. Well, good boy. Oh, another one? Okay. Oh. One, two. Test 1, 2. Okay. All right. Well, come here then. Whoa. Over here. Come here. Let's watch. Come here. All right. Come on. What a good boy. He's a champagne socialist? Yeah, boo. Boo's the champagne socialist. You want to talk to him? You want to say something? Go ahead. Good boy. He's a good boy. There you go. All right. All right. Now, come on. Go. Come on. There you go. That way. Good boy. Dog was a good debater. He's a great debater, amazing debater. When I'm offline, I send him into debating discords to hone his craft. There you go, good boy. Thank you. All right. Now he just yeah. This is the part where he sits next to me and stares. He bores a hole through my skull with his eyes. Waiting for another treat. Listen, I limited it to 2 treats per stream because I know for a fact everybody would want to see me fatten up my dog. But the vet would yell at us. The vet would have some very strong words for us, and all the girls working the counter would be very upset if Boo came in looking round as a barrel. So I had to do that. Okay, back to this.
Family who are incapable of defending themselves. And when the riots broke out in Chicago and the leadership it was insane. I mean, one alderman was talking to the Mayor Lori Lightfoot saying that she was directing the rioters to the neighborhoods and she was nuts and he was cussing at her and screaming. And I get calls from my friends and family saying, 60 miles west of Chicago, the rioters were showing up and nothing was being done about it.
Do you think it's possible that under different federal leadership, maybe the riots would have looked a little different, or do you think they would have played out the exact same way?
I limited hydration because all you guys would do would spam hydration. You'd be like, drink water. And 10 of you guys would say, drink water. And then I'd drown. I'd start coughing and I'd start crying on stream and you all would laugh. So yeah, yes, I limited water. What are your thoughts on the riots? Listen, happy societies don't riot. If there's a problem in society, it's going to come out some way, whether that be voting, whether that be violence. If you would not like for riots not to exist, how about you address the problems before riots ensue?
Instead of a president that was constantly deriding the movement and constantly
that's irrelevant.
You don't think that matters at all?
I know it doesn't matter because I was at the start of Black Lives Matter when these things erupted. It was under Barack Obama that I got to witness the National Guard pouring into Ferguson.
Sure,
I got
the
to
BLM riots,
gunshots.
But the BLM protests and any riots occurring under Obama were a pittance compared to what happened under Trump. These were the largest scale riots maybe in the history of the world, maybe. In terms
so
of
you're
how many
saying
people were involved.
Trump is responsible?
Yeah, 100%. I think 1 in 10 people participated in a BLM protest. Last time I heard a study, 1 in 10 people. 1 in 10. That is an incredible amount of people. So many people decided to be a part of a BLM protest because they saw something wrong. You wouldn't have to do these protests. You won't have to try and agitate for strikes. You won't have to do any riots. Nobody feels the need to do any riot if there are problems that aren't real. Okay, they are real and they're really hurting people. It is amazing in America, mind you, a place that had the Red Scare and the place that's so under the thumb of manufactured consent in big media buying up all small news organizations and people not even caring about what's happening in their local districts anymore. With all of that happening in this America, 1 in 10 people decided to be a part of a BLM protest. That is an incredible feat. An incredible amount of agitation, an incredible amount of hurt and pain that's going on in this country that had to manifest in some way, and it manifested like this. And hopefully we can take that energy and make it into something good. And people like Tim Pool are the people who will always be on the side of saying, not the right time. Oh, look at this. Oh, look at that. Oh, they're so terrible. And try to always and be on the wrong side of history. Tim Pool will be on the side of the history book that said the naysayer said it couldn't be done. And they said it was impossible until someone did it. And we can do it.
For the riots, but not the economy, even though the riots and the economy both started under Biden.
Under Obama. That's because Trump can't say good words and make the economy do a certain thing.
Why couldn't Obama solve it? Why didn't Obama solve it during his term? It was 2011 when this started. By 2016, he did nothing to stop this problem.
Obama couldn't do much of anything. Obama couldn't even get his own Supreme Court pick through. Okay?
Trump can't do much of anything because he's getting blocked left and right.
Trump has loaded the federal judiciary.
He sure did. McConnell did.
Trump controlled both halves of government and was on the executive branch,
no,
and now is the Supreme Court. How is it like? How can you
listen.
give a man so much and yet he claims to have so little at the end of the day? What more did he need?
Trump's not a Republican. The Republican Party in 2016, when they controlled the upper and lower chambers, they're
But they
establishment
were both
politics.
unified on some issue.
What the fuck? I love Tim Pool's. He hand waves everything. He hand waves everything. Everything Trump has done wrong. It's somebody else's fault. This guy is a bitch baby. All right. Pool and Trump. Children, they can't take any responsibility for anything. Nothing is ever Trump's fault. He never does anything wrong. Oh, it's everybody around him. It's this. It's the establishment Republicans that fell basically lockstep behind him on almost every important issue. It's everybody else's fault, but never Trump's. It's never his. Trump's not a Republican. Trump is a Republican. Trump is the heart of the Republicans. What are you talking about? Trump had a 90% approval rating amongst Republicans for like most of his term. But okay.
Issues. For instance, repeal and replace healthcare. What happened with that?
Yeah, the Republican Party is trash. And Trump doesn't know how to work this, and he didn't have the support he needed. So listen.
That Trump is stupid and incompetent, and so he had no clue what to do. Like, thanks for based. Pool got a call from the base department before this started. Hey, maybe he's starting to learn what's up.
The point is, I'm not going to blindly defend Obama or Trump. I think the responsibility with the riots fell under Trump. Guess what? Trump had the DHS deputize state and local police in Portland and started arresting the rioters and giving them federal charges to the point where they started running. They started posting blogs saying, like, get out of your houses because the FBI is coming to give you charge comparable to the charges that were just dropped at the state level. When Obama was in charge and the riots were happening, he said, if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon. And then for the next 4 years, because I covered this, I was in Ferguson for a year and a half, back and forth, flying in and out as the riots progressively got worse. And it was then when Darren Wilson got acquitted, I watched the whole street of West Florissant go up in flames. With Trump, we had COVID lockdown, which was implemented for the most part by Democrat governors, and Trump opposed it for the most part. Republican governors opposed it. When the riots broke out, Trump said, I'm going to shut it all down.
And yet the riots under Trump were like 50 times worse than the riots under Obama.
Yes, because a combination of the lockdowns and the pent-up rage going all the way back into the Obama administration.
You don't think any of that rage might have come from the way that Trump talks about any of these issues?
Definitely. Sure. But what I'm talking about is when the riots happened, there's a combination of things. It's not just the riots. It was, in the last several months, Trump was like trying to pull troops out of Afghanistan. I started clapping. I'm like, do it, bring it on. And then the Syria stuff too, finding out how they lied. I got the Defense One article. Outgoing Syria envoy admits hiding U.S. troop numbers to trick the American people into keeping soldiers in the Middle East.
We didn't need to trick them. Trump wanted to do it the entire time as well. He's talked about running Syrian oil fields.
Trump initially tried to pull all our troops out, and then there was a revolt between the Democrats and Republicans saying, you can't do this. So then Trump, in hilarious fashion, whether it's good or bad, said, all right, we're going to keep a couple hundred soldiers in here to guard the oil fields. And then all the anti-war progressives just like started laughing and face-palming, like this dude just blurts out what the American empire is doing when he brags about selling weapons to Saudi Arabia for their war with Yemen. It's like this dude is admitting the war machine exists, and it was
well, sure.
Hilarious. Isn't that so hilarious that he pulled out from some of our only allies in the Middle East and let them fail, almost doing irreparable damage to our alliances in a war-torn region that's killing millions of people in hilarious fashion. Like, what is this? What's happening, dude? Hilarious fashion. Stop talking. Wow, really funniest shit I've ever seen. Wow, thank you, Tim. Thank you so much for your A+ mucho grande analysis.
But there's also the same guy that talks about killing terrorists and their families and everything too. Like he did.
Like Obama did. Obama literally.
Huh?
Really did.
I don't think.
Huh? Huh? Wait, he's like Obama was targeting the families of ISIS members? What? Okay.
At the same level that Trump has been doing. Again, the first 4 years of Trump's administration have seen more bombings than any other country. We still have wars going on in every single country that we did when Obama left office.
Trump is one of the I think the first president with like 4 decades who didn't start a new war.
Well, that's because there's not many countries left to go to war at this point.
I mean, there literally are.
Like what? Like what other countries? I mean, there aren't that many countries. And he tried to get us in a war with Iran. What do you mean? What? Just because he sucks at doing everything he does doesn't mean that he gets a free pass. He escalated in almost every single war that we have now. Yeah, he tried really hard to get us into a new war. He's just stupid. That area is already tired of war. The only reason we didn't go to war is because of the restraint of the Iranian government. They had no want to go to war with us. They did we bombed Soleimani. We bombed their country, okay? And they decided not to do anything about it. That's the only reason we didn't go to war. Wow. It was this year. All of this is this year. In a single year, Trump tried to get us into war. He tried to do everything possible to get us into a new war. But thanks to the restraint of other governments from our dumbass leader, we didn't find ourselves into a new war.
Of course, but he didn't do it. And
I mean, that's great, but he's not pulling back. He's continued the wars. We still have troops in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and
with him trying to remove them. Like, I literally have the Defense One article. They lied to him to keep the troops in Syria. That, like, I've never been more angry in my life when I heard this.
I will have to read this article. I'm very curious on how the commander-in-chief it's possible because he's too stupid to read the intelligence reports. He lied.
Or they lied to him. They gave him bunk information.
Yeah, I remember that, how like some senator tweeted out that thanks to Donald Trump being so stupid, we lost our opportunity to do a coup in Venezuela. I mean, like, I don't know, dude. I don't know. Okay.
I don't know how else to put it. They
lied
to the president.
Because maybe they couldn't fit it in like the Crayola crayon
There,
pictures.
no, he straight up said,
intelligence report.
quote, "We were always playing shell games to not make clear to our leadership how many troops we had there." Jeffrey said in an interview, "The actual number of troops in northeast Syria is a lot more than the roughly 200 troops Trump initially agreed to leave in 2019. They lied to the American people to keep us involved in these quagmires in the Middle East when Trump was trying to end it."
Trump's administration has also been involved in lying to.
Wait, I kind of want to read that.
Agreed to leave.
4 years after signing the now infamous Never Trump letter condemning then president candidate Donald Trump. Okay. But even as he praises the president's support for what he describes as a successful realpolitik approach to religion, he acknowledges that his team routinely misled senior leaders about troop levels in Syria. We were always planning shell games, not to make it clear to our leadership how many troops we had there. Jeffrey said the actual number of troops in northeast Syria was a lot more than the roughly 200 Trump agreed to. Trump abruptly announced the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Syria, remains perhaps the single most controversial foreign policy move during his first 4 years in office. And Jeffrey, and the most controversial thing in my 50 years in government. In order, okay. Okay. So Trump's constantly getting lied to, constantly being made of a fool of himself, constantly at all points in time. But he had no possible way to find out whether anybody was lying to him. He didn't check. There was no double check or anything to see if the things that he was hearing was true. He just kind of is like a child who gets led around by a fucking string. Not even like a regular child that you like hold their hand. Not even holding their hand. A child, one of those kids where you put one of those like backpack dog leashes on to make sure they don't run away from you too fast. That you like clip onto them with like Velcro. It's like they got to put like a harness on the kid, like one of those kids, and then you just get dragged around.
Even 2019. They lied to the American people to keep us involved in these quagmires in the Middle East when Trump was trying to end it.
Trump's administration has also been involved in lying to the American people. For instance, when he made it harder to report the number of bombings that have gone on, when he's obscured. I don't think we've gotten a report of the troops on the ground released since February, I think, that they stopped publishing those monthly reports. Like, they've made it harder to get information out of the administration related to bombing. Just this idea, I mean, like, this may be a particular thing that happened in Syria, but the idea that Trump is some peaceful guy that just wants to get us out of all the wars.
I don't think he's a peaceful guy. I think he's desperate for votes.
Sure.
And I'm like, I'll take it. When Trump says the American people hate the wars, and that's true, he says, I'll get the troops out. And then the machine, the establishment, what are we going to call it? Egad, we must keep our troops in the oil fields.
But he still is engaging in all of the classic war hawky behaviors. If it would have been Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama or Biden that would have killed Soleimani, I think the right would have erupted. Like, oh, why are you assassinating
you're totally
these people?
correct.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And when we're still making these massive figure deals to Saudi Arabia for bombs, when we're still involved in stuff in Yemen, 100%. I think that people like would still be, I don't see anybody that like, I'm not going to sit here and defend Obama's record on foreign policy because I think there were definitely mistakes made.
Probably one of the worst we've ever had in a presidency.
Potentially. However, this idea that somebody be like, I don't like war hawks, so I'm voting for Trump on his foreign policy is just, that's crazy to me. Like, how
Pulling
many
our
wars
troops out of the Middle East?
But that's not even what he did. He didn't.
He tried.
And while
he tried several times.
He increased the number of people in the Middle East.
While he was trying to, he was also escalating tensions across the entire world with so many other countries.
Very problematic.
Like, he almost supported a coup in Venezuela, I think, when he kept trying to recognize, or not Venezuela, I'm sorry, in Bolivia, when he kept trying to recognize.
Democrats did that too.
Regardless.
Yep, he did it in Bolivia, he did it in Venezuela, and he did it also in Israel and Palestine when he tried to when he moved the embassy from bumfuck wherever Israel to Jerusalem.
Trump did as well. He warmed up. He troubled our relations.
So then criticize Biden for the same thing.
Sure. Well, no,
Yes.
you can't though. But because
They
when
were
Biden,
all in favor
but
of,
when Biden
Fred's
has
name.
talked about that. But even if that was true, first of all, Biden's published tons of op-eds talking about how he wants to take a different approach to foreign policy. Now we can say maybe he's lying and all of that. Sure. However,
so.
so we have a risk that everything that Biden has said on foreign policy might be a lie, which is possible. But we know that Trump is going to continue the same disastrous foreign policy that has been a staple of American foreign policy for the last 20 years. Of course, it's true.
Trump just purged the Pentagon leadership in order to force a withdrawal from Afghanistan.
Well, we'll see if it happens because he's been talking about a withdrawal from Afghanistan since the day he took office.
And they were refusing and they were lying to him.
Look, he's the. This is the one area. Trump is the commander in chief. If he can do anything, it's moving troops around. If he had the political will to do it, it would be done.
I will take an incompetent attempt at pulling our troops out several times over the legacy of the Obama-Biden administration with everything they did. Extrajudicial assassinations, the prosecution of more journalists and whistleblowers under the Espionage Act than all other presidents combined, getting us involved in
and how do you feel about why
you got Trump is too dumb to get anything done for 4 years, so let's give him another 4 years. Okay, buddy.
If this is no point to you, firstly,
Trump should pardon Assange and Snowden.
Yeah, why he hasn't made any effort to do that at all.
I know, and he should.
And Trump has also been constantly battling the media as well, saying he's going to open up libel lawsuits, he's going to start threatening them with suing them if they publish mean things about them. He's right.
No. He's right that we need to overturn Times v. Sullivan. Completely think we have to. You know what Times v. Sullivan is?
I know very well. It's very important to what I do as a content creator. It established the malice standard, I believe, or the actual malice for defamation. It is one of the most important protections of a public figure in the United States.
It allows the media to say whatever they want about you.
It prevents a chilling effect from being created on the media where they can't publish an article about somebody because if something comes out and it turns out that that's incorrect, then they could be sued for it.
No.
Yes.
It's Times v. Sullivan, it was the actual malice standard, meaning you had to know.
You have to knowingly publish false information about somebody. The reason why that standard is so important is because right now, let's say that it comes out that, let's say that somebody's doing an investigation on it, and it turns out they think that I've killed like 3 or 4 people, they've got a decent amount of evidence, blah, 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 blah. Let's say that they publish that, and it turns out that
Well, he kind of made that point, TMG. He kind of made that point where he went on how Trump continued all the legacy wars and everything. He brought up how Trump increased more bombings, how he did more tension. It was more like disparate instead of like a centralized point that everything Obama was doing that Trump made worse. But he brought up all the similar points in there. It was just like more disparate and dispersed because Tim Pool has literally no idea how to hold a coherent conversation. So he kind of just had to throw things out like in different places.
Ordered somebody else to do it, or it wasn't exactly like that. Well, now I can sue them for defamation. But what happens then to media organizations then? Well, now I never want to report on a public figure because if I'm wrong, I'm going to get sued for it.
I'll half agree with you then. I'll say we need reform. We certainly do.
What reform?
So right now you have, look at Covington, right? The arguments for why Nicholas Sandmann, they were allowed to defame him and be wrong was because he was an involuntary public figure, which gave them the Times v. Sullivan standard. They settled. In fact, a lot of the cases, the right will tell you, a celebration, these $250 million lawsuits were settled. They won. They won probably, some people said, nuisance fee, maybe a little bit more, meaning it was cheaper to just pay them out and not deal with it.
Sure.
But a lot of the challenges that were brought forward were dismissed because involuntary public figure. We need a better standard than this. Look, I think you're right. I think I should walk back what I said because I probably was wrong in that initial statement because the assumption is in good faith. If I read a news article from Defense One that says Jim Jeffrey did X and I then report that, that shouldn't be, I shouldn't be able to be sued for that if it turns out Defense One was incorrect.
Sure.
But that's not what we're seeing now. What we're seeing now is like the Today Show published outright lies about me and masked it with framing device language. And what am I supposed to do to go up against NBC Universal when they put my face on the Today Show and claimed I was pushing conspiracy theories, which was just total BS. I can't do anything about it.
Sure. I don't know specifically which
Wait, what?
And claimed I was pushing conspiracy theories, which was just total BS.
Wait. Tim Pool does get on his show and push conspiracy theories. That's what he does. That's actually unironically what he does on his show. And I'm not even sure if that's even for defamation. You know, wait. I'm not even sure if that would hold up in court. Like, this guy pushes conspiracy theories and then you're going to go to court over that? That sounds like a slap suit, dog. Okay.
I can't do anything about it.
Sure. I don't know specifically which conspiracy theories that they claimed.
They claimed that because I reported on the Fox Business article about Seth Rich, I was pushing a conspiracy theory that Seth Rich leaked documents to WikiLeaks, which then got picked up by other outlets who claimed I was claiming that Seth Rich was murdered because he leaked. So they just all start lying and
I don't know any information about this incident in particular, but hearing Tim Pool's framing of the event, Tim Pool very, very rarely is on the right side of issues. So for him to say like, oh, he just reported something without saying anything wrong, and then randomly out of nowhere, all these news organizations said I was pushing a conspiracy theory. I don't know how this happened. That is very hard for me to believe. So, you know. What are we doing right now? We're going over Destiny v. Pool.
this game of telephone. I can't do anything to stop.
Sure.
50,000 websites all writing garbage. It's impossible.
That is frustrating. I can acknowledge that as somebody that's also been maligned publicly from, we were talking a little bit before the show, for a bunch of insane stuff that people say about me. It does suck, but it's one of those things. I don't think I want to get into Citizens United. It's one of those rulings.
Not a fan of that either.
Sure. It's one of those rulings that's rough, but the other side of it, I think, looks worse.
Can we have some kind of reform?
I don't know. It's hard because the problem is that, so the reason why that actual malice standard exists is to avoid what's called a chilling effect.
Right.
And the idea is that like people are going to stop publishing things about powerful public figures if they feel like they can just get sued for publishing something that they don't like to read right now. Right. So if I want to sue you for defamation, I need to be able to prove like that you knowingly publish, which is almost an impossible standard to me.
Which is the problem.
Yeah, but the problem is that so the flip
I got a
side of that
solution
law,
for you.
Oh yeah, okay, go ahead.
You should be able to sue, and if you can prove that what they published was false, they must issue a retraction.
You can do that, but
doesn't exist right now.
I'll take a hot take here that I'm sure the majority of your audience disagree on. Most media outlets will retract stories that are completely and totally patently false.
It's not true.
I could be wrong, but I feel like if you would actually email anybody that published a certain story,
I work for these companies.
Sure,
I've been in the Slack chats with these conversations. You know what they say? Just wait for it to go away. I was in a meeting.
Were you in Slack chats for what, Breitbart and the Daily Caller, or because
ABC News,
ABC and CNN? These guys publish
ABC
updates.
News. That's why you know I worked for ABC News and Univision, correct?
Sure.
And I was in the Slack chats where they said, "Wait for it to go away. Don't talk about it. We don't want to get called out for what we do."
Do you guys believe that? The way Tim Pool's framing it, I very highly disagree that this is true. ABC, the Washington Post, New York Times, they issue retractions all the time for little things that you probably don't even know about. He was in the Slacks. You don't know, my man. He was in the Slacks. He knew exactly what was going on. They do corrections a lot. They always do corrections. No? Yeah, I don't believe that either. I remember this. This reminds me of when Tim Pool was like, I was working for Disney. When he was talking to Vaush, and he was like, I was working for Disney, okay? And I was like, racism, bad. But then and I was going to talk about how racism's bad and all. And I was going to walk in, but then they stopped me. The dude put a hand on my shoulder. He said, no, let them do racism because they think racism good. And I was like, damn, man, this is the place I work for. Like, like all of Tim Pool's stories from when he worked in journalism just sound like shit from r/that really happened. Like, and then a young black teen stood up and said, this N-word eating beans. And everybody laughed. All of them read like that. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just racist or something. But this really doesn't feel like anything anything truthful's here. But you know what? That's his own lived experience. Who am I to say?
I guess it's just interesting to me because on any story that I read that's like more than a week old, you'll usually always see that they are updating articles or they are clarifying information.
Do you know that stealth edits are so frequent that an MIT project was born called News Diffs to track how often news articles from every major publication surreptitiously change the content of their articles?
What is this supposed to?
When news, if the New York Times issues a statement, right, and they say Betsy Kitty is a white cat,
okay,
and then it turns out she's actually both white and black,
okay,
they would say, correction, update, editor's note, a previous version of this article said X.
Sure.
They don't do that 99% of the time. It's called stealth editing, and a website was created called News Diffs to show you everything they've done. And there are some seriously messed up things you can track, where news outlets publish overt lies, the story goes viral, and then a day later, completely change the article, destroying all the evidence that ever existed. Well, things can get archived now.
I would be very interested
in seeing. What the fuck? Wait, can we find this? News Dis? News Dis? News Disc? NASDAQ. Can someone find this? Can someone find this for me? We need that new emote. Hey, I'll talk to my emote creator, and then we'll put it together. Next stream, I guess, is gonna be we put together an emote stream. Okay.
Articles like that, I guess. I just can't think of anything offhand.
I can give you a specific example where Dave Weigel of the Washington Post published a completely fictitious story about Kim.com hacking Seth Rich's Gmail account to plant evidence that he was the leaker. And then when he got, I'll just put it this way, to be very careful of litigation, 6 months later, the entire story was changed to become hypothetical.
Does it write in the article that did they reflect it accurately in the text, saying that like we?
They never said they updated it.
They never said.
Nope.
Okay, I'll look into it after. I just don't.
And it's up on. It's something I've cited over and over again from News Diffs. Newsdiff.org. Let me see if I can.
News Disc? What is
I'd have
this?
to find this specific article, but this was a really, really big story I tracked for 2 years and actually got 2 retractions from Politico and the Daily Beast. I tracked them down, and I got two journalists at each of those outlets to retract their versions of that story because the Washington Post fabricated the whole thing. Happens all the time. There was an instance where, are you familiar with Blair White?
Yes.
Do you think Blair White is a white nationalist?
Probably not.
Just no.
Not overtly. She's pretty conservative.
Conservative is not
I
white
just haven't
nationalist.
followed her recently.
They're getting pretty close to each other. I'll tell you that much.
So I don't know 100%.
The Verge wrote a hit piece accusing Blair of being a whole bunch of things she isn't. And when she tweeted, I'd like a retraction, they doubled down and added a whole bunch of out-of-context BS. Like, you've been victim to a lot of the same stuff.
Sure.
So you get it. Yeah, these outlets have no intention of correcting if they don't have to.
Yeah, I guess when I'm thinking of like retractions or whatever, I'm thinking of like more like a reporting of a matter of fact. So the Kim.com thing is interesting. I don't know if I would ever push somebody for a retraction on like like you called me a white nationalist, because I imagine somebody could make that claim about me and I would say like, well, I don't think that's true, and they could probably publish like a paragraph of like, well, you said this or this or this or this, and it's like, okay, well, this is more a matter of interpretation, I guess, or argument, because some people might think you're a white nationalist if you ever do like a particular thing or say a particular thing. I guess I'm more interested in like matters of fact or statements of fact when it comes to like retractions, rather than like the author said that this person has this political ideology, which is like,
You really want me to fill this space with a emote? Give me we can leave it empty for a second. It's okay. It's okay. A facepalm emote sounds nice. It's kind of true. That may get a lot of mileage.
a very fluid whatever thing.
That's,
Not to say that
that's crazy.
right,
That's meaningless too.
What?
It's really the accusing someone of having an ideology.
Well, the problem is that a lot of this stuff becomes so vague. Like, so for instance, like people will call you a white nationalist if you have like Blue Lives Matter on your profile, which is
Wait.
ridiculous.
Here's my favorite. Boston Globe wrote that this one guy was a white nationalist. And when I reached out to him and said, whoa, I didn't realize this dude was a white nationalist. I was like, is there something he specifically said? Because this guy's only ever talked about like Trump and America and stuff. And he said, he's a nationalist, right? I was like, yeah. Is he a white guy? Right. Okay, so he's a white nationalist. And I was like, come on.
Sure, which is really dumb.
Yes. And that was Boston Globe.
I don't know. All of Trump's, my bad. All of Tim's story seems super dubious. Maybe I'm just super incredulous now from a lot of the things that Tim says, because I feel like I look up something after Tim says it and it's just factually incorrect. But I don't know, dude. To be like, it's a weird URL. It's disc.org.tr. What? Okay.
The problem with news is I think it's no longer being supported.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's from 2012. I worked.
Okay, so all of his information doesn't exist anymore. That's extremely convenient. Wow. Okay.
For Vice. I was a founding member of Vice News. I worked for Fusion, which was ABC News Univision. I worked out of the ABC building in New York. I was told in timeout. I was told by the president.
Timeout what?
The website timed out. It didn't.
Okay.
I'm trying to load the
no problem.
articles tree. I was told, in a matter of speaking, to lie on more than one occasion. That if there's a certain bit of news reporting that's true, but would be offensive to our audience, we don't report it. We side with the audience. That's what.
How long? I'm not sure how long. Tim talked to Vosh for like 3 hours.
I was told to do.
Can you give me like not a specific example, but like what's like a general example of that? What do you mean by that?
Let's say there's two guys in the street, Proud Boy and Antifa, and Antifa walks up and punches the Proud Boy in the face. If I reported that Antifa punched a Proud Boy in the face, it would be offensive to our audience. We don't report it. We have to side with the audience, which means when the Proud Boy got back up and punched Antifa back, that's what we report. Proud Boy attacks Antifa. We ignore the previous context. There was a video that went viral from one of these progressive news outlets where there was a woman at a Trump rally and she punched a Trump supporter in the face and then got pepper sprayed. They did this clever edit where you see the crowd and you see her yelling, and then there's a white flash, and then you see her getting pepper sprayed. They did a white flash to cover up the fact that she punched a guy in the face, and then was sprayed in self-defense, which was, I think pepper spray is much more measured than punching someone in the face.
Depending on, but yeah, sure.
Right. So these kinds of things happen all the time. It's basically why after I left Fusion, I tried quitting within a year when I was like, this is ridiculous. I don't want to work for this garbage. They wouldn't let me. I was under contract, and when I left, I actually went around to all of these big companies. I started working at Vice before they had the Vice News vertical, like the dedicated YouTube channel. Yeah. And I had to negotiate with them for like 6 months to actually do it. They didn't want to do on the ground field reporting live or anything like that.
Yeah, this is what a lot of people do. They feel like they have this like really big foundation of stuff when it's just anecdotes. I heard a thing, I saw a thing, I remember a thing about this person, they did that, and then that was really mean. Like, just like all of this stuff, and they have no possible clue. Hey, listen, anecdotal evidence. Maybe if you ask Lauren Southern, you put a bunch of anecdotes together, and that's data. Like, anecdote is the singular of data. For her maybe, but for us here on the smart side, big brain side, okay, massive brain. No, you can't just throw around a bunch of unprovable, unfalsifiable life experiences that you feel like you saw something that went against a certain point, when someone has like data and evidence and very like falsifiable things that have happened that they can pull up. This just makes no sense to me.
Eventually, they agreed because there were people like Rocco Castoro, who's working with me now, and some other people at Vice who were like, listen to this dude. He's doing amazing stuff with mobile live streaming. They agreed. They created this news outlet, and then all of these digital media companies wanted to hire me and were offering me ridiculous money. I ended up working for ABC. It was gold, and then golden handcuffs. At first, they said, we want to do real news. Then they said, no, we don't. We want to make money, basically. Sure. So we're going to become a progressive news outlet. Then all the reporting I did, which was conflict, crisis, and very middle of the road, gone. I tried quitting. They wouldn't let me. When I left, I basically had every company saying, come have a meeting with us. I got told by a couple of these companies, tell me what you want to do, and we will give you a budget. You can do it. And then I saw the people working there. I saw the things they were producing, and I said, what the happened to these people? And so I said no. I started making YouTube videos. That's it. Media is you see what happened with Barry Weiss in the New York Times?
No.
She was opinion editor, I think, and she quit, saying that it's basically become a woke fest where it's like, write what we want or else. They forced the resignation of one of the opinion editors because Tom Cotton wrote that op-ed saying send in the troops when it came to the riots.
Okay.
That's where news is going.
Hey, what's going on, Hausgar? Also, thank you so much for the follow, Left Bank, for joining the frenzy and being so incredibly pog. I appreciate you. Thanks for joining us tonight. How are you doing? The victimization is unreal. Is it 2014? Yeah, always a victim, constantly a victim. Gotta leave the stream. Y'all know if I can handle this. Thanks for the stream though. No problem. Synth Pop. Yeah, I know it is a lot. So no problem if you gotta go. Thanks for joining us and thanks for the follow. Thanks for just being around. All right, we'll be back live again tomorrow. So it's no worries.
They're gonna stealth edit. They're not gonna issue corrections, and they're ideologically driven. The gist of my story.
Do you think that this problem exists in alternative media, or do you think they're freer from that than mainstream media?
I think alternative media has similar but slightly different problems. The main problem, which does exist in independent channels that are corporations, is the editorial guidelines of you must report X. So at the New York Times, for instance.
Yeah, definitely. But when it comes to Destiny, I know Destiny would be able to completely pull up this the argument that it's always the right that's doing all the real damage. Antifa doesn't have a single death link to it. Like what? Not a single death link to like Antifa or like far left Antifa radical whatever. Not a single death link to it. But fascists do. The far right does. The Proud Boys do. We all remember Heather Heyer. All of this happens all the time on the right. Most of political violence comes from the right. We all know this. You gonna go to sleep now? No problem. Thanks for sticking around. I hope you have a good night. Okay. Should we watch more of this? Or should we move on? There's a lot.
They had a mandate. We're going to focus on Trump. When it was looking like the Trump term was coming to an end, they said we're going to shift now to. Oh no, I'm sorry, it was Russiagate.
Oh yeah, Kat. Make sure you tell your husband. I think he has nice hair today. He did a really good job on his hair, and I'm proud of him.
The New York Times had I'm forgetting the names of Dean Bearcat or whatever. He said we're going to focus on Russia. Once the Russiagate was coming to an end, he said, okay, now it's going to be Trump as racist. That's the main driving force, which means that if you had someone who had evidence to present that was contrary to that, they were being mandated at a top-down level not to report that stuff or not to focus on it at the very least. That's a problem. On YouTube, however, you exist and I exist. And there's echo chambers for sure because people like getting their confirmation bias. But imagine going to one website where you can hear you and me at the same time. Doesn't exist on Breitbart, doesn't exist on MSNBC. So independent social media, or I should say YouTube, is way better than the existing media infrastructure for sure.
I guess the problem that I have with a lot of alternative media, so this would include people like you or me, or Project Veritas, or any of these other types of like YouTube or online entities, is it feels like there is no accountability if you get something wrong. It feels like there is more, regardless of any of the problems that exist in mainstream media, of which I'm sure there are a plethora, it feels like at least there's some accountability where if somebody messes up and it's made public, somebody's going to get fired or something bad is going to happen as a result to it. It also feels like a lot of these companies have a much higher vested interest in not reporting something completely factually incorrectly, because if they do, they would get in massive trouble for it and it would hurt their reputation and the bottom line. Whereas it feels like in alternative media, it feels like the goal is to just report. You can get as much wrong as you want, but as long as you're serving like a particular ideological narrative, it feels like that ideological drive is much more prevalent in alternative media than it is in mainstream media, where at least there's some accountability to get.
I disagree. Right. When I worked for, not Vice at the time, but Vice definitely now, one of the things I started seeing, especially working at the ABC building and at the Univision building, I worked at both buildings at different periods, completely ideologically driven. They told us outright, our audience is young, progressive, and that's our goal. That's who we're targeting. So side with them. That's it. That's your mandate. So when I came to them and said, okay, well, I don't want to do that, they said, well, then you can't, work with us. Aside from the fact that they were super racist too, which, one of the reasons I don't like the critical race theory stuff or the critical theory stuff. But there was basically, if you're progressive, you're good. If you're not, we're not going to report it. So they basically, is the craziest thing. I worked for this major, massive media conglomerate, and I was producing content on my YouTube channel with their money. And they were like, just put our logo on it. Okay? Because they didn't want to run my stuff on their channels, even though my content got more views than anything they produced. And when they did produce stuff, and I told them, like, I can help you identify the content, refused to do it. Their president at VidCon, I think this was in 2017, maybe 2016.
I mean, all of this is just Tim Pool talking about all of his anecdotal experience about how he's better than ABC and in the New York Times or whatever. I don't think we need all of this.
Said we have brought on anti-Trump activists in 2017 at the highest level to help us produce our content. Completely ideologically driven, not fact-based. And when you say there's no accountability for people in independent media,
yeah, this dude has no clue. Asking Tim what critical race theory was, it's like when someone asked Sargon what a feminist is, and then he said a feminist is whoever disagrees with me. It's basically like that.
I pulled up a couple stories. I don't want to name these people. But there's two people from BuzzFeed in particular. One guy from BuzzFeed who was a plagiarist who got fired and now is trucking along just fine with all his fans. They don't care. Another guy who was caught spying.
Damn, it's just like you, Chief.
Went to the Financial Times. He got caught spying on Zoom meetings. And he got hired right away by another company. There's no accountability for these people. I have seen people...
I would be curious to hear how the second guy got rehired and there wasn't any type of public outrage for it. But anytime you can find an example of somebody doing something, stupid in a mainstream... Like, there are people that get fired over stuff. I know that it happened during the Russian reporter, for instance. I think CNN chopped two guys that got like a couple minor details wrong related to some election-related stuff in 2016, I think. But the idea that there is any accountability in alternative media, though, however bad it must be, or you claim it as in mainstream media, it seems like it's a million times worse in alternative media. Like, I can watch people just make blatantly untrue claims over and over and over again on any of these channels.
You can. I used to blog a lot for Minds, and you can write an article and then have it get massive traction because it's really popular for whatever reason. And then
CBT?
Once it has 100 million or a million views, you go and you edit the article and no one knows. And you can change
It's
the
called
title of the
self-editing.
article. You can put the images, change the images, change the entire body of text. No, there's no oversight.
Yes, stealth editing.
And that's
but
I
they
can
all
imagine
do it.
that gets abused.
So there was an instance at Fusion where...
Imagine thinking me, like some random dude who can start up a live stream just because he has a computer and internet access. It can be more reputable than massive news like not even news corporations, just any news outlet, any news outlet, like whatsoever. I mean, I think that's just like incredible. Who is the hippie? Why do you think he's cute?
The New York Times altered an article from a straightforward news piece about Ellen Pao. It was Ellen Pao resigns as CEO. In a statement, she said X, Y, and Z. That was it. It became the third and fifth high on two different subreddits. The third and fifth highest upvoted of all time on Reddit for any piece of content.
Deep
Number 3, number 5. The next day, the New York Times stealth edited the whole article, turning it into an op-ed about feminism in Silicon Valley, saying feminists 0, Silicon Valley bros 2, the end of feminism, whatever. And it was this like opinion analysis piece about how it was so unfortunate that she was forced to resign due to misogyny and stuff. Not at all what the original article was.
Yeah, I think both of the two other people in the room have put together maybe a single, maybe enough sentences for a single body paragraph for a 3.5 essay. They really have not said much.
That was a violation of Reddit's rules. And it was serious in terms of internet culture because it was one of the biggest pieces of content and one of the biggest websites in the world. When I went to the managing editor of Fusion and said, hey, guys, it was a Slack meeting,
listen,
the Slack chat.
I'm sorry. I have to skip forward a little bit. I don't need 25 minutes of Tim Pool talking about how he remembers some time that an article was stealth edited on Reddit 10 years ago. I'm sorry.
Alinsky, David Pakman, the Young Turks, along with conservatives. Have your opinions. We get things wrong. We all do. We're all biased. Criticize us 100%. But aside from the Young Turks, they're an organization, so I'll remove them from this. You don't have a boss telling you what opinions you should have or what you should report on.
Kind of, but sure.
You do?
Well, for better or for worse, we're all a little bit enslaved to the larger corporate culture, right? Depending on what we publish, we can get
to an extent, right?
But it's not the same as having like an editorial manager or having like a boss literally saying like we're writing these stories or whatever. For sure.
Right. Like here's the mission today. I want you to write about X, and then you might get someone saying, "Whoa, that's not true," but I don't want to lose my job, so I'll write it anyway.
Sure. Yeah, it's not to that level. Yeah.
Right. So there is something better in YouTube. The problem is we do have an editorial department, and it's the YouTube community guidelines and the YouTube, what do they call it? The review board or whatever these people do, and demonetization. So actually, this is something that happened to you. This is this is insane. I've defended Kyle Rittenhouse 1,000,001 times. I don't get demonetized for it. Like we make money on the show through ads talking about Kyle Rittenhouse. You got stripped from the Twitch partner program over it.
Sure.
You want to talk about that? Like exactly what happened with that?
Oh no! Oh no! Here we go. Okay. So TMG, maybe you're biased, but you don't. You feel like Destiny's being too charitable to Tim Pool, and he wasn't as charitable to Demon Mama. I think these two things are different. When you're on Tim Pool, this is such a massive platform. How many people are even watching right now? There are 34,000 people watching this right now, and how many other thousands on other people's streams as well. When you're on these sorts of platforms, you're going on to try and win some people over and expand your brand. It's not as good to just kind of like do this to Pool, especially when he has complete control over all of this. Now, if Destiny was streaming this himself or something, or he brought Tim Pool to his studio, I feel like he'd be pushing a lot more. But since Tim Pool basically has complete control over all of this, then it would work out better for you to get your sly hits in and be a little bit more charitable, but also not let him get away with everything, you know? Isn't Destiny all about his principles? I know, Chieftain.
Yeah, I made a really spicy comment relating to defending property from rioters, and people were very upset about that. So, yeah.
Long story short, Twitch stripped you of your income. That's your editorial guideline.
Yeah,
they basically
that's why I
fired
was
you.
saying earlier,
Right.
where when you're saying, yeah, well, we don't have bosses, like kind of, but it depends on whose toes you step on.
And so that's true too. Like, you know, the only reason I survive on YouTube is because my opinions are acceptable.
Sure.
And there are a lot of people who have unacceptable opinions who don't survive. So we have our bosses. You know, it's not like we're printing our own newsletters and then mailing them to people. That's safe. I guess having your own website is safe. So, you know,
Well, no, but
it's not.
I would say registrars can unhost you. Or
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, and that'll happen.
Have you experimented with decentralized or like mesh networks at all?
The problem is the more exotic you get with your distribution, the harder it is to get advertising dollars. So nobody on BitChute is making any money.
That's the challenge.
Yeah,
Yep.
we're torrenting their files.
I mean, people do actually, but it's through user donations, tips. and
Yeah,
stuff.
it's going to be a lot. Yeah.
You know, people make a lot of money through these crypto video networks, but that's to me is just
A lot of money too. Is there might be a few
Weird.
that are making a ton, but most of them probably not.
Library. Andreas was just going on
or
about
D Live and stuff.
D Live. They have a crypto. No, Library has like a crypto token. Mines has a crypto.
Yeah, D Live
token
has
they
this.
pass on.
D Live has their token, and then Steam it.
Honestly,
So,
crypto
I think D-Live
tokens
is Steam it.
and like direct
I
user
think maybe it's wrong.
subscriptions, I think, is the future. Bypassing advertisers on a mesh network.
Possibly.
I don't know. A lot of people are making a lot of money
The hippie finally got a topic where he can get his voice heard in.
doing like Patreon style stuff. But I'll tell you, there is an inherent problem in all of this. Is that
Did they get to the debate part yet? Yeah, the debate part was like most of this. The big debate part was when they were talking about a voter fraud. That's where most of it came from. Now they're just meandering right now.
people will choose to just watch me or just watch you. And a lot of people will say, I don't like Tim or I don't like Destiny. And then they're only going to get their opinions from one person instead of potentially an organization with an editorial department and different opinions in the op-ed section. So
Sure.
that's why I invite people on who I disagree with. And then I get punished for it. It's it really comes down to building an audience around people who appreciate hearing a different.
Hey, thank you so much for that. Bad C, thank you for joining the frenzy. You're incredibly pog. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Opinion or a disagreement. That's why like a lot of people get mad that I'll often let an opposing view try to just talk a lot. There's a few periods where I just sat back and you explain everything you felt, and it's like, that's your opinion. I can't tell you your opinions are wrong. It's your opinion. They're
Hey, Vibes, okay? Can I may want to commission you to give me like an SGG site, like DGG or VGG. I kind of want like a 3GG. Oh, 3GG. I kind of like that.
There are instances where I can bring on someone like Enrique Tario of the Proud Boys, and everyone will cheer me on for letting him talk. Then I'll bring on someone like Vosh, and people will get mad at me saying, don't let him speak.
Where's Sam Cedar? Sam has a kid and people he needs to take care of. Sam is also like middle-aged. Sam wanted to do a virtual call-in. Tim said no because Tim only wants to do in real person call-ins where he has the possibility to kill somebody with COVID.
But my goal is like, look, if people don't want to hear ideas they don't like, then I guess you can't come to this channel, because I want to continue bringing on people who have dissenting views from me or different opinions, because it's a problem that if people only watch just my one channel where it's just me talking, or they only watch any leftist channel, then we're polarizing.
I'm curious, what responsibility do you feel you have?
Yeah, he talked to Ben Shapiro afterwards, just to keep you in the loop.
Your audience to disseminate messages that you agree with. So let's say, for instance, your YouTube channel's got a lot of views, like over 50 million a month. Between at least. So
there's 3 channels.
Oh, I didn't even know about the third one. So
yeah, so there's Timcast and Timcast News. Timcast News at its peak got 55 or so million, and then Timcast got 20, and then Timcast IRL got like 26.
Gotcha.
The election's over. Views
Sure,
are going
so things
down.
are slowing down. Sure. So let's say that you have somebody that comes on, and I'm from what I know of you, you don't seem to be a white nationalist or anything like that. But let's say you bring
Quite the
somebody
opposite.
on, yeah. So let's say you bring somebody on, and that person has those types of views, and you platform that person, and you feel like they profit or they grow from the exposure that they get on your show. Do you feel like you have any responsibility in terms of like messaging or in terms of growing that person's platform, or what do you feel?
No, I mean I'm growing your platform to an extent.
Oh damn! What the fuck? Damn, Tim's oh man, he's Oh gosh, just brutal. Yeah. If you make a white nationalist more popular, do you think you have any responsibility? No. Yeah, and this is why these sorts of people are so dangerous. They'll I remember specifically when he was talking to Vosh, he was like, I had more disagreements with you than I had with the leader of a terrorist organization, the Proud Boys. And I was like, what the, huh? He thought that was like an impartiality dunk. He was like, the people who leads a group of people who literally goes around murdering and assaulting people. This guy who did like attack campaigns and threaten the lives and the livelihoods of journalists who report on them. This guy, I was less harmful to you than a dude who talks about horsecock and a proletariat revolution on his YouTube channel for a year. Oh, wow. Just like, wow. Yes, negative self-awareness.
There's probably a lot of people who are discovering you and thinking, I might disagree, but I'll hear what he has to say and stuff like that. I can't control that. More importantly, though, it's I don't bring on random nobodies. Like, I'm not going to find some just like neo-Nazi lurking in the corner and be like, come to my platform and build a career off this.
Sure.
Usually it's like Enrique Tarrio. He's I guess he just, I don't know what people call him. They call him Afro-Cuban or whatever. He's black. He's the chairman of the Proud Boys. He was in the news. I mean, Joe Biden mentioned the Proud Boys. I'm like, we should bring him in.
Just for reference on this, do you think that the Proud Boys is like a white nationalist leaning organization? No. Okay.
I think there are people who are white nationalists probably associated with the Proud Boys, but the Proud Boys have disavowed. Okay. And I think what Enrique said was if they find out someone is, they'll boot him. They'll boot him out. And recently the Proud Boys did a joint thing with Black Lives Matter. It's like, it was kind of surprising. They, I think it was in Salt Lake City. Black Lives Matter organizer came.
Oh my gosh. Agent Hassam, I mean, thank you so much for the follow, for joining the frenzy and being so incredibly pog. Thanks for joining us tonight. Listen, guys, they said they don't like it. Did you know, like right now, there's like a revolt. There's like an insurrection within the Proud Boys structure. To get that one guy out, like the Afro-Cuban dude, because they said they didn't want to be ruled by the N-words, and the Proud Boys is only for white people. Like, it is incredible. It was a big thing. They're still fighting about it, I'm pretty sure. John Raccoon 8, thank you so much for joining the frenzy and being so incredibly pog. I appreciate both of you. How you all doing tonight? Let me know.
Came out with Proud Boys and they issued a joint message of like what they agree upon, even though they really disagree on most things.
What does the Proud Boys stand for exactly?
The Proud Boys are Western chauvinists, so they believe West is best. That's like really the gist of it.
When you say West, what do you mean by that?
American values, traditional Christian conservative kind of issues, nationalism, but they're actually fairly classically liberal.
Okay.
You can look.
I haven't dug too much into the Proud Boy stuff, just generally because I just don't care that much. But a lot of times I hear people talk about like Western values. It usually is like a kind of a dog whistle for white issues or identitarian stuff. Oftentimes that'll be the case.
I think there's an overlap. White nationalists, of course, agree with a lot of those things, but the Proud Boys don't agree with the white nationalists. There were people who were white nationalists in the Proud Boys, and then the Proud Boys booted them out.
Yeah, Afro-Cuban. Yes, they found the darkest skinned Cuban that they could find, which is like caramel, and he made it there. So a good one, Chief.
I think the Proud Boys are worthy of a ton of criticism. I've criticized them quite a bit. We had Enrique on. We talked about it. A lot of people were like, they said I was harder on him and Alex Jones than I was on Vosh. And I'm like,
you said that. He said that. He said those words. Look at his face. He's like, I can't believe people would say that about me. He said that in the debate.
Vosh and I were like yelling, like raising our voices at each other. I don't know.
For like 4 hours.
Yeah, and it was like 4 hours, you know. So, but if somebody is relevant in some capacity, we bring them on. A lot of people want me to bring.
Oh wait, was he saying the other way? Wait, my bad. Did I hear that wrong?
Vosh and I were like yelling, like them out. I think the Proud Boys are worthy of a ton of criticism. I've criticized them quite a bit. We had Enrique on. We talked about it. A lot of people were like, they said I was harder on him and Alex Jones than I was on Vosh, and I'm like,
oh. Wait, no, he backed the same statement. He's like, I wasn't harder on a guy who literally Alex Jones, the guy who fueled hatred towards people who had their children killed in the school shooting so much they had to move 3 times, and the dude a part of a terrorist organization. I was harder on I was harder on Vosh, a YouTuber who talks about socialism than I was for those two guys, and he thinks this is proud. He wears that as a badge of honor.
Like, Vosh and I were like yelling, like raising our voices at each other. I don't know.
For like 4 hours.
Yeah, he pushed them. Yeah, he pushed them on a lot. Basically everything. he pushed him on. I mean, what we've been looking at right now, there isn't much for Destiny to push him on because he's been going on a soliloquy for like 30 minutes about his personal experience, about how news organizations have been shadow banning without pulling up a single piece of information about it. There's nothing for him to push him on. It's like, I remember I saw a thing, and then Destiny would be like, no, I don't believe you, and that's it. There's nothing for him to push him on.
Yeah, and it was like 4 hours, you know. So, but if somebody is relevant in some capacity, we bring them on. A lot of people want me to bring on some America First type individuals, and I'm like, I will, but like, I'm not banning people from my show. It's just got to be relevant. I don't want to just randomly grab somebody and be like, here you go. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I would actually say you're not controversial. Of course, I would. Like, there's no grand. There's articles about you getting banned. There are people on the left saying, "How dare you defend this guy?" You know, Twitch kind of punish you and stuff. Sure, there's a faction of people who are like, "This guy's controversial," but for the most part, I think you're just like, you know, another internet personality. I don't think either of us are particularly controversial. We're just internet people with opinions who do our shows.
Tim Pool doesn't think he's controversial. Okay, pain is good. Yeah, pain is what fuels this show. Honestly,
Enrique Tarrio is controversial. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. He is. He's the chairman of the Proud Boys. They're brought up in a presidential debate.
Sure.
People have strong opinions about him. You know. So yeah, man.
I get to talk about DMT a lot. I'll talk about as crazy as stuff as I can, but if it gets like too like YouTube centurious crazy, Tim will be like, let me drop the hammer on this.
No, what are you talking about?
It's a good vibe. If I talk about the Federal Reserve, if I want to go into 9/11,
No.
or like
I'm not.
crazy
I
stuff.
have no concern about YouTube coming after you. I disagree.
Oh, it's
with
personal.
You.
Oh.
Yeah, it's personal.
Okay, let's go.
Ian, sorry.
Well, so it's like, I'll give you an example. We had when Black Lives Matter were when the rioters were out, you said it was the Federal Reserve, and I'm like, these people are not. We were talking about riots and why they were angry, and you said
class issue.
You said it was the Federal Reserve, and I was like,
keeping us down.
they're not rioting over the Federal Reserve. They don't even know how
Well,
that works or what it is.
We talked about it a little bit. It's more of a class. I think we were talking about that earlier tonight too. It's really a class
Well, you
issue
disagree on
masked
that,
as a race issue. But then the class issue is derived from ancient racism.
Combination of factors. Long story short. Is there anything else we should hit on, or we should go to super chats? We're about half an hour over.
Yeah.
No big deal for me. We got a ridiculous amount of super chats.
Oh boy. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, come on.
super chat
Wait,
time.
actually, hold on. I'm
Super
curious.
chat time.
You asked me why I supported Biden.
Yeah.
What are some positives, I guess, going forward for why you would support Trump? I know some of the elections are over, but like if you had voted for him for 2020, why would you support him over a Biden presidency?
Critical race theory ban, specifically targeting. It wasn't overtly critical race theory. It was specific trainings having to do with segregation based on race,
Yunshin, please stop.
which was a violation of Title VII in
Sure.
1964.
Besides critical race theory, yeah, what else?
So Trump's repeated attempts to withdraw troops from Afghanistan, which he's continued to do even after losing the election. And look, I said earlier this year I wouldn't vote for the guy. I didn't care. I didn't vote for him in 2016. I said earlier this year that what would get me to vote for him is if he issued an executive order decriminalizing, or at the very least ordering the DA not to prosecute marijuana-related offenses.
Okay.
Pardoning.
I mean, if you were in this room, possibly huffing COVID with Tim Pool as he talks about all of his personal experiences that debunk the facts that you gave him, then I feel like you'd be feeling pretty drained after talking to him too. That's just me, though.
Nonviolent drug offenders with a review because some people pled down and they pleaded down. And appointing Tulsi as national security advisor, Yang as economic advisor, withdrawing from Afghanistan. He's my guy. That's a pretty tall order.
Sure. None of these things happen to be fair, but
Like fair in the sense like they would ever happen, or
well, like none of these things he didn't do any of these.
of
things.
course. Like it was like the wish list of like I'm not gonna vote for. I think the media lies about him. I don't think he's nearly as bad as like you ever see that segment where MSNBC the woman said that he's talking about exterminating Latinos. Like that's the level of like lunacy.
No,
the
I
Russiagate
don't.
stuff was so infuriating. The Ukraine gate stuff was infuriating. So often I find myself as in one of these positions where for a long time it was like stop making me defend the guy because I was like ragging on him quite a bit in the first few years about foreign policy for sure.
For broader policy things related to, say, because you said you were a fan of universal health care, I think you brought that up. I think you think that climate change is probably real.
Climate change is a big problem.
Right, yeah.
Definitely.
So for like broader things like this, or for more assistance, I don't know how you feel about like general redistribution of welfare, like maybe like free school or something. Not a fan of college. Not a fan of free college.
Mostly because
Hey Sam, you may not like this, but I'm sorry about this, Sam, but people who follow your political ideology are usually the bad guys in superhero movies. Yeah, that was really fun to watch Sam debate him.
the system as it stands today doesn't work. So I would say I am in favor of it's a difficult position. I'm in favor of universal healthcare in some capacity. I'm not in favor of banning private healthcare.
Sure.
It's like a restriction.
That's right. Line up with Biden perfectly there. Yeah.
Yeah. I am for people getting universal education after we dismantle and reform and rebuild the education system.
Sure. Okay.
Because it's completely broken.
Sure.
I think a progressive tax system is a good thing. I think we need to make sure that we do what we can to protect the working class individuals from the vulturous predatory elites and the wealthy top 1% billionaires and all that stuff.
It feels like, broadly speaking, it feels like you align more with like the Democratic foundation or platform than you do with the Republican one.
What it used to be.
You don't think that any or do you just think that Biden is lying on all of his proposals?
Absolutely. I voted for Barack Obama in 2008 with a smile on my face. I was so excited.
Okay.
George W. Bush, all the protests, I was marching in them, watching these music videos, and everyone saying, war is bad, Bush is Hitler, and all this stuff. And they were like, Barack Obama, he's going to make sure we have healthcare, he's going to help the poor, he's going to fix these problems, he's going to bring our troops back, man. You got to vote for him. And I was so excited. And I walked in and I was like, this is so cool. These people, like, we found a cause. I can't believe it. Barack Obama broke through. It was going to be Hillary Clinton. And then this guy comes out of nowhere. He's like a regular guy from Chicago.
Do you
I was from
think
Chicago.
do you think that we did get some like universally amazing things under Obama? So, for instance, the ACA definitely wasn't perfect, but
Oh,
it was
that was
definitely
bad. It screwed me really, really bad. All of a sudden,
What the fuck? How does this guy get screwed over by the Affordable Health Care Act? I'm genuinely curious. I don't care. Yeah, that was some Chad shit right there. I don't care. Okay, listen, while I have you guys here, let me pitch an idea to you and you can tell me how it is. Just 1 second. I was thinking about a series, and it's called Dumb or Disingenuous, where me and someone else do like a court style thing, or like someone else, like two people do a court style thing where they bring up information about one of these chuds, like Tim Pool or Dave Rubin or like Lauren Southern or someone else, and one person's arguing if the person is dumb, and the other person argues if the person is just a grifter and lying about stuff and disingenuous, and then chat gets to vote on which one's which by the end of it. Let me know what you think.
I was having questions with like the individual mandate.
So regardless of your personal, I guess, effect by it, do you think that overall, do you think that the ACA was a step in the right direction, or do you think it was a mistake? Knowing that it was like 13 million more Americans.
It's nuanced, right? Like the pre-existing condition stuff.
Yes.
Excellent, must exist. And I'm glad that we're at a point now where even Trump is saying and bringing executive orders out.
Forcing companies to pay out instead of trying to drop people because they make a claim and stuff like that.
Yeah. I can't stand these insurance companies. I think we need dramatic reform across the board on so much stuff.
It feels like from the Democratic platform, based on what Obama did with the ACA and was trying to do with the ACA, it feels like that's more a step in the right direction than Republicans that are just completely trying to dismantle all form of government intervention in healthcare.
But for me, like most people, we have opinions where we weigh certain things more than we weigh others.
Sure.
So
that's healthcare. What about like
not for me? Healthcare wasn't one of those issues. I was
I
young, strapping, virile lad. It didn't really mean that much to me.
Sure.
But when they said I had to pay a fine because I couldn't afford healthcare, then I made enough money to where I should have bought healthcare, but I couldn't.
Sure.
I ended up homeless. I have I'll be vague with this, but someone who was very close to me in my life has been forced to pay the fee and was like essentially destitute because it was like piling on the taxes. I think they just ended up owing money.
Gotcha. That's interesting. I don't know obviously their exact financial position, but there were huge exemptions made for people that were even above the poverty line. It would scale off, I think, depending on how much they made. But it's possible that
living in a city, making a certain amount of money, not being able
I do have a Discord. You can do !Discord and you can join the Discord. I'd love to bring people on like Sansol. We talk to him a lot. Other streamers, I'd probably be able to get Dylan Burns on. If I may even be able to get Riley Grace Rashong. She seems really cool. If I can like reach out to her, maybe we could do it if it becomes like something that's popular with people. So yeah.
To afford your rent and food at the same time.
Because you'd be under federal poverty, or not under federal poverty, but for a city you might be.
And so what happened was their tax bill that they have a debt to the IRS but Trump got rid of it. I don't know what happened, but that was like.
So for generally speaking on things like healthcare, it seems like we kind of align more on the Democratic platform than the Republican one.
What are the Republicans doing?
Trying to take it all apart.
They're failing. Miserably.
Well, they got rid of the mandate, which means that it's going to continue to collapse probably.
You know, I tried to go to the doctor earlier this year and I couldn't because of the ACA.
How?
And I was literally told the insurance you have bars you from coming to our facility. And I said, it's fine, I'll pay cash. And they said, no, you don't understand. You can't come here.
Wait, what? What? Has that happened to people? They're like, your insurance plan taints you from ever stepping foot into this building. Like Tim Pool's like, I went, hey guys, can you check out this like weird mole on my ass? And he tries to like walk into the building, but then a force field goes up and there like a massive force field just like it comes out of nowhere over the entire hospital. And they're like, you shall not pass through this barrier, fiend. Like what? No, just the insurance isn't transferable. What in the world? What's happening? Just the doctor won't see you if you just pay with money. It's what? I don't think this is true. This feels incredibly untrue. I've never heard of this in my entire life. He got lost when he went to a maternity clinic. Yeah, he went into a maternity clinic and they were like, we won't serve you. We cannot help you, dude. And he's like, bro, I'll pay in cash. Just check my ovaries real quick. And they're like, you have none. I don't know. It's just really weird. I need surgery for this third nipple on my head. They tried to go in, but the nipple fought back. It broke all the scalpels. It just like judo chopped it. And they're like, get out of here, you fiend. You had to put the beanie back on. What about denims? I've never spoken to denims, and I only learned about denims a couple of days ago, but they seem cool. I would love to do that with denims if denims would be open to it.
Wait, what? How?
No joke. I have no
So
idea.
weird.
I don't have insurance. I've never had problems getting to any hospital ever.
You
in my
don't have
life.
insurance.
I don't have insurance.
Because I do have insurance, they said under the ACA, because you have insurance, you are not allowed to come to this facility even if you pay cash. I called
What?
like 3 different, just like general physician facilities or whatever, and they all told me the same thing. Sorry, figure out where it is. So I went to urgent care, and I was able to pay cash.
That's interesting.
Not a fan of that.
Yeah,
but,
that sounds bad.
the-
But like even I guess because unfortunately I can't speak to your personal stories. You may have had like bad personal experiences with anything related to the healthcare system. But I mean, like it did insure like over 10 million more people.
But the problem is, what the ACA was basically, it was like this ridiculous fake compromise where instead of actually creating a system that would, I think there was good intentions behind it. The idea was like, how do we get to a universal healthcare standpoint?
or at least a public option.
Right. And so it was, okay, well, what if we make everyone buy insurance and then they pay a fee if they don't? And all that did was make sure the massive insurance companies who still don't care about you were able to keep ripping you off.
Well, kind of. So there were provisions under the ACA that made it, for instance, that like your the total amount of money that you take in, like a certain percent has to be paid out in the form of claims. You can't have like 50% of your costs
Yeah.
going to administrative costs. Like there were a lot of good things that were made to bring those companies into line. I guess I'm just when I look at like the ACA in a lot of ways sucked. But in some ways, the ACA was amazing. Like again, it insured a lot more people. But costs continue to rise in healthcare. For some people that were on the border of not qualifying for those like poverty line provisions and not making that much, like the working poor, you got absolutely destroyed by the ACA and the mandate for sure. So it definitely should have went farther. But it feels like when I look at the difference between like a Republican having office for 4 years or a Democrat, it feels like going farther is so much more likely under a Democratic administration than a Republican one.
In the end, I'd rather have nothing than broken, I guess. So I'd rather be in a situation where I'm responsible for myself than whatever mangled garbage we ended up.
How do you say that to somebody that has?
No, this sounds horrible. What in the world? What in the world? How do you say this to like a bunch of poor people who have no possible way to pay for healthcare? You're like, well, I'd rather everybody else just be fed to the wolves than me have to call 3 places to pay cash. You know, what in the world? Yeah, Obama decided to talk to Republicans and he still got cucked. That's what happens when you talk to Republicans. Don't do it.
Has like a type 1 diabetic, someone who through no fault of their own has like it's either they have a pre-existing condition if they don't have some sort of like.
I'm not voting for other people.
Okay.
I mean, but it's the reality. I don't know. Like you mentioned, my anecdotes. You can't speak to them. I can't speak to other people. And I don't know. I don't have those experiences.
When you go
healthcare is
to-
not the biggest issue for me. And it wasn't something I ever really paid attention to. It didn't affect me.
Okay, sure. I'm just curious. I guess
Foreign
So, like,
policy, on the other hand, was I come from a family of many military veterans. I've had in-laws and direct family.
Wow, my man's just like, I just don't care. He's like, well, what about people who have diabetes and they'll die if they don't get their insulin, and insulin's like $10,000 a drop. And he's like, well, so he's just like sucks to suck. Yeah, just like a bad person.
The military, and so foreign policy always mattered to me. Even before that, my dad is a former Marine.
it's
My grandpa
pivot
was
time.
he was in World War II. Foreign policy mattered a whole lot. I grew up in Chicago, hated the wars, hated the waste of money, thought that we were spending money overseas doing nation building, and this is like I'm a teenager now, Iraq and Afghanistan's in full swing. Obama comes along. It was a lie. It was a complete lie. So for me, the issues were always around, like foreign policy was a big issue. Most people don't care. They don't care at all. But I was concerned about war, conflict, and that played into, I started covering conflict, crisis, civil unrest. I went to a bunch of foreign countries. That's always been in front of my mind. So Barack Obama, I don't care if he got you healthcare. You know why? Because he blew up kids. He blew up an American citizen. I believe it was 4. He was arresting whistleblowers.
When it comes to foreign policy, do you give Obama any credit for things like thawing relations with Cuba or like the Iranian nuclear deal, like steps towards normalizing relationships with like Iran? Do you think that any of that was important?
I would say to the extent that I know of them, yeah, probably. I think the what he ended up doing with Iran wasn't.
Oh my gosh, Tim Pool's just insane. Just stop being poor, Omega. Just start a YouTube channel, Omega. Lol. Tim Tool's just like a bad person.
Positive. I think
Why
it
not?
was an attempt because it didn't result in. We still have nothing changed.
Well,
even
nothing changed because now we've rolled back the deal. Of
but
course,
before Trump, we still had. Intense conflict, sanctions. It wasn't moving.
Well,
I'll
but
tell you
we
this.
were in the process of easing sanctions, right? Like people talk about the boatloads of cash, right? We unfroze a lot of the assets that we were holding, and I think we were taking steps towards, like, depending on how many years have gone by, like, easing a lot of the sanctions.
There was a lot going on in that direction with Obama pertaining to Iran, and it was conflict. Qatar-Turkey pipeline, which you brought up earlier on. There was a report. I don't know if it's actually went public. Maybe I'm going to leak some information that I probably shouldn't because the story was never published. But Iran was smuggling in gold through Turkish Airlines.
Yeah, no, never, ever take a corporation's word for it when it comes to these sorts of pricing. They only do this just to make more money. These things, they could be way less expensive. They just choose not to. Never ever forget the reason, because people don't bring it up. The reason that Flint, Michigan is having problems is all because of corporate greed. It was because of Nesquik. They poisoned them and then just like moonwalked right the fuck out.
There was a whole bunch of workarounds
sure.
that were being granted to them.
That's not necessarily surprising, but I mean, like, that's also just kind of the nature of the Middle East.
Barack
Like,
Obama-
for instance, we have our ally Turkey. That was like the reason why ISIS was making so much money is because they were just driving those trucks north right into Turkey and just selling the oil and driving on back. So, and then also, you know, we talk about like Yemen, like it would be nice. It's like, okay, well, we're done here, and then all of the Gulf states will look at us like, excuse me, what do you mean you're done here? Like, hello, you're most important. Like, we're a cluster of allies in the Middle East. Not to excuse Obama, but just to, like, it sucks to all of the Middle East, and even to some extent, and I would even say publicly, like, I'm not going to blame Trump for what's going on in the Middle East either. I will be critical of some of his actions, whether it's abandoning the Turks, talking about running Syrian oil fields, or any of that kind of stuff. Or, yeah, not the abandoning the Kurds to the Turks. That like that stuff is bad. But I guess for me, like the reason I bring up healthcare foreign policy is because my two favorite accomplishments under Obama was I think that the ACA was historic. What we ended up getting, the compromise kind of sucked, like undoubtedly, but it was historic in terms of moving that direction and finally joining the rest of the OECD countries with having some sort of public health care. And then working to normalize relationships with Iran was unbelievable. If that would have been something that would have continued into the future, like thawing relations in that part of the world and getting the Gulf states to just calm down with the conflict, like
I'm not convinced Obama was doing that. And I think in the past few months, Trump has these historic peace agreements between Arabic nations and Israel, and it's massive. It is.
Wait, what the fuck? I'm done. Wait, what? Did you guys hear the way he just pronounced Israel? Wait, how did he? Wait.
You know, the past few months, Trump has these historic peace agreements between Arabic nations and Israel.
What? Who says Israel like that? What? Israel? What?
Past few months, Trump has these historic peace agreements between Arabic nations and Israel.
Jeez. Oh my goodness. I've never. That is massive papega, dude. Temple said Israel is real. I've never in my life heard someone say Israel that way unironically. Israel, dog. Well, yeah, what's up,
And
dog?
it's massive. It is.
I
You know
would say
what really kind of offended me, and it's very like I don't take offense to many things, but it was when Trump crossed the DMZ into North Korea. To me, that was like I was welling up. I was just like, wow, because
but all that was horrible. What do you
that was
mean?
amazing. It was one of the
It's
most beautiful things.
worst things that's ever happened.
I'm Korean.
I don't know how that made you even more.
What the fuck? What does that mean? You're not North Korean, weirdo. What the heck? What?
upset about it
because Donald Trump with no security crossed into North Korea in a tremendous sign of good faith, giving me hope that there was actually trust enough where the president theoretically or straight up risked his life. They could have just that the North Korean soldiers grab South Korean soldiers and pull them into North Korea.
You think that they're going to treat the president of the United States like a random no-name South Korean soldier? What? He thinks what? What? He's like Donald Trump. He risks so much. He risked his life. Kim Jong-un would have picked him up from the maybe he thinks Tim Pool's just fucking racist and he thinks that that Kim Jong-un is like a Mr. Negative from like Spider-Man or something, that he was going to just touch Donald Trump and then activate his negative qualities and turn him into a ghoul and then walk him into North Korea to be his mayonnaise eating North Korean bitch or something. He thinks that they were just going to kidnap the president. That they were going to kidnap. He thinks he's Bruce Lee. He thinks he was going to kidnap the president. Wow. He risked his life. He could have gotten kidnapped. Oh man, have you seen what they do to people trying to escape North Korea? Man, that could have been him.
Freely walked into the country with no security, shook hands, smiled, and walked back, and that was huge to me.
That's
No security. You don't think that the Secret Service staked that place out for like days before Trump got there? You think Trump just arrived there? He just what? He just got there. He drove himself there. He flew there on the Trump plane or something and landed. No security. Just randomly met Kim Jong-un and shook his hand and stepped over. Oh my gosh. Wow, so he's my hero, so brave.
great, but at the end of the day, all we did was we had a few friendly conversations with Kim. They continued working on their nuclear program. We made some concessions to them. Nothing happened. Like it set back like working that part of the world.
I disagree.
Okay, well, I mean, Japan and South Korea disagree.
I mean, for a variety of reasons. But South Korea, my understanding, has been working towards an agreement with North Korea that's been improving for quite some time.
They have been, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Dude, unironically, Trump is the god emperor in Warhammer. That like they would these conservatives would unironically sacrifice children and use their blood for fuel to give Trump one more day on this planet Earth if they could. They would do it. Like the dude who called into Rush Limbaugh and cried and said that he would die for Trump. Like, these people are wild. And then they'll tell you it's not a cult.
I thought it was incredible to see the President of the United States make that move.
I guess it was just sad that, like, for a guy that talked about making deals so much, and for an Iranian deal that we had gotten concessions out of, that he completely dismantled, we went and we talked to North Korea and we got zero concessions out of them, and they expanded all of their training programs and everything.
Yeah, they did bad in a lot of ways, and they played Trump, but I think that was tremendous. I think it's the kind of thing that needs to happen.
Wow, literally nothing happened. They played him. He looked like a fool. They got more off of it, but it was amazing, and this needs to happen more. Dumb, brain dead, brain do not exist anymore.
Whether or not it would have ultimately resulted in restoration, peace in the peninsula or whatever, it's hard to say, but I thought it was a step in the right direction.
So,
I mean, listen, man, the president of the United States walking into North Korea with no security is a big deal.
I'm starting. Yeah, I just think he really thinks that North Korea was about to abduct the president of the United States, like nothing was going to happen. That's incredible to me. I don't even think North Korea is that stupid. They're not that dumb. This is wild. I'm starting to think that Tim Pool's what he keeps under that hat is a separate pocket dimension of stupidity, and that's where he gets all of this from. He's like an alien from Men in Black. Under the hat is just like a tiny rat-looking green alien pulling levers and pressing buttons, and that's everything that's like, hello, how do you do, my fellow humans? Just like like plankton in robot in like robot crabs, just like one foot in front of the other, just really trying his hardest to blend in with other humans. And he decided that he got a really good gig by doing this online. It's just incredible to me that someone can actually believe this.
I guess I don't really care, but
there's
it didn't really accomplish much. I guess maybe symbolically it was nice, but I guess aside from foreign policy and healthcare, so you don't care much about healthcare. Foreign policy is.
I care about healthcare. Let me clarify.
Yeah, go.
I think.
When I say you don't care about healthcare, I mean it's not like a key voting issue for you. It's not gonna make or break your vote.
I think we should have universal basic level care. If you get sick, you can rush to the hospital, give you Tamiflu what you need. You break your hand, you go to the doctor, they can set your broken hand. If you get more serious, rare genetic disorders that are very difficult, require more resources, that's where there's private insurance is going to kick in to a certain degree. I think we can provide that, but it's going to be so limited and difficult to get. I think we need some sort of, not necessarily, I wouldn't even call it a public option. It's a hybrid system of, there are a lot of people who, kids, you see the story, they get the flu, they die, or diabetics, they can't get insulin. That's the kind of stuff that should be easily taken care of.
Yeah, for sure.
But when someone's got like a rare genetic disorder.
Yeah, I don't think anybody is.
They are. I've had the arguments.
Sure, there might be. For Biden, for the administration that is coming in, the public option is the most, which is a multi-payer system. So you still have all your private healthcare if you want through your work or union or whatever, and then we have a public option hopefully for people that can't afford it.
The problem is getting there.
What do you mean? Like legislatively or like administratively?
Everything.
Yeah, he said this like before. He's like, I only care about healthcare when it affects me, and that basically sums up a lot of these people's mindset. It doesn't matter unless unless you can tie it back to how it helps them. It's like the joke where people are like, hey, would you like to donate $1 to the St. Jude's Foundation? And then they're like, what the fuck them kids do for me? Fuck them kids. Unironically, this is what a lot of people on the right believe. They're on it. They're just like, fuck them kids. They just don't care. Like, what has a kid with fucking leukemia ever done for me? What? Nothing? Oh man, I'm gonna give it right back to them. That they just don't care.
And I don't think it's a good reason not to try. I think with the system, even Bernie Sanders has acknowledged millions of jobs will be lost in the healthcare industry.
Potentially, yeah.
It's a problem.
Sure, but jobs are never a good reason to keep any particular thing. Like dismantling the military-industrial complex would cost a lot of private jobs as well.
Of course,
right? Boeing, Lockheed, Martin, Raytheon, like these. So yeah, so I mean, like there's always going to be jobs.
Right, that's why I'm not saying it's like a good reason to ignore it. I'm saying it's something we have to overcome.
For sure.
So I don't see a good reason other than, like, the argument here from conservatives, and I respect it, is prices would be.
You could doom a little bit that these people like are allowed to exist in civilized society. But don't worry, there are lots of people who don't believe that. I think the majority of people care when other people are hurt.
Cheaper if we just had free competition in the marketplace with healthcare, free of the regulations and all that stuff. And to an extent, I agree. But the problem is, I don't like, I lean left morally and ethically on the issue. So I like the idea that just because someone works at McDonald's doesn't mean they should be provided the care to like fix their broken hand or take care of their kid who's got the flu because they can't afford market rates. Granted, the conservatives argue the market rates would be cheap enough for them if it was complete and totally free. I don't completely agree. I kind of agree, but I still...
Doesn't seem to work that way any other part of the world, but...
Well, I mean, most of the countries have already instituted some kind of national healthcare system, and it's due to long...
Yeah, they're like, hey, listen, I don't care, but Bill Gates sometimes throws around a couple milli to help out some kids who are starving. So this is why I shouldn't pay taxes. It is brain dead. It is a brain dead argument. Like I had someone debate me about this, or like a little like short debate, but he was like, I don't really think I should pay for taxes to help people. We have charity. I'm like, what? I don't think that someone living or laying their head down in a safe home should be contingent on how much of a good Samaritan somebody with more money than them feels like they should be that day. Maybe do a little dance for me. Maybe I'll pay for your rent. Maybe your daughter won't be left in the streets tonight. Maybe if I feel like it. Hey, what can you do for me, toots? I don't like that. I don't think that should be a thing. I think everybody's basic human rights should be taken care of in this instance.
like Europe has a lot to do with World War II and stuff like that.
Sure.
I think the market would price itself in the sense that if they can't get customers to pay the bills, they'd have to figure out a way to improve it. But
Kind of. So market forces wouldn't exactly work that way.
Yeah, good night. Sleep well. Thanks for joining us. Should we watch more of this? Should we watch more of this? This is this has been going on for a while. I'll skip forward a little bit.
back and forth, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I kind of agree. The only problem is that what happens then is that all of our movement comes from either executive actions or the Supreme Court. Which
Which is a problem too.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just curious then. So for one other issue, so healthcare, foreign policy, what's like a third issue that you would like, and besides the critical race theory, like what's another thing that like, oh, like I would support Trump because of this particular thing?
It's a tough question. For me, it had a lot to do with the riots. Absolutely. The critical race theory is huge. That may have
Yeah, we're up to 3.5 hours right now. So
overtaken, like I said earlier in the year, I wasn't going to vote for the guy. But I think critical race theory played a huge role because that's deeply impacted my life. Not just in the sense that there's like this theory and people believe it, but the practical application of directly impacted the safety and well-being of my family and my experience and the stories I grew up. Hate it. 100%. Not the fact that the theory exists. I hate the practical application. So when Trump says, we're issuing an executive order, probably would have done well to read the theory a bit more. I was happy. I said, wow, that's great. I don't like this stuff. Good. I'm glad. But
hey, listen, I've been here for 3.5 hours. I haven't taken a bathroom break, and I drunk like half a jug of water. So I'm still vibing. I got big man bladder. Okay, big boy bladder.
To some business activity, well, that's not okay because now you'd be discriminating against men. I don't know if like the ladies bar issue is running to that or whatever, but
I don't like discrimination, positive or negative.
Yeah, sure.
But so anyway, long story short, that is a big issue for me. I don't like it. When Trump started coming out against the riots, I was shocked to see the Democrats supporting it, either passively or directly. Like the defund the police stuff to me is absolutely insane.
Sure.
And I've been ragging on cops frequently, like the cops in Staten Island who are barring this guy from opening his bar to the public, even though he's not running the business, he's just letting him have free drinks. They're violating the First Amendment of the Constitution, the right to peaceably assemble. It doesn't say for what reason. So the fact that these cops are like, I don't care, I'm gonna do it. I rag on them all the time. I still think defund the police is nuts. And now we're seeing crime skyrocketing in a bunch of different places. I'll tell you one of the big issues for me though was the midterm betrayal, in my opinion. The moderate Democrats who won 31 districts, flipping control of the House to the Democrats, they said they ran on kitchen table issues, the economy, healthcare, etc. They said that they weren't going to play Pelosi's game and be anti-Trump culture warriors. And then they did. And they came in and they said impeachment. And that was the name of the game. That was the big story. That's what carried through. And almost nobody stood up to them.
I mean, I think the big problem with that was that those seemed to be the only games that would gain any traction. I think the problem was that the House, under those 2 years of Pelosi, the House passed like record amounts of legislation. But literally, absolutely nothing could make it through the Senate. So at the end of the day, I mean, like impeachment over whether or not, I'm guessing you probably don't think the Ukraine stuff is legitimate, but whether or not it was, like that was literally the only stuff they could actually get through or have any meaningful impact on the House.
Yeah, the Ukraine stuff is not legitimate.
Okay, the Ukraine stuff? Did you say Iran stuff?
Ukraine.
Oh, yeah, okay. That's a whole other conversation. But,
I know.
Sure. But like, I mean, like, they were passing legislation through the House, but that's all they can do.
I think a big issue with like a conversation I had with Vosh and even with you is different sources of information. One of the things I brought up before, for those that are listening, before we went live was like, you can find a source that confirms your bias. And it's like really hard to break through this and figure out.
You can do that, yeah. I feel like you can go through credibility sources, but obviously most people never will. You can reinforce whatever opinion you want to on the internet.
I pull up. It's true. Yeah. You know who Ryan Long is, comedian?
No, I don't.
He did a bit where he's like, he just basically says, if you like Black Lives Matter, you can say that they're doing good, or you can say they're bad. He like just goes through all the articles that are like, and these are legitimate, like New York Times, Washington Post, Telegraph, Financial Times, where they just say contradictory things, and you're laughing, seeing like a different headline every single day. It's the stupidest thing ever. Sejong the Great says, I was literally watching the videos on election night of the booting, the boarding of the tabulation rooms, etc. Destiny is regurgitating nonsense. So there were videos from a bunch of different states. Like
I watched a ton of live election coverage that night. Like you said it yourself. I agree with you. That it's really hard to watch one video and figure out what's going on. Like there's so much like one video is posted and I have to be careful because like I don't want to be eating.
Okay, so I think we've gotten a lot from this. I'm going to cut it there. Okay, so. Here, let me put on like a little bit of music. So what do you all think about it? They're just going through some questions now. Seems nice. This has been going on for 4 hours now, so that's cool. But also, you got nothing from them besides them being both doofuses. Yeah, I know a lot of people that listen. Okay, I said it before. I'll say it again. I'm here for a large portion because of Destiny. I still hold Destiny in high regards, at least in his rhetoric and his ability to suss out information. I still I take a lot from him, so I think take some of the things that I say with him sometimes with a grain of salt. I may be being a little bit more charitable than I should be sometimes. So just like there. I think Destiny did an okay job. I feel like there are more points that he could push him on, but you could say that about almost everybody with almost everything. I think it was able to uncover some really dumb things from Poole, which is pretty good. I do like that he was able to rehash the fact that Tim Poole does think that he being kinder to a dude who runs a terrorist organization over like some socialist streamer is some sort of badge of honor. That was incredible. I'm glad that he did that. The fact that Tim Pool just actually unironically does not care if other people are suffering as long as he has to pay less in taxes. That's cool. That was cool as well. Absolutely amazing. So